Are you ready for it?
I'm a real tough kid. I can handle my shit. They said fake it, gotta fake it till you make it, and I did.
I'm just a terrible person, I guess.
Lights, camera, bitch. Even when you wanna die. Breaking down, I hit the floor. All the pieces of me shattered as the crowd was chanting more. With a broken heart.
Who's afraid of a little old me?
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah, the Raging Tomato, here, round two for the evening. I don't know if anybody caught the presentation of whatever happened over on Team Fatties, but I was there, had a good old time. You can catch the replay over on Team Fatties channel and have some fun with that. Now we're going to have Non-Fun on, who makes the claim that Trump's tariffs are hurting America. And I would really love to dive into that. As a kind reminder to all of you, we will go into open panel dumpster fire here probably pretty shortly, because I don't know enough to push back or ask too many questions about or get into it. So Non-Fun, I'm going to let you take it away with kind of maybe an opening statement to it, or however you want to present it.
Sure. I didn't prepare a formal opening statement or anything, but I would say, understanding trade is somewhat easy, and then understanding the 1,000,001 different objections to trade is where things get a little complicated. So to start out with, I would say fundamentally trade between countries is beneficial for three primary reasons. One, there's gains from exchange. Two, there's gains from specialization. And three, there are gains from economies of scale. So basically, there are, some countries, because of their geography or because of, how much labor they have relative to how much capital they have, will be comparatively better at producing certain things than other countries. The word comparatively there is important. I don't want to start off too technical. But like, for example, the US is obviously, if we could outcompete Vietnam in producing shoes, if we devoted all our resources towards making shoes. But importantly, the US has much better things to be doing than producing shoes. So if the US were to produce things, or were to produce shoes, we'd be giving up much more than Vietnam is giving up when they produce shoes, because the US could instead specialize in, for example, Apple, and having Apple engineers and having Microsoft and producing this technology that's used all across the world, or SpaceX. Vietnam simply does not have those things, but they do have a large labor force that's willing to work for low wages. So they benefit from specializing in very labor-intensive industries, and the US benefits from specializing in capital-intensive industries, and we can trade with Vietnam, and we'll actually end up with more goods, or the same amount of goods, depending on what assumptions you make, with the same amount of resources. And I think those are the benefits from exchange and specialization. And then we also, that basically comparative advantage theory was used for like 200 years or whatever. It does a very good job explaining why countries that are different from each other trade with each other. There are differences in productivity because of the countries, what are called like factor endowments, because of what factors of production that country has, how much labor that country has, again, how much natural resources the country has. But if you look at trade, currently, a lot of trade happens between very similar countries. And this is what Paul Krugman won his Nobel Prize for. There are also benefits to be had from economies of scale. Basically, without getting too technical again, companies and countries can benefit from increasing returns to scale, because companies have what are called, and entire countries really have, fixed costs. If I want to produce, if I have a chocolate factory, there are certain things I'm going to have to build, regardless of how many chocolate bars I produce. So like wrappers would be a variable cost for every chocolate bar I need into a wrapper. But the sort of like fixed equipment, that is a fixed cost. I can get a mold for a chocolate bar and use it to produce 1,000 chocolate bars or one chocolate bar. It's a fixed cost. And as you produce more goods from the same fixed cost, basically your average costs go down, right? I mean, if I spend $1,000 on
Right.
the
Kind of
mold
like the
chocolate
supply
bar,
and demand kind of thought process there.
well, I mean, it obviously ties
Ish.
into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you have to spend $1,000 on a factory, no matter what, if you produce one chocolate bar, well, your cost is $1,000. If you produce two chocolate bars, your cost per chocolate bar is only $500, and so on and so on and so on. And with some models, we can show that countries will actually, even identical countries, will actually benefit if they specialize in only one industry. Or I mean, the basic model will have them specialize in only one industry, but and the other country specializes in another industry, and therefore both their fixed costs are lower, and also the size of the market is bigger because they're able to sell to each other rather than just the people in only one country.
Would that tie in kind of like to an assembly line concept? If like one person is focusing on doing one thing, to put the car
Yeah,
together, right? The whole concept of Ford. Like
yeah,
if one person is putting a tire on and that's the only job they're doing, they can dedicate all of their time to that one job and they could be the best at it, and then another person is focusing on, putting a window in or whatever. So is that kind of, am I
yeah,
close?
exactly. So I mean,
I'm trying to make sure I understand.
you'll kind of intuitively understand, the benefits and specialization when it comes to ourselves as individuals. We say like, I'm comparatively better. I mean, we may not have this exact thought process, but because the market system works, is what ends up happening. We say like, I'm comparatively better at producing like X thing. I go to work every day, and I'm a streamer. I'm comparatively better at streaming, and my grocery store is comparatively better at growing crops. And I understand the grocery store doesn't grow them, but farmers are comparatively better at growing the crops, and we benefit from trading with them. So I don't have to waste my time growing my own food instead of doing what I'm really good at, which is being a streamer. And you're absolutely right. Like one of the, Adam Smith talked about this, like the gains from division of labor, where people specialize in only doing one thing, only making one part of a product, and there are gains to be had from specialization in that case. Yeah. Which seems like, again, we intuitively understand when it comes to ourselves. And then sometimes we don't want to apply that logic between countries.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So that's number 2, right? The first one was you were talking about the shoes, right?
Yeah.
Or
So
yeah.
yeah. Well,
And
both
then
of those tie into comparative
okay.
advantage. But yeah.
Okay. All right. And then was there a third thought to that? Or did I miss that?
Well, I went over. So those are kind of the basic reasons why trade between countries is a lot of times beneficial. I mean, obviously, as with anything, there's going to be carve outs. So, after you say that, people will come to you with a million different objections, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot of them tonight.
Right.
So,
Okay. So, and that's just the basis of other countries producing other stuff and exporting it, importing it to here. And so, I think would we maneuver into the tariff portion of it and how that applies now?
yeah. So tariffs are just a tax on trade. Technically, like the definition of tariff is just a tax applied on imported or exported goods. In the U.S., we talk about import tariffs, usually tariffs on goods that we import from other countries, because export tariffs are not constitutional. Importantly, though, this is probably going to come up a lot tonight. I don't want to get too technical just yet, but tariffs act as taxes on trade no matter what, because a tax on imports will be equivalent to a tax on exports. Reducing the amount of things that we import via tariff will also reduce the amount of things that we export. There are numerous mechanisms. One, to explain briefly, if we import less goods because of the tariff, that means we're basically supplying less dollars to other countries. And obviously, if the supply of dollars goes down in world markets, what will happen is the price of the US dollar in world markets will increase. Now, that can be good because that lets us buy other currencies for cheaper, and that means we import goods for cheaper. But it's also bad because it also can be bad because that makes our exports harder to buy. So other countries have to spend more of their currency to buy our currency so they can buy goods from our country. So a tariff is going to act as a tax on trade. It's going to reduce imports and exports by the same amount. Basically, there are nuances to that, as with everything. But in a perfect world, a tax on imports will be exactly equivalent to a tax on exports. Now, tariffs fundamentally distort decisions over whether over what resources to use to get the same amount of goods, basically. So obviously, if I'm a consumer in the US, ordinarily I'd make my decision based on, the relative price of foreign products compared to products here. But with a tariff, what you're doing is distorting that. The important thing to remember here is that prices are information. The fact that the prices are cheaper in other countries reflects the fact that they are, for some reason, more productive or have a lower opportunity cost for producing that product. So when you distort that, you end up incentivizing essentially buying products here, which is the goal of a lot of tariffs. We say we want to onshore some production, but it's important to remember that that production that is now taking place domestically will draw resources away from other sectors in the US. Obviously, if we tariff wine companies are going to have to expand production if people want to buy domestic wine to avoid the tariff, and that takes land. And the wine company buying land means someone else doesn't get land. Someone else that otherwise would have used the land for something more productive. So what ends up happening is we use more resources to get the same amount of things. A tariff means that goods are being produced domestically when they could be imported for cheaper, whilst those resources being used to produce goods domestically could have been going to more productive things. That is what economists call deadweight loss. It is not a good thing. It is purely wasted resources.
Okay, I'm tracking now. Okay, so the wine, for instance, the wine you said, if we want to avoid the import tax, or at least maybe the higher costs because of the tariff, right? Then we may go and choose to buy it locally, or that was produced. Well, I mean, isn't most of our, well, I mean, not most, but there's a
I don't
lot
know.
of
I was just
local,
using an example.
there's a lot of
It could be.
local wineries. It's kind of a big deal on the East Coast, and I'm pretty sure in California they have it too. But let's presume we don't already have that in place. So then now, in order to keep up with that demand, right, we'd have to keep up with that demand. Then now we have to produce more wine. Therefore, all of the land that we could have been using to I don't know, something different, like
It could
put
be
up more
going to dairy
commercial
farmers,
buildings, a dairy
olive oil. Yeah.
farmer, so on and so forth. Now we're utilizing that land for wine, which we could have been importing for it and purchasing for maybe, well, I feel like even local wines are just as expensive as the overseas stuff. So, but essentially we could have maybe just paid an
Yeah.
extra $2 to get the wine imported, or maybe even the same price if we didn't have like a higher tariff. And then that extra land that we're using now for wine could have been utilized for something that we actually can do really well, and something that would have been more productive as a resource
Yeah.
for Americans.
I think the easiest way to kind of understand it is just viewing trade as a type of technology that lets us indirectly produce the things that we import by first producing things to export and then trading for them, right? So we might as well imagine that Japan, there's an example I think David Friedman gave. Japan is just a factory that it turns wheat magically in the cars, okay? Obviously, in the real world, we know Japan is a place with people who are willing to trade wheat for cars, but purely economically, we might as well view Japan as just a factory that turns wheat into cars. And we know if we are assuming that we are comparatively better producing wheat, in the real world, we probably don't have a comparative advantage in wheat. We don't really produce much wheat here, I don't think. We can get more cars if we, with less resources, or the same amount of cars with less resources, if we, utilize wheat and trade with Japan for them. And I think, he points out that like any tax or ban, on what he says are automobiles grown in Iowa, because we grow wheat in Iowa, that wheat is then traded for cars. any tax or ban on the cars that we buy from Japan are going to end up hurting the wheat farmers in Iowa, because the wheat farmers are the people sending their resources to the factory to make cars. They are the competition to the car makers in Detroit, for instance, who ordinarily
Does
produce
it kind
cars for
of
ordinary
make
Americans.
does it kind of make us circular then in some instance? With that being said, does it make us it sounds like it's almost making us become more independent. Now, what if we went that route? So, what if this forces us to say, hey, we need to lead with intention and, utilize our resources with intention and be productive with intention, and become more independent of our own stuff, and then become another exporter of our things instead of just importing. Would it lead to that in some way? And I
Well, I
don't
mean,
know this stuff. Like,
right.
pretend I'm a child asking at this point.
So again, I mean, to a certain extent, like trade, like if you open an economics textbook, like the chapter on trade will be called interdependence and gains from trade. So, obviously trade between countries will make those countries in some sense interdependent. US companies rely on imported goods from Mexico and Canada and China and Vietnam to produce those products. US consumers obviously buy a lot of goods from China, Vietnam, Mexico, Canada, all our big trading partners. And to an extent, that makes us interdependent. Now, as I mentioned, there are gains from an interdependence, right? That interdependence means that we get the same amount of goods with less resources, and it means that the U.S. gets to specialize in what we're really good at, and that increases our average productivity, and that makes American wages go up. And we have studies that show this also increases how much countries grow over time, which means over time we'll be growing faster under free trade, and all these beautiful things. I'm sure this will come up tonight. There are, plenty of national security sort of carve outs to this. Now, obviously we don't have a super friendly relationship with China outside of all the trade we do with them. So if China were to invade Taiwan, it could be the case that, semiconductor production is disrupted, and we really need semiconductors to build a lot of military equipment, right? So there could be a justification for either a tariff or some type of industrial policy, which Biden did do some type of industrial policy to sort of onshore things that we really need for strategic military purposes. Now, I think people go way too far with this argument usually, and I also think that tariffs are not a particularly efficient way at actually protecting domestic industries, because we have evidence that they, for example, decrease labor productivity in the industries that they are applied in, because they just, companies just don't have to face competition. If I'm a producer in the US and you say you don't have to compete with the rest of the world anymore, well, then I don't have to innovate anymore, right? Like, because consumers have no choice but to buy from me. There is domestic competition, but
yeah, well, that would be monopolizing, right? To that degree.
well,
But
yeah,
that doesn't mean American companies can't compete with other American companies. I mean,
sure.
how many bars of soap can we, create and innovate and do better than, or it might actually make them competitive on the price, especially if it's localized and, manufactured here and created here and advertised here. Then now everything's local and now it becomes kind of more circular. But essentially, if soap company A and soap company B become like the big thing in America, now they have reason to compete with one another. I mean, you would be talking, I think that would be more in a
So
very niche area, maybe.
yeah, I mean, I would say, like, every company, every market exists on a spectrum between, monopoly and perfect competition, right? There aren't really any perfectly competitive markets, and there aren't, I mean, you can maybe find examples of some. There aren't very many perfect monopolies. Which is to say, like, obviously, if we protect our firms from foreign competition, there's still going to be competition domestically, because none of these companies are really going to be perfect monopolies. But we do have evidence that even just reducing competition decreases labor productivity in those industries. There are a few studies done by some people when we used to have tariffs like in the 1870s to like 1913. If you actually look at the tariffs that we placed on certain manufacturing industries, they reduce labor productivity within those industries. We have evidence domestically as well that, for example, like when railroad production got a lot more efficient, that allowed companies further away from each other to compete.
Right, and
Now,
that was a
obviously, this is
huge competition, wasn't it, between the railroad lines?
well,
Like, they
so yeah,
were
so obviously the railroad companies themselves had a lot of competition, but
Mhm.
like it basically it allowed companies in different states to start competing with each other, and that led to these companies within different states. Obviously, it's interstate trade rather than international trade, but
Mhm.
to compete with each other better, which made these companies innovate more. And I think I mean I have the study written down. It found it was something like 18% increase in productivity, like in the industries where these railroads made transportation a lot more efficient. So there are good reasons to believe that tariffs tend to reduce labor productivity in the industries that they are placed in. Although sometimes they will have the opposite effect. There are studies that you find that have the opposite effect. But there
Mhm.
are especially good reasons to believe that tariffs will decrease productivity overall because, like I said earlier, well, productivity, firstly, is just output over input, right? And trade is really good, like I mentioned earlier, because it lets you get the same amount of goods with less resources. If you restrict that from happening with a tariff, you end up using more resources to get the same amount of goods. That's a pretty bad thing.
I see what you're saying. Kind of. I'm mildly there. For being a blonde and being a girl and not knowing anything about this stuff, I feel like I'm tracking pretty okay. Betwixt with the big five says liberals tonight will argue we should import cheaper goods made with slave labor over domestically made goods. This should be fun. You're welcome to respond on fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing I would say, let's think about the, slave labor, cheap good parts. First of all, obviously there's this question of like human suffering and like, should we be buying from companies that have this like horrible working conditions? But let's set aside the human suffering thing for a second. Let's imagine a example where a company in India sort of, they say, oh, we found this new amazing innovation. Now we can produce clothes with half the amount of labor, right? So, we can reduce our cost by 50%. And now we pass the saving on to the consumer.
Mhm.
That I think obviously people would say would have an economic benefit for us. Now, I mean, there are other objections to importing, but, we'd kind of say like, oh, they've had some great innovation. It's fair for them to receive receive profit because of that. Let's say we find out that some journalist sneaks into this factory and they find out, oh, they actually just it started employing children who are working for half the prices. It's like, well, maybe we might morally object to that, and I'll get to that in a second. But
Mhm.
is our economic gain any less real? Like we still we still got all
Right.
these cheap products, right? Like
Right.
this is the same. It's just a type of innovation that we feel kind of morally queasy about.
Mhm.
And now I understand the
Well, oh, go
intuition
ahead.
to feel morally queasy about that, right?
Mhm.
But we have to think about the alternative for these poor kids, right? Like there are definitely cases, don't get me wrong, where there is like genuine slavery. Like Mr. Beast has been on like a whole crusade recently trying to get, actual like slaves who make chocolate in West Africa, like out of slavery in his
What?
schools. But
For real? This is a
yeah,
thing?
yeah, because Mr. Beast has his own chocolate bar and he didn't want to use any like slave labor for it. And there's like a lot of countries in West Africa where children are sold into essentially slavery. I mean, it probably has some differences from, the sort of chattel slavery that we had in the US 200 years ago, whatever. Um, but there are, cases like that where there isn't really voluntary exchange and it's not beneficial. And I don't know exactly what the right thing to do there is, but I would not be super morally opposed to putting a tariff on that or whatever.
Mhm.
But, we have to think about generally what is the alternative for these people working in sweatshops, because it's not like they were going to have a good life otherwise. They
Right.
are working in these sweatshops because it's their best option. Prior to working in sweatshops, you had countries, people in China, Vietnam, and Korea were like in Indonesia were like subsistence farmers in a booming population. So they were forced onto smaller and smaller land. It's like these children would be working in agriculture in probably worse conditions,
Right.
getting paid less because it's a less productive industry. Obviously, it kind of sucks that like the best option for them is to work in the sweatshop, but that is
Right.
actually the best option for them. And we have evidence that trade increases income. Earlier was talking about a model where countries specialize in certain things that increases their average productivity and that therefore increases their average wages. So countries like Indonesia, which can really only develop an export market because they offer cheap labor.
Mhm.
If we rob them of their opportunity to specialize in things, we rob them of their opportunity to grow. Look at South Korea. South Korea used to be, a pretty poor country, and to an extent, they developed through like import substitution, which I'm sure that might come up tonight as well. But we have evidence. We just have a lot of evidence, from theoretical models to empirical evidence, that say trade increases income, trade increases growth, and that is good for these countries in the long run. If you don't buy these slave labor products or whatever, these countries will remain poor forever, or poorer than they otherwise could be. And you'll probably have child labor for longer in worse conditions. We have evidence even from India of a child labor ban that they tried to do. And they found that the conditions of children after the child labor ban, actually got slightly worse because child labor just moved to the black market and didn't actually
Oh, no.
yeah.
So this would actually remind me, I don't know if you ever took a bioethics class, but it's one of my favorites, right? And one of the things that they make you do is kind of run these hypotheticals of like things that you're like, oh, that makes me queasy thinking about that, but is it still better? And
Right.
and one example was given of was that they wanted to test medication on pregnant women. It was some kind of new pharmaceutical that it's all made up, of course, but a new pharmaceutical that could help um, eh, m- increase the strength and life of the baby inside, and all of these great things that would happen to the child that's growing inside of the mother's belly. And of course, it like hypothetically passed all of the clinical trials and so on and so forth off of human testing, and now it's going through a board, and the board has to determine if it's better for to if it's okay to test on humans at this point. And the test subjects were like some poor third world country where they have like zero medical, they barely have food, all of these different things. And you're sitting there weighing the options, and now the woman could either get the placebo or she could get the actual pill that does this wonder thing. But the question we always came down to was, well, in this instance, they're getting 9 months full of health care. Actually, even after the fact, they're receiving health care, and then you're receiving food and shelter and nourishment for your baby during that cycle as well. And they're going to be testing the child, and keeping an eye on them for the next 18 years to see how they're doing and how they're growing up with this magical wonder drug, and it's like, but what if it went wrong? you
Right.
know but okay, something could go wrong, but overall they have access to all of this healthcare, nutrition, and all these wonderful things that they would have never had access to before. Is it worth the risk? And I think that for the kind of the morality check for these children in these slave labor type of scenarios, that's what you would be asking. Is it doing more harm than good? Are they in a better position than they would be? And I think you just made a great point of saying that they actually did it, and it turned out to be terrible for them. So it's a
Yeah.
really great ethical question to bounce around, and I think that that's a good. Sorry, I love like that ethical piece of things.
Right. Yep.
So you just hit a great button of mine on that one. Box with the big five says we pay more because huge companies won't take any kind of hit on their profit.
I mean, a lot of companies just don't operate at like this high of margins, right? Like a lot of people have this perception that like all these big companies are just like raking in huge amounts of profit, because we hear this number like, oh, Intel 30 billion trillion in profit, Apple 1 quadrillion bajillion in profit. It's like, if you actually look at the margins they're running at, it's like, well, sometimes I think the average for the S&P 500 of companies in them is like 12%, profit margin or whatever. So if you put a 10-25% tariff on these on goods from other countries, it's like, well, that profit margin is gone. It's like they have to increase prices because they they go bankrupt otherwise. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like greedflation narrative here is gonna work out if you actually look at the profit margins of these country or of these companies. But yeah, and
With
also
that,
I will add,
oh, go ahead.
actually, company, corporate profit is not like, I don't think that's inherently evil or anything. Like, if a company has more profit, you're probably going to be more like willing to invest and expand, like, or you save it, and that money, that saved money will, finance other investment. Essentially, it'll lower their real interest rate, and that lets other companies borrow. They'll stash it in treasury bills, and that lets the U.S. government borrow money for cheaper. So, if we have I would ask, like, if we tariff these countries and then companies reduce their profit margin, it's like, well, if that didn't have to happen and we're not actually getting a big benefit from the tariff, which I obviously believe that we wouldn't, then what is the point of doing that? You're just reducing companies' profits for no reason, which also has negative effects. Like,
Well, what if it's kind of like we pay shipping kind of concept? What if the manufacturer who's sending the stuff, what if they say, "Hey, we'll take care of the shipping," because if essentially they're the ones that are have the most potential of loss, right? So Apple, for instance, has obviously some kind of chip company somewhere, right? Let's just
yeah,
pretend it's in China. And all of the chips that go into the cell phones have to get imported into America, and there's that 25% tariff or whatever it is. So Apple says, hey, manufacturer in China, you can either pay for that tariff cost, like I call that like the shipping tax, right? Or we'll find another competitor who's cheaper so that whatever's coming in, we're not paying that high because it's a percentage based on the uh, like the cost of the item, right?
right, yeah. I
So
mean, so
essentially,
there is, like, I'll say, like, basically what you're talking about is it's called like the pass-through rate.
hmm
Obviously, if we tariff China, we might expect exporters in China to lower their prices to compensate for the tariff. And
hmm
that'll probably, obviously the impact of it will be different in different industries. Some companies might be a lot more willing to lower the prices to basically negate the effect of the tariff than others. And then we have empirical evidence for this. So it seems like from basically every study, the pass-through rate of tariffs is like over 80% almost all the time with respect to the person importing the good. So, if we import a good if a company is importing a good for China, they're essentially going to be paying 90% of that tariff, or 80 to 90% of that tariff. And the exporters are going to lower prices by 10% or whatever.
hmm
And like the Trump administration's own study that they cited for when they were calculating the reciprocal tariff rate, had a pass-through rate of like 90%. It was like 94% or something. That's a study that Trump's team apparently thinks is valid. So I would trust them. Now there is a there is a nuance in that. Obviously, companies might be paying the tariff, but then how much of the tariff that they actually pay do they pass through to the consumer? And there's mixed evidence for that. I think that, so the study that the Trump administration cited, they actually cited it incorrectly, but they essentially accidentally cited the number for how much the tariff is passed through to the consumer rather than how much the tariff is passed through to just importers in general. So a company like Apple, might import goods and have to pay an added tariff, and they might choose to pass, half that cost onto the consumer. So,
right.
There's two different pass-through rates there. The pass-through rate for the first one tends to be over 80%. The pass-through rate for the second one depends on the industry, but it tends to be relatively high. And
hmm
again, there just is not that much of a benefit from it.
Well, wouldn't that lead to more competitive offshore manufacturing then? Like, if company A could make the chip and sell it to us for $3, right? Just a number. And then we say, you know what? I want to see if I can find someone who makes it cheaper, still same quality, same thing, whatever, but charges me less so that when that tariff does come through, I'm not paying, for the cost of it, additionally to that. So wouldn't that kind of create a more competitive offshore
I
market?
mean, markets are already pretty competitive. Like,
Mhm.
companies are always looking for a better deal, and investors are always looking to finance innovation so that they can benefit from the better deals that they can offer other companies. This is what's great about the free market and everything.
Right.
It's just, I mean, because markets are already generally competitive, I don't think there's really any good reason to believe that it would have that effect. There is
Wouldn't that
actually evidence
force
that
innovation then?
what, sorry?
Wouldn't that force an innovation then? Like, how can
Well,
we
again, I
be
mean,
the top competitive market? How can we make them cheaper? How can we automate efficiency, so on and so forth? I feel like to me, people work good under pressure. We're knee-jerk reaction kind of creatures, right? So when the room's on fire, that's when we start getting our asses moving. And I'm wondering if this will kind of force that hand in innovation or more collaboration across the board in order to figure out how can we make it better. Because you want to, like, knowing that that's the issue. And I feel like America's a big importer, right? We get a lot of goods
right.
in the
Yep.
door. So if you lose our um, purchases, that's a bad thing, right? Because we are consumers across the board. You don't want to lose that. You want to harness it even more. So to me, that would inspire the companies to say, nope, we're going to beat the tariff by making it cheaper, more effectively, and finding the best market we can do. Not to say that it's not already competitive, but to boost that innovative concept behind it.
I mean, I'm not gonna say that like that effect is like literally impossible, but I just like repeat, like, we have studies on this, and it kind of seems like that effect just simply doesn't happen that much because there's already a decently large incentive to innovate for a lot of these
Mhm.
companies. It just empirically does not seem to have that effect. But I
Mhm.
will add that we do see some of that effect when we start trading with more countries. For example, when we started trading with China, it's like, well, we already like weren't producing shoes here when we started trading with China. So it's not like shoe production moved from the US to China, but it did force Chinese firms and Vietnamese firms to to compete with Chinese firms, and the US
Mhm.
consumer benefited from that. And there was probably more, I don't have an empirical study on this, but I would guess that there was more innovation within Vietnam and China because of that competition between them.
Mhm. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Grid says with a big 10, as a business owner, manufacturer, and employer, I welcome the tariffs. At one time, it did in fact make sense to offshore cheaper goods, but those days are gone. Americans need jobs.
All right. There's like 5 things in here. Okay. Well, one, okay, as a business owner, I'm not going to deny that in some cases, tariffs will help the specific industry that you protect them on, right? So, like, if you tariff sugar, sugar producers in the US will benefit. But you also have to think about who is losing. Well, everyone in the US who buys sugar now has to pay higher prices. And what a basic tariff model will show you, everyone go to Google, type in right now, microeconomics tariff model, you'll see a graph. The important thing about this graph is that the gain in producer surplus, so the amount that producers win from the increased domestic production, is smaller than the loss in consumer surplus, meaning the decrease in the amount of how much consumers win from being able to import these goods cheaply.
Mm-hmm.
So that that's a negative effect there. Secondly, I will mention that we should probably focus on things again, kind of in aggregate. So we're tariffs undeniably can help some businesses, but at the cost of other businesses, right? Like remember I'm giving the example of like the wine in exports earlier. Wine companies buying more land will hurt the companies that otherwise would have bought that land. These wine companies are now competing to buy this land when previously they would not have been doing that. American exporters are hurt because, as I explained earlier, a tax on imports is also a tax on exports. Exchange rates go up, so the export sector is hurt, and a lot of manufacturing companies are exporters. They rely on exporting their goods to world markets, and when you make the US dollar more expensive, it hurts their ability to do that. And that is why we have a lot of studies on this from Trump's first term. Okay, well, real quick, actually, I'll mention another possible effect is that tariffs are placed on intermediate goods and or like capital goods, right? So companies import a lot of things they use to produce other things. These are called intermediate
Right.
goods. A car company in the US might import goods from Canada and Mexico. In fact, over half the goods that we get from Canada and Mexico are these so-called intermediate goods. When you tariff intermediate goods, you are just taxing businesses. It is almost the same as the corporate tax. Like, you are just hurting the business. You don't actually help domestic businesses. You're just taxing the business. Both producer surplus and consumer surplus goes down. A lot of goods that we, Trump's tariff and steel, for example, did this. And because you're hurting a lot of businesses with the examples that I just gave, you're hurting the export business. You're hurting any company that relies on imported goods to produce their products. You're hurting, I feel like there was another thing I mentioned. Oh, yeah. I mean, just opportunity cost, obviously. You're hurting companies that now have to compete for, the resources. You're basically, the technical way of phrasing it is, you're shifting the relative profitability of industries. And because you shift the relative profitability of industries, the companies that are made relatively less profitable because of the tariff are going to be harmed through the reduced investment they receive. You actually end up hurting a lot more jobs than you help. There is no good evidence anywhere that tariffs actually lead to a net job increase. They protect jobs in certain sectors, but harm jobs in other sectors. Remember, I brought up that Iowa car crop example, okay? There are 2 ways to get cars in America. The first way, everyone knows about the first way. You make cars in Detroit. Second way is you grow them in Iowa. You plant seeds, you wait until wheat appears, you harvest the wheat, load it on the ships, sail it to Japan. International trade, it's just a type of technology. Again, we might as well view Japan as a factory that turns wheat into cars.
Yeah.
Any policy designed to favor the first American technology over the second is designed to favor American auto producers in Detroit over American auto producers in Iowa. A tax or ban on imported automobiles is a tax or ban on Iowa-grown automobiles. You must hurt other industries in order to protect the industries that you protect with the tariff. And that is why, all the reasons why, basically no empirical study finds that tariffs actually increase net jobs. Specifically, like, look at Trump's tariffs. They led to probably Trump steel tariffs led to a 74,000 job decline, specifically in the manufacturing industry, because manufacturers rely on steel for their products. And that's not even accounting for all the other jobs that were lost in maybe the service sector industry. The IMF has this huge study, 151 countries over 50 years, and they find tariffs reduced employment. They barely affect trade balances. They reduce total output. They and there was one other thing. Oh, they lead to, I think they even said it lead to increase inequality. So there's just no good evidence that that this stuff increases jobs. And again, I will mention, we have very good reasons to believe that trade increases growth. And because it increases growth, job opportunities will grow over time as the economy grows overall. And that is a really, really good thing.
That would make sense. Is there a point where trade would eventually stagnate, or, even if you have things that we need or use, like, for instance, a VCR is now obsolete, right? So creating VCRs is no longer required. So that whole technology division of VCRs just died off. And maybe so did the technology that went with it. Does that make sense at all, how I'm saying that?
Yeah, I mean, the important thing to remember is that, usually, as with any type of technology, it's going to, harm some industries and help other industries. So, obviously, the internet probably automated a lot of things. People probably don't need as many receptionists because now they can, use the internet. They can use ChatGPT to do everything for them. But it also created entire new fields in, software development and all that, in, every supporting industry around the internet. So, I think actually, if you look at global trade, I think it has actually slowed down. I think since 2008, it's kind of stopped growing at the rate it used to. I believe. I don't think I ever.
Yeah, because we had that tech boom, right? We had a huge.
Well, yeah. So in 2008, you had the great financial crisis, and it seems like that kind of harmed a lot of countries' productivity. Productivity in Europe especially has been relatively stagnant since 2008, and that's probably harmed the amount that we trade, basically, or stop. Certainly it would have been higher if the productivity increase or productivity slowdown didn't happen.
Mhm.
But I mean, I don't know. It's like it's impossible to make predictions. Economists are not good at making predictions, and I'm not even an economist. Okay, so I really can't tell you what the future is going to look like. But I will say, trade will probably go down if you do a ton of tariffs like Donald Trump is doing.
All right, fair enough. And before I read this next one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop the link in chat. Yeah, we're about 45 minutes in. I think I mentally am capturing most of what you're saying, and we'll do open panel dumpster fire, and we'll give people some time to get backstage as they need to while we finish up our conversation. Man Army comes in with a big two, says out of all libs, non-fun is one of the best debaters. I think you're an excellent debater. I think you're a very intelligent man. I think you have a lot to offer, and I'm putting my money on you, non-fun. I was telling somebody this the other day. I was like, this guy's gonna, if you really really want to, in terms of like your streaming and your like your worldview of things and the way you interact with other panelists, like you can go very far, and I would be willing to put my
Aw,
money on that. Yeah,
I
I like
appreciate it.
you're like one of my other little babies at this point because you're not much older than my daughter, so so yeah, but I agree, man. Army non-fun is a most excellent debater, and he's a great sport too. You can take the heat; doesn't seem to phase you, and you bring a lot of intelligence to the panel. I think.
Well, I appreciate it.
So while we're waiting for people to jump backstage, I see a 10th man. We'll wait. I wanted to ask one final kind of thought bubble and give you the space to talk it out. What would the solution be aside from just not putting the tariffs on or whatever? I wanted to know what would a solution to be would be. Bleh. What solution would you have us do instead of the tariffs, but still to help boost economy and then also promote, you know, maybe American made
Sure.
or maybe help to prevent other countries from putting high tariffs on us and so on and so forth. I'll let you.
Yeah. So I think we should do one what we've done historically a lot, which is actually reciprocal tariff cuts. Basically, I think like FDR signed this bill into law, and then like the international community kind of agreed to it with the thing called the General. It's called GATT, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. I think is what it stands for. Where countries basically agreed to like tariff cutting grounds, where we'd say, hey, if you cut tariffs on us, we're going to cut tariffs on you, and this led to lowering trade barriers overall. Most countries today have pretty low trade barriers. Some developing countries still have, maybe like 18% at most, like average tariff rates. Like I think India has like 10% or something, 10 to 18%. But I think we should do that. And I think, generally speaking, we should try to get countries to lower their trade barriers, be it through, I obviously don't, some people say Trump is doing 4D chess to get to that very outcome, but I kind of doubt that. And I think I think saying that we're going to drop tariffs on them is a good incentive for them. I would also say, like, I think most of the goals that tariffs try to achieve are kind of misguided, but I think a lot of them are also achieved better by something called a VAT. So a VAT is basically just a fancy sales tax. You guys can look up better explainers of it, but it's just a sales tax, except it has lower avoidance and it doesn't tax business to business transactions, unlike U.S. sales tax, which usually it sometimes do affect business to business transactions. A value-added tax will raise a 5% value-added tax would raise about as much revenue as 20% universal tariffs. And if a 5% value-added tax to a narrower base, so taxing less goods, that's that'll raise about as much as a 10% universal tariff. And it's also, basically we have two options. I mean, one, you could spend that revenue, obviously, on whatever we need, but you could also just use that revenue to pay down the debt. And part of the reason
That's not a
I don't know.
bad deal. Yeah.
Yeah, so this might get a little technical. Hopefully I can
That's
do a good job
okay.
explaining this.
Listen, it's not about me. All right. We already know I don't get it, but it's about the viewers. So you get as technical as you'd like.
Well, no offense, Sarah, but I your viewers, I don't trust to understand what I'm saying either. But
That's okay.
essentially, part of the reason the U.S. has big trade deficits is because we have a budget deficit that is lowering America's savings. So America's a really good place to invest. A lot of people want to invest in us. We have a ton of investment opportunities, but Americans themselves can't save enough money essentially to finance all that investment. And what that means is a lot of foreign capital is brought in.
Mhm.
A way to lower trade deficits is to raise the nation's savings rate. And if you lower the budget deficit, you will raise the nation's savings rate. People save more money in aggregate, and then that'll end up having a downward pressure on the budget deficit. And then alternatively, I guess if you let's say spent the revenue from VAT or used the VAT to cut income taxes, because a lot of people say we're going to raise money with tariffs and we're going to use that money to cut income taxes. Well, VATs only tax consumption. They do not tax savings. So income tax does tax saving because it just taxes all your income.
Right.
You're actually eliminating the discrimination against saving in the tax system. So you would also probably increase the nation's savings rate, even if you used it to cut taxes.
Oh. Oh, okay. That's fair. Not a bad deal. Again, I'm not smart enough to interpret any of that, but I think that you're saying VAT, it is a sales tax. But essentially instead of having the tariff because the tariff thing has more harm than good kind of concept in what
Yeah.
it's doing, whereas a sales tax, it would, it would generate income for us instead of people like kind of negating people's willingness to run through the tariff stuff, right? A sales tax is like you buy something, you pay
So
a tax, right? Is that
yeah. Well,
okay?
VAT will actually be VAT is basically the same thing. You buy something, you pay for the tax, but the way it's implemented, basically, businesses receive a rebate on any good they purchase. They pay a VAT on it, but they can receive basically a tax credit for it. So you don't actually end up taxing any business-to-business transactions. In the U.S., the way
Oh.
sales tax is implemented, it's not meant to tax business-to-business transactions, but in effect, it does a lot of times because, a lot of small business owners just get materials from Walmart or Home Depot, and
Right.
they can end up paying sales tax on those products.
Right.
I think
Right.
there's one estimate that 40% of the revenue from sales taxes is actually from those type of business-to-business transactions.
And that makes sense because that would be an expense that you would, in fact, get like tax credits on when you're running
Well, sure.
when you're
Well,
doing
I
your
think
taxes as a
that's the
business,
ideal.
right?
Yeah.
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 Okay. I see what you're saying. Now, on a tariff, though, is there a tax credit to that too, or is it just like, no, you're paying it, we're not giving you any
Well, no, I mean
deductions on it?
no, a tariff. I mean, you don't. I mean, it's just a sales tax. Well, it's not a consumption tax. So a VAT and sales tax are only supposed to tax consumption. They're only supposed to tax goods that are final consumer goods. A tariff, though, will tax, like I said earlier, inputs. Ordinarily, a VAT is not going to tax steel because steel usually is not a final product, right? Or you'll tax it, but then you get a rebate for it essentially. And a tariff, on the other hand, does tax steel. It taxes what are called capital goods, goods used to produce other goods. And that's a really bad thing because that reduces the after-tax return of investment and therefore reduces investment.
Okay. And let me get through these just couple super chats here, and then we'll bring everybody up, and then you can have your fun. Zach in with the big 5. Tariffs are indeed numerically bad, but what of the bargaining? It seems Trump's goal is to bludgeon places like China into lowering tariffs on the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, for one, I'm not convinced that's the case because Trump repeatedly like for decades has complained about trade deficits, and like we're going to end up running trade deficits with countries if we don't have tariffs on them. It just really does not seem like, it just seems like he likes tariffs. That's like what all of his rhetoric is about. And there are other ways to negotiate with countries to reduce tariff rates other than threatening to tariff them at like 100%, 60%, 50%, like all this like insane shit Trump is doing, which has created a ton of uncertainty. You know, that's the reason, part of the reason the stock market crashed. That's part of the reason the bond market was freaking out for a little bit. That's part of the reason the dollar was falling in world markets, was because there was so much uncertainty around what tariffs were actually going to go into effect and everything. Then investors just started investing, dumping their dollars essentially and investing in Europe. They don't want to hold U.S. treasuries. They didn't want to hold U.S. stocks. They wanted to go to Japan, to Europe, to the UK, to all these two, emerging markets even. There are ways you can negotiate with countries without creating this much uncertainty, which we know from studies about, in Trump's first term, uncertainty decreases business investment. Businesses don't want to invest if they don't know what shit is going to be tariffed in, a week from now, 2 months from now. So that'd be, yeah.
That's a good point. And Box with the big 2 says, I get what he's saying. I just disagree. I think that's
right.
pretty
I mean,
fair.
I think I will say, these, I think when he sent that, I was talking about the like savings investment, balance and everything. I will say that is an accounting identity. This might come up a lot tonight, but accounting identities are true by definition. So anyone can go ask ChatGPT, anyone can Google, is it true that savings minus investments is equal to the trade deficit? And it will tell you, yes. This is not like a model in economics that might apply sometimes, but might not work out sometimes. This is something that's true by definition. It is always true because it's an accounting identity. Basically, we constructed it to be true because it's accounting. You go to Wikipedia for the accounting identity, and it'll say something that is true by definition. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. And then Grid follows up from earlier, and he says, I understand what you're saying, Non-Fan. I just don't think you actually believe it.
I mean, hey, Grid, I know we're talking to each other tomorrow, I think, on a panel tomorrow.
Ooh, are you? Go
Yeah.
ahead, shout that out. Give a little advertisement.
Well, I mean, I think all my socials on the screen, tomorrow, I think 6 p.m. EST, me and Grid and some other YouTubers and streamers will be on a panel talking about the economy. So presumably about tariffs and maybe other types of taxes that we like or dislike, or, the Republicans' budget, whether we like or dislike it. Listen, I don't know how you think I don't believe what I'm saying at this point. Like I've been on my anti-tariff rampage for a while now. Like all of this is the stuff I believe. If I don't know something, I'll tell you like I don't know it. Like, but
that's fair. Okay, and then Amanda Price in with the big 2 says, let's get the Indian Jesus on. He is backstage along with 10th Man Duck, Animated Effigy, Caucasian Sasquatch, Chris Throws Bricks, and Trippy Cast. So they are all backstage and waiting. And that was the last super chat. And so let's go ahead. Are you ready to play?
I guess, yeah.
All right, here we go. All right, gentlemen, shut the fuck up. This is how we're
Oh,
gonna
he put
start
his
this off.
sunglasses on. We're in trouble.
Yeah, good. He deserves to wear sunglasses. Who dropped off? Oh, Trippy, your device is not connecting. All right. So listen, gentlemen, we can come in hot, we can come in smoking, we can come in nice and cool. But either way, if you hear my voice, you be quiet and you let me speak. I will not bother you throughout this entire panel, especially because I know nothing about it. But I will not let you interrupt me when I'm trying to calm the panel or read a super chat or just do some basic logistics. Understood? All right, and we're all aware of
I have my
TOS and being
sunglasses
mindful
on.
of that too. All right, I leave it to you.
Blah 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 blah. Boogie, 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 boogie.
I agree with probably most of the stuff that Buddy said. Would you agree, sir, that this kind of almost looks like a smash and grab where they just devalue the currency just like they use in other countries so that then they can buy it all up, and then when it goes back to normal, then you're good to go.
Who is they?
Trump and his buddies.
I don't know. I genuinely do not think they have a solid plan. It seems like
You
know,
think that a
trusted
lot,
advisors.
but you're not smarter than they are. Also,
Yeah.
Okay, number one. I just because I'm not smarter than Peter Navarro and these economists or whatever working for Trump doesn't mean that they can't have wrong opinions. I think I can pretty easily demonstrate why most of their
don't you
opinions are wrong.
agree
Second of
that-
all, I'm pretty sure I am smarter than Peter Navarro at this point. That
the guy
is
who made up
unbelievably
someone
fucking
to reference in his own books that was an anagram of his own name. Yeah,
Cool.
that guy's really smart.
It's not a matter of
I don't care
are
about
you
that person.
smarter or not smarter. It's you're approaching this as if they haven't thought about this at all. That seemed to be the vibe that I got from you. And
I get that vibe too, but I'm not sure if that's what he wants to be.
a little bit better than I do. But
Well-
zooming out, it seems like you're like, what are they doing? This is crazy. They didn't even think about this. I think they did.
And
I'm
can
not
we all
convinced
just
that they did.
take
I'm
a
not convinced that they
moment?
did.
And honestly, look at the
everybody-
last week and say they thought about that.
Can everybody just say hi, Mama?
Hey, mama.
Hi, Mama.
Hey, Mama.
Every night lately, especially lately, because my chat has just been too much, so I haven't been able to stop the panel or whatever to say hello. But I wanted to make sure we said it loud and clear so she could hear us. Hi, Mom. I love you. All right, back to you.
When you guys
So
were
first of all, I'm
live,
absolutely not convinced that they thought of this. I mean, the
Wait.
internal reporting-
If that's
Let's
Sarah's
slow down.
mom, sorry, real quick. If that's Sarah's mom, you raised an absolutely wonderful daughter.
Yes, and that's coming
Yay.
from me, the monster.
There's consensus.
Non-Fon and Sarah, I didn't hear you guys even speak about it, but I showed up kind of 45 minutes in. Non-Fon, do you not see or do you know that all these companies have to do is build a factory in the U.S. and then they can skip the tariffs completely?
Sure, I can
That's
respond
one
to that.
of-
I can respond to that in a second. But
No,
firstly, I
you
would just like to
don't.
say I'm absolutely not convinced that they thought this through. The internal reporting suggests that they did for the reciprocal tariffs. They didn't even agree on a plan for the reciprocal tariffs until like 3 or before they announced them. And their formula was total dog shit. No economists so it
Well,
supports the
explain.
use of that formula, and they miscited. They miscited a study that they used in that formula. Like all of this shows to me that they are 100% totally incompetent.
Yeah, but
And second of all-
Can I break up this? Can I break up
He's not
this one-on-one real
quite
quick?
done.
Because I just want to say, Donald Trump, his entire administration, they never said once how they're impacting sustainability. They never said how they're interrupting businesses. I don't care if they're in China or Indonesia or Japan, wherever. They never said what they're actually changing, and that to me is unjust. It's not fair and it's unjust. It's not transparent either.
I'd still like to hear what Fon's got to say about what I said.
Yeah, so number one, I think there's very good reasons to believe that the aggregate impact on manufacturing from these, tariffs and everything will actually be quite negative. We just got today, like the Philadelphia manufacturing survey, and like the expectations for them are super low. It's only plunged this month, this much in a month 3 times before, twice in 2020 during COVID, and once in October 2008. We got also, a survey from the New York Fed does a survey, their manufacturers. The 6-month outlook for them is down 7.4 points. Like
Good.
firms are expecting are decreasing capital investment because guess what? Tariffs, universal tariffs, like the one that Trump is doing, tariff a lot of intermediate goods. Like I was explaining this a little earlier. A lot of companies rely on goods imported from other countries to make their products. Over half the imports that we get from Canada and Mexico are these intermediate goods. When you tariff those goods, you are essentially just taxing businesses. You reduce their margins, you reduce the after-tax profit they can make. And second of all, we should always consider opportunity costs. So like I agree to some extent that if you tariff X product, you're going to increase domestic production of that product because these companies will build factories in the US. But that draws resources away from other sectors. Again, we could always be importing that good for cheaper, while the domestic resources being used to produce that product that's now being produced in the US could have gone to other more productive things.
Yeah, but the whole point of this
So you
is
don't
so that we
avoid
can be
tariffs if you're making a
self-sufficient.
factory and having to buy stuff from outside of a country to make your factory build shit inside the country.
True.
Yeah, but if we just build it all here, we don't have to worry about getting it.
Oh,
Okay.
if we were just our own little
Hey, hold on,
planet,
build
we
it
didn't
all
have to
still.
interact
Yes,
with anyone else
exactly.
on the
Just like
fucking
we were
planet.
self-sufficient on electricity.
I just
One
want
at
you-
a gentlemen, one at a time, please. I can't hear
So-
you.
Very simple question, TrippyCast. It's a very obvious answer. Do you think that if all the mining for everything was done in the US, if all the refinement was done in the US, if all the transportation, if every single step of the supply chain to produce, let's say, iPhones in the US, and that was done for every product, do you think total output for the US would be higher or lower? Like our GDP, would it be higher or lower?
We can make it higher.
Yeah,
All we got
lower.
to do is export
Over
the goods
time?
that we create in our own
Better.
country. We export it. They
That's
pay us.
absolutely not.
We get more money. They
Absolutely
also build
not true, 'cause you're
factories
not
here.
considering-
They pay our people.
You're not considering
I mean, just for one
Really
second.
want.
every
So-
American
Hold on.
working in a
Go ahead,
mine.
Malcolm.
Every American working in a mine, every American working in a steel mill is an American that's not working at a more productive sector. It's an American that's not able to work for Apple, not able to work for Microsoft, not able to work for one of our big banks, which do,
Okay.
by the way, export their services to the entire world.
That's why
Computers
Canada's going to be our
everywhere.
51st state.
Computers everywhere use
I wish.
will
use
be.
Windows, right? And that's a product made in the US. That's a software made in the US. These are higher productivity sectors that you'd be diverting resources away from. So our output would
Just
fall,
wanna-
our productivity would
I mean,
fall.
why don't we
wages
just
would
ask
fall.
Russia?
for
Why
electronics
don't we
only.
just ask Russia?
Hold-
We've
hold on.
already sanctioned, what's it called? Kaspersky or Kaspersky or whatever it is.
Kaspersky.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we do
So-
this
Before we
all the
move
time
on.
to other people.
Well, I mean,
The international payment system.
do we really want? I mean, I feel like a lot of Americans are pretty well educated, and having a college degree is just kind of a thing you do at this point. Do we want our society over here being more worried about creating like laboring, manufacturing kind of stuff, or would
Hell
we
yeah.
rather put us to better use and doing big smart things,
I do a little both. I'll do some mining and I'll create programs. But
Before
I mean,
we
not
move
fun,
on
not fun.
from the guy who said about that America can produce more stuff. So you'll agree that
Yeah, Tom.
Canada is America's major trading partner, right?
They're
Yeah,
like
they're
our
one
little
of them, yeah.
cousin. What do we trade
But
with?
we're
them?
but we're a major trading partner, right? So
Yeah.
the problem with that is we are not gonna buy enough from you guys because we already are at a surplus for
Yeah.
everything we produce. So that's going to negatively impact America, whereas all of our prices for groceries and the majority of things that I buy are to pre-COVID pricing again, where everything had
Okay.
almost doubled.
I literally do not understand what you're
Nothing to
saying.
do with
Okay,
Trump's
maybe I'm being
background
stupid, but I
at
think it was
all.
just an incredibly stupid thing that you said. You're saying what? Okay. First of all, we don't have a trade surplus with Canada. You're aware of that, right? Like I don't know. Like
Not what I said.
okay, specify what you said about surpluses.
Canada has a surplus of almost anything that we produce, and we are your major trading partner. America cannot sell stuff to us like the other gentleman suggested because we already have too much. As soon as the tariffs went into place, groceries were on sale everywhere. I stocked all my freezers up, everything, because things were cheaper, as cheap as they were before the
so-
pandemic.
And
Yeah,
y'all were making
number
fun of
one,
us
that's a
talking
great-
about egg
that's a
prices
great-
right as the election was going on. Have you
Yes.
checked the price of eggs?
All our stuff is gone, like I said,
Yeah.
all down to pre-pandemic pricing.
That's
Like, I
great. That's
think
great. You have
egg
that anecdote, but again, the
prices-
Trump administration's own fucking
No,
study.
it's not an anecdote. I'm not even going against you, imbecile. Watch it. Watch it. Won't you listen to people who are more than double your age and have been in this field for a very, very long time?
True.
I'm not contradicting you. I'm contradicting the other. Dude,
Right.
listen.
to the guy.
All right, get to the point.
I'm contradicting the other guy that said that America can create more things to sell. But the problem is
That's
you guys
me.
don't produce anything we need.
And Canada's not really producing anything we need. I mean, that was handled.
No, so I'm saying
right
it would
on the
be a
world
good thing
stage
if you
now.
guys did produce
buy
more
a ton of
stuff. Visit
oil.
factories in your country.
Like, okay, hold on. Canada was what, sending some wood over here. We don't need that. What did you say about oil just now?
Wait, what do you mean we don't need? Wait, what do you mean? Canada exports a lot of oil to
I
us.
can
We
say
buy a lot of oil.
What kind
from
of oil?
Canada.
I can at least say a little bit.
I don't
Can-
remember. I don't remember the terms,
Is
but
it
it's
baby
like
oil?
Canada
Canada
just use-
oil or whatever.
All
It's
right, let
baby
me
oil.
interrupt, gentlemen. Box with a big 5 says, we used to be a steel town. The unions drove them off in the late 70s.
And
Any
you know
thoughts
how
to
to.
that?
Not really.
Bring it back.
You know
I
how
mean,
to
trade has
quail?
localized costs but diffuse benefits. So I'm not going to deny that there were absolutely some towns that kind of got fucked over by free trade or whatever. But we have to consider the static and dynamic benefits from comparative advantage and free trade. So I mean, look, every consumer in the U.S.
Beyond just the tariffs, then, right?
Hold on, real quick. Can I just respond to the thing?
Finish.
Every consumer in the U.S. benefits from the cheaper steel. Every business in the U.S. benefits from cheaper steel. I also want to answer from Trippy because he said we didn't need Canadian lumber. Do you think that lowering input prices for businesses is good?
Lowering input prices for businesses does not matter to me. Hold on,
You
I
don't
don't
think
know
that's
what's
better
going
for
on
you?
I
there.
muted him.
Also, if there's any oil that we need from Canada, it's too bad we're going to drill in it. So we get our own oil. We produce our own fucking oil for our own needs. We were already self-sufficient on electricity before Biden got in there and reversed that shit.
Mhm.
We had the
we were
pipeline from
self-sufficient under
Canada,
Biden as well.
but we,
But okay.
we got rid of the pipeline,
lie
right?
right off
We've
the
been
bat.
doing all right. We're going to do better
So
by actually having our own oil and not having to depend on other countries. If you want to
Absolutely not
sit
true.
there
There are
and get
benefits from
everything,
interdependence.
okay, yep, talk over me or whatever. If you want to keep getting shit from other countries because you think it's cheaper, but having to cross like war boundaries, having to go to other people that we are enemies with and beg and plead for them to give us shit. If you think that's really such a great idea, why don't you go into politics?
There's different
First of all,
problems.
we're
I
not
actually
Canada
hold
are-
on. I have my hopes on Nanfan going into politics one day. I think he could make everything beautiful. Nick
Well, he's
H
got to do
with
something with that labor.
Nick H with the big 5 says, "Hi Sarah, you should contact Rinyald's Notebook and First Amender someday. Very good debaters as well. Actually, since you say that, Rinyald, I just booked him for an upcoming debate, along with it'll be with Grid 1." And hold on, let me get to it so we can kind of have the conversation because it'll be nice. Classy Neurotic, and then also Pentuple TV. Pentuple TV. They will be duking out the Doge conversation on the 28th. So that is on the books. And I believe First Amender did make his way into my Discord. And I feel like I had a conversation with them and said to jump on the open panel. So great minds think alike, Nick. They're already kind of here. Thank you. And yeah. All right. Back to you, gentlemen.
Okay, wait. There are like
Before we
5
come back-
things I want to say to Trippy. Number one, anyone
ahead,
can Google
Nanfan.
this right now. Everyone should Google, does reducing input prices shift supply to the right? And you will see that reducing input prices shift supply to the right. So that's a really good
You're
thing.
too used to getting these things from other
increasing
countries and having that little
increasing
drop in
the-
price.
Increasing the amount of things that businesses can produce lowers prices. It increases total output. That's just a shifting supply to the right. It's just a really good thing. It increases quantity and lowers prices. That's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Consumers benefit from it. Producers benefit from it. It's really great.
Sure.
Increases quality.
Can I?
It
If I
definitely
could finish my
decreases
point.
quality.
When we buy lumber from Canada, that lumber is cheaper than it would have been if it were produced in the U.S. That's at least part of the reason that we're buying it. And
Why
guess
is it
what?
cheaper?
Because you guys have more forests. Are you kidding me?
So that's part. Yeah. So
why is it cheaper? So you
because the
guys cut down
opportunity-
trees for
in
less
large
money?
part-
Do you
in large
understand
part because the
supply and
opportunity
demand?
cost is lower. In large part, the opportunity cost is lower for Canada because they don't have as other high tech industries as we do. Like That's
That doesn't make any
Canada
sense.
sucks. Is your long and short? All right.
The
And
reason-
just for the record,
I personally-
10th man got booted to the back for speaking in anecdotes again. Will you not learn, good sir?
paid
But
for it.
yeah, now you got Dustin Buck up here. All right, back
He
to
should
you
have
guys.
less time back there because that was
Thank
Canada
you,
money.
Sarah.
You're welcome. You can thank Neve.
Yeah,
I wanna
just
see
wanted to
Canada go
comment
on strike.
the oil stuff because what we buy off of Canada is crude oil, and we refine it in the U.S. and sell it back to them. So that is
There you go.
already it's already an efficient way of us making money off of it.
The circle.
Like the reason we do that is because we buy the crude oil, actually can sell it back to them. It's not just like a trade deficit, right? Like we're not seeing like a humongous trade deficit with them because of this situation. It's we both gain from this trade.
I don't know. That sounds
What
like
do
we're
you-
taking
in what-
advantage of Canada.
Do you know what the sellback price is after it's been refined as opposed to our import price for what we pay for
it's
it?
higher per refinery. because
Well, I
we're-
mean, you could say that, but do you have any numbers to back it up?
I don't have any numbers off the top of my head,
Don't you
but
think
like
that having a
it
refinery
is
is going
higher.
to be more expensive than having crude oil? Of course
Yeah.
it's going to be more
Presumably, if it was lower, these companies wouldn't be profitable. They'd be losing money, turning something into a less valuable commodity. Like what? Like
And that's why it's
No,
a good
no,
thing.
no,
that
no,
the
no, no,
United
no, no,
States,
no.
we
That's
are
not.
a
That's
end of processed kind of economy. We want to be the country in the world that we are the experts. We are the people that.
who's we? Do you have a mouse in your pocket?
America.
United States. I'm sorry, I'm an American. I don't know what you are. I know there are a lot of Canadians
America.
on here.
Goddamn
fucking
right.
losers. Anyway, so
America.
as an American, I want to have the best kind of experts in my economy, showing that the United States are the leaders in this global capitalist world. I believe in capitalism. I understand that a lot of MAGA
By
people
getting
do
ripped
not believe in
off?
capitalism. They want to have a Chinese, they want to have a world where you have all manufacturing done as an autocracy, where everything's done in the United States. It's completely stupid. It's completely fabricated, and it's only done because you hate Democrats and you hate liberals.
Does America have to export in order to make money?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, kind of
Is it
kind of exports are the way that we get foreign currency to pay for imported products. So kind of, yes, but
So do we know?
Sorry, that's funny. Tell the pretty brown lady to shave.
I was
What did
looking
I
for that to
miss?
me.
How did I miss this?
I am pretty. I am pretty.
You are pretty.
And he's a lady.
Thank you, Smokey.
Da,
Sorry for the
da,
interruption.
do this like a
If he was on my
lady.
show, I would change
Let
the
me
white
ask a
balance.
question
and
really
I'd be
quick with
like
the panel. Do you
normal
guys all
pieces.
think that trade deficits are inherently bad?
Of course not.
That depends on which side the deficit is on.
What?
Do you have a trade? Do you have a trade deficit with your grocery store?
Look, I'll give you
Do have
the
a
short
trade
answer.
deficit with your grocery store?
As long as everyone owes America money, then
Do you
it's
have
good.
a trade deficit with your grocery store?
No.
give them money,
What are you
give them
talking
money,
about?
and you
You absolutely do have a
Grocery
trade deficit
stores
with
do
your
have
grocery
like
store.
net.
No, that's not even. That's not even how that works.
I'm answering your
That's
question.
not even.
Do you want to know how
Well,
grocery
I mean,
stores buy stuff? How
exactly
retailers
how
buy
it
stuff? You can order something and you can pay them in 120 or 90 or 60 or 180 days. There is a deficit. That's like how what's it called? That crazy WeWork story where that like Bay Area tech company crashed.
Translate
They had like
crackhead
$10
for me,
billion
please.
in liabilities. A grocery store
Well,
could
yeah, it's
theoretically
like a
achieve
net.
that.
You pay like a net 45, a net 90, so on and so forth when you order for manufacturing. Is that what you're talking about and referring to? Yeah.
Yeah, 110%. Yeah,
Talking
and
about
then
retail versus wholesale.
One.
It might not even be collateralized. They basically just ship you something, and they trust you to pay them. That's also how like advertising works.
They call that
This is
credit.
the issue with the Trump
I think
administration.
the point that
I don't
did
care
not-
about store credit.
The trade deficit numbers were only made up because they believed that we gave them so much money, we bought so many things from them, and we didn't get anything in return. It's just like calculating. We have a trade deficit. You personally have a trade deficit with your grocery store. You bought, 5,000 ice cream bars because you're sad and depressed, and you have a trade deficit because you spent $5,000 for those ice cream bars. That's how the Trump administration, this effigy guy, is showing this fucking bullshit math. This is not how the world works. It is bullshit.
What are you talking about
America
right now?
first. We don't.
All
give
this
a shit about
equation
the other
does
countries.
is try to fill in the
don't
trade
understand why you
deficit
guys do.
and create a trade balance with money. Like that's all it does. It is, and half of the fucking things on this equation are made to fucking cancel themselves out. It is the dumbest thing that they have ever. Even the guy they tried to take this from had to come out and say that they are misusing my shit. This is some of the most dumb. Why would you put something out where a bunch of mathematicians are immediately going to jump on it and see how stupid you are for putting it out?
And watch it work
the
out.
best thing you could do was show these sort of numbers to MAGA because these people are scared.
Well,
they do not understand these things.
What are you talking about?
Okay,
you want to know what Trump said about the whole situation?
You don't know about this, clearly.
Trump said, "Give me until September, and you'll see the difference by September."
Wait, what does it look like, Tripcast? What does it look like if these tariffs are working? I'm super curious. Give me some concrete metrics that we can look at in September to determine.
Yeah, I didn't bring my school books today, but
yeah, okay.
Well,
I'll tell you that there will be more factories in America. There will be more production coming out of the country. There'll be more companies.
We're a behemoth, a juggernaut.
Hold on. Sasquatch, I want to hear from you next.
I'm sitting here. Do you guys even know that NVIDIA is moving factories to America so they can build chips here?
Who is?
Yeah. Do you know why?
NVIDIA, the GPU and chip maker. We'll have manufactured chips in the U.S.
Do you know why,
It has nothing to do with infrastructure bill or the CHIPS Act, and it has nothing to do with those things.
Exactly.
You can hold your breath and squeak a laughter if you want to, effigy.
Anything that's going to happen a few months into the presidency of a president was enacted before he got
Okay. I want to hear Sasquatch.
No, it wasn't.
I'm sort of trying to digest all of this from both directions. And I mean, I'm usually a two-pupper kind of guy, but I'm having trouble keeping up on both sides of this one. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little outclassed here. Economics was never my strong suit. I married money. I don't know what to tell you.
There's a dollar sign in your name, my friend. There's a dollar sign.
I slept through econ and still passed.
Cash App. That's his Cash App. So, I mean, and I'm kind of in the same position too, Sasquatch, where it's kind of like, well, I guess we'll fuck around and find out at this point, right? We're just going to have to wait and see whether this is good or bad. And then no matter which way it turns, one party is going to be pointing at the other party saying, "I told you so," right? And then, then I have one rule. I have one rule. When I talk, that's it. When I talk, outside of that, I don't give a fuck. All right. So fuck around and find out. Then we're gonna point at each other. I told you so. Or it's like not gonna be good enough, or it's to this or to that. And all we're gonna do is have the same divisive talking points all over again. And now you're gonna see the country split in half one more time over whether it worked or whether it didn't. So I feel like this is almost like a trap, and there's like still not gonna be any winning side no matter what.
Well, even if
yeah, look, no offense, we already have the free trade side already has the "I told you so." It's every economist for the past 200 years. It's every study from Trump's first term that found that tariffs reduced employment, that tariffs reduced output, that tariffs hurt GDP. They didn't raise much revenue. They caused retaliatory tariffs and that harmed our exports. It's every
slow down on the Kool-Aid.
And how did people work? This is a cult. If you go against what Trump says, then it doesn't make sense to these people. I'm sorry, the Kool-Aid has been drunk. There's no way.
I mean, he's got a point.
We get it. We get it. You make a point. Or
just 7 months just to get you guys to
You're anecdotal.
I will get to my point. I know I'm very slow.
Indian Jesus. That was a good one. He got you there.
Indian Jesus. All right. Anyway, my point is that Sarah was talking about earlier that we're just going to go back and forth. Yes, we are going to go back and forth because there is one side that only believes in one thing. What did my leader say? That's what I believe. And
give me a break, dude.
Facts,
wait a second. Hold on a minute. Hold on. I got to ask you something on that.
Objective truths do not compute with one person saying that they believe one thing one day, and when someone says something contradictory, or when the market crashes and completely goes against what the line of what the party is.
The market never crashed.
The market never crashed.
Market never
See,
crashed.
this is the perfect example. Sarah,
No, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about.
The market did
My
crash.
dude.
Can we have
The
an
market
Oh,
didn't
this
crash.
dude
The
right here. Like,
Here's what I will say.
You don't have to yell at me.
My financial advisor did not send out any crazy emails saying to hold tight,
Exactly.
no worries, everything's fine. And that would have been when he would have sent something telling me not to worry. So
Right. And it
if I
recovered.
didn't receive that, I'm not concerned.
It recovered and hit higher numbers the next day. Also,
There's a
the market was
very-
at lower numbers when Biden was in there.
Hold on, Trippy. That was unbelievably stupid. So many things you just said that were
Unfun,
unbelievably
you
stupid.
hold your
You
breath
said a
for
lot of
minute.
wrong
I got a
things, dude.
question
Simple-
for
here's a simple-
Pursuit.
Go ahead,
That's
Trippy.
correct.
Finish it off.
Pursuit, who's the leader of the Democratic Party right now?
We don't have a leader in the Democratic Party right now.
Exactly, because everybody bailed on it.
No, absolutely.
Exactly. That's why they carted Joe Biden's
No,
zombie ass out
no,
a
that
few
was
days
a
ago.
brilliant counterpoint. No, counterpoint.
Exactly,
made.
yes. But that's why they fucking
I'm
touted
sorry, you're in a cult.
the zombie
You're in
Joe
a cult.
Biden out the
You're
other
in
day.
a cult.
You're the
What
I'm
do you
not.
disagree
I'm
with
not
Trump?
the one
No,
who
hold
accused the
on,
president
hold
of
on.
racist.
You're the one repeating them.
I mean, you're
Gentlemen,
talking about
I
Wall
will just
Streeters who
start
didn't even
throwing
pay
you
into
all
my-
backstage if you don't shut the fuck up. One rule. Pursuit, I think your argument is very weak in terms of by calling it a cult and by saying that we're just following one leader. Obviously, there are reasons why people are agreeable to the man that they all voted for, right? And then also there are different dynamics all over the place. I wouldn't view myself as a cult leader if I voted for if I voted for Trump, or if I choose to be agreeable to oh shit. My thing just like stopped. Oh my God. Okay. We're still here. Like I wouldn't view that as a cult talking point. And if you're going to call it a cult, I'm going to ask you to actually give me a lot more standing defensive points to that claim before we move any more forward.
I can
Because
do that.
if not, then it's just kind of an ad hom point.
I'm not trying to do an at-home. It's very obvious. I just try to lay out an objective fact. The fact that the markets did go down. Did they not? And you told me the only thing that matters to you is if your own personal advisor told you that you needed to be worried about it or not. Right now, we can Google. Right now, we can look at the S&P 500. Right now, we can look at any sort of NASDAQ, any sort of standard. Did the stocks go down when the tariffs were announced? Yes or no?
It was a
Did the
mild
global
dip and it
economy? I'm
spiked
sorry, I
back.
thought this was
Hold
only for me.
100% they did.
Hold on.
100% they did.
Yes, that's called a knee-jerk reaction. That's what we do. Everybody panics for a day and then we stabilize. Even when that stabby thing that everybody had to get, when that whole thing happened, we had a knee-jerk reaction and because people start pulling because they get scared and then everything drops, but then it goes right back to stability. And it always, if you look at the actual
Are we stable, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Hold on.
We're not stable.
Excuse me?
You're not stable.
We're not stable.
You're not mentally stable by continuing to interrupt me. What I'm saying is if you look at the charts back to the 1920s, even when that big stock market crashed, the number has always gone up since then. It's even though it has downs, it's still not further down than where it started even back to 1920. It's always continued to rise every time. So you have dips. That's normal. That's why you invest when you're young so that you can afford those little dips so that you're not retiring on like an oh shit moment, right? You have time to let your money harness and go up and down. It's going to do those things. That's perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong with that. To say that's a crash for a fucking day and then it came back up, that's retarded. That's not a crash.
Sarah, aren't you worried? Can I ask, what if I was worried about like hedge funds? I'm worried about like that in that dip, there's hedge fund managers, there's people, there's like the sort of riskier stockbrokers and stuff. Like,
sorry, hedge funds are a bad deal for anyone anyways. If you're dabbling in a hedge fund, you already know you're a full 100% risk. 100%
because of
risk.
fees and risk and stuff.
Well, because you're dabbling in before you have in that kind of aspect. Right. I don't remember how hedge funds like work 100%, but I remember they're super duper risky. That's why a lot of smaller firms won't touch them.
Hedge
Sarah,
funds are usually what takes place when you're trying to play as an intermediary between someone who has a stock that is looking to rise in value so that you can put it off into a separate account so you avoid paying the difference in tax. That's what a hedge fund is.
Right, but it's to do before you have. Right, you're
But-
assuming you're
Correct.
going to have.
Absolutely
Right.
correct. You're taking a loan out on
100.
future value of a stock and
Right.
the likelihood that it's going to rise.
But it's 100% risk. There's no constant or stableness to it. There's no security behind it. That's why it's so risky. So if you're a
Correct.
hedge fund driver, you already are aware that things could crash on the wrong day at the wrong time, and you're stuck in the middle. It's 100% risk.
Yeah, there's no
Sarah,
certainty in it.
So, no, I'm not.
On to a few things now, if I could.
I'm not worried about the hedge funders because they already know that. They're already fully aware. But if
I just want to
you
comment.
But they don't. People pull out of their mutual funds and 401ks all the time because of
That's
stuff like this tariff.
stupid. That's the dumb.
It's
They have
incredibly stupid
poor
happening.
and incredibly retarded financial advisors, or they don't have financial advisors to tell them, hold. It's common
Right?
fucking
They don't.
sense. What goes down will come up. It always does in the market, and that's just common
But when
sense
we-
101.
Look, Sarah, you're right.
Someone lives in
Output.
unprecedented times.
Go
when
ahead,
things
non-fun.
can change.
Look, so Sarah, you're right. Output grows over time, right? Like obviously the stock market is higher now than it was under Biden because things just generally have an upward trend. That doesn't mean that this
Mhm. Yeah,
this
I
isn't
agree.
a crash by any reasonable definition. This was a stock market crash. It was like the largest, I think it was like the largest single day decline since COVID. And you know, depending on how you measure it, it was decently sized. It wasn't the largest decline since COVID. Okay. But
It look at the declines during
It
Biden.
was in the
But
top 10 of single largest percentage drops in the history of the stock
I
market.
just want to say one thing.
All I heard you say just now is blah 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 orange man bad.
There's something called a Monte Carlo, right?
Hearing
Where
that
you can
too.
run
No,
a
no,
scenario that
Hold
shows
on.
how stocks are going to
Hold on.
perform. And so when we see things like tariffs, like people that just love investing in their 401ks, people that just love putting an extra $100 from a paycheck or $25 from a paycheck into their Vanguard or Schwab account, these people, when you see a Monte Carlo that runs 1,000 scenarios and tells you what the distribution is going to look like, best case, worst case, most of the time, 99% of the time they're right. You can't do that when you have a madman who can control like a critical lever like trade. That's not a reason to limit the presidency, but it's also something that's not good for household investors.
Somebody translate crackhead for me, please.
It's more embarrassing when you don't understand.
Real quick,
Absolutely.
absolutely was the biggest like single day fall in the S&P 500 since COVID, since 2020. Absolutely was that. Second of all, output obviously continuously grows over time. It's dumb to compare, like to say the stock market is higher now than it was under Biden because it just grows continually over time, even if it follows like a sawtooth pattern where it drops sometimes and goes up sometimes. So that's
How many times
obviously
are you gonna
incredibly
repeat
fucking
that?
stupid. But real quick, you guys keep interrupting me. Also, there's a very simple. First of all, part of the reason is because Trump started walking back some of the tariff claims, and reporting started coming out saying that like he was going to pause 90 days. You know, there was literally a tweet, caused the stock market to jump like 5 percentage points.
Yeah,
and
he
then
said,
guess what?
"Buy now."
He said it was fake news, and the stock market crashed again. And when it turned out to be real news, the stock market recovered, partially recovered at least. But here's so obviously part of the reason the stock market recovered was because Trump walked back some of his claims about tariffs. And also here's
the stock market is not the economy.
We have to compare to the counterfactual. Very simple question, very simple answer. Do you think the stock market would be higher if Trump had never announced tariffs in the first place?
No.
Who cares?
Unbelievable.
John Fon, have you considered the fact that the economy isn't the stock market?
I mean, look, the stock market represents.
Like, don't touch it. Leave it alone. Don't fix anything. Don't try to make anything better. Do you guys? Let me ask
Yeah,
you.
yeah. We like things the way they are, and if anybody gets in there that I disagree with, we're gonna throw a fit.
You guys remind
And
me.
you guys
of
are sitting
John
here saying that
Stewart.
wiping out $11 trillion in wealth is a good negotiating
You'll
tactic.
see. And you guys sound like
It's
John
really-
Stewart sitting over there,
it
like
is
somebody needs
fast-
to
it
fix
is
it,
fascinating.
but I don't like
Listen,
his
people,
fixing.
What is wrong
One
with
at a
listening to John
time.
Stewart? He's a comedian.
He's a
We're-
Oh my gosh.
We're missing like a
He's a
big part of this
fancy
as well
comedian
because
then.
typically when we see dips in the stock market, we don't see the bond market freak out.
That's true as well, avoided Hornet. You're correct. All right, what's up?
I don't know. I have no control over what's going on here.
Okay, I don't know. The people wanted us to 1v1, man. Okay, so you said the stock market is not the economy. Do you think it? Very simple question. Do you think it's rational for markets to believe, for people who own, companies to believe that overall output in the U.S. will fall because of the tariffs?
Overall output in what now? The stock market or
overall
GDP?
overall-
What are we talking about?
As in basically GDP, overall economic output in the U.S.
Gross national domestic product, as you just mentioned, not, I don't know, 10 seconds ago, that it always constantly is on the uptick.
Well,
I
it
mean,
generally
the
follows
stock
an upward
market,
path, yes, but do you think
the
it's
stock market follows the national
rational?
GDP?
It to a large extent, the stock market is basically a claim on like the after tax profits of corporations. So like maybe you want to be more specific, but
no,
like,
you want to no. Let's get specific. Let's get specific. The stock market is equivalent to a betting market. Okay, I take this amount of money and I buy at this price in the bet that the price is going to be higher at the point that I sell. That's it. There's nothing more to it. It's not ethereal. It's not magic. It's 90% of what causes inflation. It's why housing is so high. Is because we got to come up with the money.
That's not true. So that's not true. But here's the question.
It's not true. Okay,
you're correct. People are betting that it's going to go up. My question is, do you think it's irrational for people to think that the U.S. economy is going to be worse because of these tariffs, and therefore they want to pull out their investment from the U.S.?
No.
So
no, the stock market is not the economy.
Again, you can keep repeating that, but the stock market absolutely reflects what firms and people are anticipating to happen to the real economy. Like, I understand, the stock market, you can maybe argue it's not like the real economy, but people have 401ks, which are meaningful to them. People have investment, which is meaningful to them. They need that money to fucking retire. They need that money.
What is the backbone of money? What is the backbone of money? What gives money its value?
It's basically that so it's a combination. I don't know how it is relevant, but it's a combination of the authority of the issuing government, basically. So because the U.S. government collects money in taxes, people want.
No, you're 110% wrong.
110% right. So people want to, because the U.S. government needs U.S. dollars for taxes.
No.
People want dollars so they can pay their taxes.
No,
it's also
currency.
Other people just use dollars, so it's a useful.
No. Okay, are you done rambling about a bunch of useless garbage? Currency is based off of revenue. Do you know what revenue is?
Yes.
Do you know what revenue is? What is revenue? Explain revenue to me.
It's the total amount of money that you can raise through selling your products. So there's a more technical.
No. Revenue is profit that's generated by a company that can then be later monetized. That's what revenue is. That's what the economy is.
Your revenue minus your expenses is profit or whatever. So you don't even know what revenue is. Also, currency is not based on revenue, considering that revenue is denominated in currency. Like, I don't know what the fuck.
Are you listening? Listen to what I'm saying.
I don't even know what you're saying.
You don't generate revenue unless you generate value, right? That's how. Like, if I'm a grocery market, right, and I'm selling produce. Okay,
no, I
don't generate. I don't. Oh, okay. Oh, that's weird. No, look, buddy. You don't generate. You don't generate current. Yes, that's exactly what it is, and that is how the economy works. You have to generate value to generate currency.
Well, when you say generate currency, so when you ask me, and I think this is what most reasonable people would interpret this as, what is the value of money based off of? I don't think people are, expecting, I think people are like asking essentially what gives money its value, which is because that's what you fucking asked, and not like what revenue is. Like, I don't know what point you're trying to make here, buddy. I thought you were.
I'm trying to tie this all. I'm trying to tie this into a straight line where you can think about it. Well, you're being obstinate, so
well, you're
I can live with it.
Okay.
He's being obtuse, and you're being a right angle.
I think that Dustin did
Right.
so well. My goodness.
Southern Gamer with a big 2 says, I would love to see Indian Jesus slapped on. Well, unfortunately, $2 only gets you sometimes me reading them, mostly nothing, because for what it's worth, at least send 5 if you want to see something happen. Come on.
You know what? I'll do it.
Believe I believe in capitalism. Rude Mud Crab in with a big 5 says the stock market is a signal of confidence in the economy. But I mean, me personally, I think it's a knee-jerk reaction, right? It's an emotional reaction. People get afraid, and it's fear-based, and they pull money or pull this or do that. When if you just sit and fucking wait sometimes to see what's going to happen first before just reacting to something coming out.
It's not like
it's not at all irrational.
It's not
for
like
people to be scared when they don't know what trade policy is going to be, when they don't know what the fuck is going to be tariffed in 3 months. They don't know what tariffs are actually in place. Like, it's not at all irrational.
It's not like a consumer confidence.
Avoided Hornet. I want to bring it back.
Nobody knows any of those things ever. Nobody knows any of those things ever.
This is crazy. We have indexes. Okay, I guess just real quick. Now I can finish my point.
Okay,
uninterrupted. I just want to say,
I want to back up.
Avoided Hornet was absolutely correct to mention that bonds are falling along with stocks, and the dollar is falling as well. This is more than just stocks being a signal of no confidence in our economy. The bonds and the dollar following signals that investors are dumping their fucking dollars. Typically, if stocks are falling, people are going to go to safer assets like bonds, and they'll buy bonds, and that'll basically drive the price of bonds up, which drives down the yield on bonds. That's not happening because a ton of fucking people are just dumping their dollars and investing in Europe or investing in the UK or investing in China because they don't want to hold US dollars anymore because they are so fucking scared. And it's not irrational for them to be scared because there's so much uncertainty. And uncertainty is bad. It reduces investment. We have studies on this. It is bad. Anyway, what's up, Indian Jesus?
I can agree with all of that, but I think, let's zoom out. Why is it, and I know this is a basic talking point question, but I'm kind of trying to reset and bring everything back. If tariffs are so bad, then why has every country been tariffing the U.S. forever?
Look, so one, I'll say most countries don't have a particularly high tariff on us. They have about, like the EU has like a 1.64% average weighted tariff on us. Like that's basically nothing. So
zero. If it's
actually right. So I think it is bad for them. But look, there's an entire subfield of economics to answer this very question. It's called public choice economics. Essentially, a big reason why these tariffs happen, very low tariffs, mind you, but there are some exceptions in other countries, is because tariffs have very concentrated benefits and very diffuse costs, basically. So take sugar in the US. A sugar tariff gives sugar companies in the US billions and billions and billions of dollars. But each individual US consumer only pays like $30 a year more for sugar because of the sugar tariffs. What this leads to is something called rational ignorance. I encourage everyone in the audience to look up rational ignorance. It's not like a thing I'm making up. It is actually rational for consumers in the US and other countries which have similar tariffs to essentially not fight back against these tariffs because it would take more time and effort to learn about what industries are tariffed and why they're tariffed and then organize to fight back against them than it is that costs more in terms of opportunity cost than it is to just pay the cost of the tariff. It's rational ignorance. That is the big reason why these
to America.
What? Sorry.
Why, if it's easier for them to have the tariffs than to fight them, then why is that not the case with American tariffs?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? I think a big reason why tariffs exist in the U.S. prior to Trump is because of that very thing. I gave the example of sugar tariffs. I think the reason sugar tariffs in the U.S. exist is because of the rational ignorance.
That's not. No, what I fine that the rational ignorance. Sure, I've not personally heard that, but I'll just take your word for it because that's not really directly what I'm talking about. I'm trying to get your perspective on the idea of why you think that, you know, when our entire country ran on tariffs for a long time and everything was good. And I'm not saying, oh, in the past good, therefore it should be done. I'm just trying to get you to state a direct reason why you think that if tariffs are bad for a country, that a foreign country would put tariffs on America, and in that case, that the tariffs are already there, that we wouldn't want to have reciprocal tariffs.
Well, I mentioned why I think these other countries place tariffs on us. It's because of the very same factors I listed, of the rational ignorance. Like, it's not beneficial for those countries to place tariffs on us most of the time, at least. But they do it because of special interest groups, essentially. So I'll also mention you talked about.
You're saying it's corruption.
Because
those governments are corrupt and are hurting their people, not because it makes any financial sense. That's your
basically. So, it makes financial sense for special interests, which have more control over the government, right? Like, you don't have to be, I would say, like a holistically corrupt government to have special interest lobby for tariffs. But a big reason why tariffs exist is because of public choice theory and rational ignorance. Absolutely, it's not because it is in these countries' interest to tariff us.
So do you not see again, I'm going back to talking points because I want to keep it simple. The short-term pain for long-term gain. That if we have these tariffs and it temporarily puts prices up, but it puts the American the American market more even, then everybody can lower their prices.
Look, there's just no good evidence to believe that tariffs will lead to a long-term gain.
There was no evidence at telling.
Hello?
Did he
Is my thing
freeze?
frozen?
Okay, I thought it was just me for a second.
Yeah,
There he is. Okay, you're back.
He's back.
You got about 1 minute.
Gotcha. So nobody knew that we had no evidence that telling Kim Jong-un that he would fire and fury if he, if he sent I don't even remember exactly what it was, but when Trump said that to him, I was, even before I was a Trump fan, I was like, yo, what are you doing? This is a maniac. And my dad, shout out to Papa Lutch, who has been with Trump all along, he's like, no, you don't understand. This is what Trump does. And I was so skeptical, but guess what? Trump was right again. You can only see somebody step on a banana peel and do a backflip so many times before you believe, I think this person can do a backflip.
Here's a better way to say what I was trying to say. All the economic models, and I was going to say the majority of economic models, like comparative advantage, like new trade theory that I can provide you, say that trade is beneficial for nations and stopping trade will have cost in the short term and in the long term. And all the empirical evidence, again, I shouldn't say all, but 99% of the empirical evidence backs this up. We have studies from Spain. We have that study I cited from the IMF that all show. We have studies from Argentina that all show trade is generally beneficial. Stopping trade reduces growth. It reduces productivity. It reduces employment. It reduces all these great things.
You're like a broken record, bro. You just keep repeating yourself. You got no points.
I mean,
point.
Yeah.
And I just want to make a logistical observation for the viewers watching. I also have Dragon Rage backstage. I have Powder Dusty. I have Melanie, the Furby. And I have James Live Talks, and I still have 10th Man sitting back here. So in order to get them up, you have to boot someone off. The only person you cannot boot is Non-Fun because he is the guest of the evening.
Sarah, I was going to be nice. I was going to be nice to one person and volunteer to leave. I'm in very much like my encyclopedia mind. So I think I might just watch your YouTube
grift,
if that's
man.
Okay.
Get the grift. Yeah, that's okay.
I know, but I know someone in chat could give like $100 right now and it wouldn't be a big deal, and they don't even have to ask for anything. It's like that kind of $100.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna take off, and it was really nice talking to everyone, and yeah, I'll see y'all in the YouTube chat.
Nice seeing you there, man.
I like
We'll
you,
catch
dude.
you around.
You're cool.
And the cut with the Big Ten says Non-Fun 2020 economy had worst economic growth since World War II, but the stock market was pretty good. So it's not directly linked. We also need tariff for protection and revenue before income tax. And I'm going to let you respond, and then I have to screen up to bring someone else on stage. Go ahead.
Yeah. So look, I mean, I think during COVID, we basically had, what's called like a K-shaped recovery, where like during the volatility lockdowns during COVID and all that jazz, like a lot of stocks went down, but some stocks went up because, for example, people started using Netflix more. They started using a lot of, tech products more, and that made their stocks go up. And there were, quantitative easing from the Fed and all these things that kind of supported a lot of companies, which made which sort of stabilized the stock market. And also, when you say the economy had the worst economic growth since World War II, that might be true as the recession was happening, but the US actually had pretty high growth immediately after COVID.
Right.
One of the higher
chose that year.
Yeah, I know.
You have a point, but I'm going to choose to ignore it for the cherry-picked point.
Yes. Okay. So we need tariff for protection and revenue. I mean, I can explain to you again. I'm going to sound like a broken record. Why protectionism is generally bad? It's because trade generally has all these benefits, and it protectionism prevents countries from specializing in certain things, and there's an opportunity cost for countries to not specialize, basically. And obviously, I understand that we use tariffs for revenue before income tax, but that was because U.S. government. That was for two reasons. One, the U.S. didn't have that much state capacity back then, so it was just harder to implement income tax. It was also unconstitutional. And secondly, it's because U.S. government spending was 3% of GDP. Tariffs today are just not a great raiser of revenue. In order to replace income tax, you would need a 58% universal tariff, assuming no retaliation and assuming that no one stops importing goods, which obviously countries would retaliate and obviously would stop importing goods. If you want to raise revenue, do a 5% VAT. A 5% VAT to a broad base would raise the same amount of revenue as a 20% universal tariff, and a 5% VAT to a narrow base would raise the same amount of revenue as a 10% universal tariff.
And you don't think any other countries are going to argue against these VATs?
No, because they're explicitly allowed under WTO rules, because a VAT is a trade neutral tax. Do you recognize that?
So the rules will allow it, just kind of like tariffs are allowed.
Hold on, Dustin. You have been booted. Lauren paid to kick you off. So
no.
Remove you. And then let me get a screen up. And then also I see Rude Mudcrab paid to bring up Powder Dusty. Oh, Dragon Rage, I see you. You're good
Rude
now.
Mudcrab is awesome.
If you want to go back to Avatar, that's totally fine. All
I didn't even let him know I was backstage.
I did. Did you not?
Oh, you did? Oh, no, I didn't hear.
Yeah, she mentioned.
Of course, because you never pay attention before you come up here. You break all of
I wasn't even
panelists-
sitting here. I sat down. I took my headphones off and walked away, and then forgot I was in here until I came back.
All of your panelist rules you break. All right, go ahead, Trippy.
Yeah.
Pursuit, non-fun. I don't know who else. Maybe Effigy, probably not, because he's got a brain. And you guys do have brains too. I'm not saying you don't. Do you guys think that Trump is a fascist?
I don't see how this is relevant, but I
question
would say.
And answer.
Is there a point?
Objection baiting.
I mean, fascist, I think, is a dumb term. I think Trump has authoritarian tendencies. I would say that, but I don't think he's particularly. I don't think he's a full-on fascist.
Let's ask Trippy. What do you mean by fascist?
I was asking you too.
Yeah,
what do I mean by fascist?
Why are we letting him?
What do you guys mean by fascist?
Wait, yeah. Let's not go down the line of argumentation.
You see what I mean? Because you can call anybody a fascist.
See, that's my point. It's a waste of time if I said yes.
Do you think he's a racist?
Completely don't understand that.
This is a total waste of time.
No, it's not a waste of time. I have a point.
What's the point?
Well, I think you should bring up the point then.
Well, I'm asking, do you think he's a racist? I want to see if they have shared opinions.
I don't know.
No?
I don't know him as a person. Do you know Trump as a person?
I'm noticing that Hornet and Effigy and Dragon.
No,
I don't know. Not saying anything.
I don't think it's irrelevant. I don't know what
people would have due process.
You have been removed.
Can I hit my point before I get moved?
Not under fascism.
Look, if he was a racist or a fascist, to those who do believe it, then why would he be trying to make an entire country citizens of the United States, meaning Canada? That's all.
Wow.
Wait,
Hang out backstage.
I think I got brain damage from that.
Why would a fascist have expansionist plans to take over another country? Yeah, I know it's unheard of, Trippy. It's unheard of.
Why would a
fascist would want to invade another country or take it over, right?
Melanie, did you come up here because you saw me here?
Oh my God, Neve is so based for letting me on. Neve is amazing. Thank you, Neve.
It's hilarious.
I don't know who Neve is, but she's amazing.
That was hilarious, Neve. Shout out to you. Good one.
So non-fun. I want to bring up something about you talking about protected industries potentially. You talked about then a question that came up was stating that It would be better off for anybody that's working in a mine to be going and working for Microsoft and such. So what part of that would be a situation of not protecting that industry? Because what happens if we go into a physical war with China or any other country? That industry has already taken massive hits over the last 2 decades, and if these mines start shutting down even further, how quick are they going to be able to come back up? What impact will that do to the economy as well as our infrastructure?
Yeah, look, so like I'm happy to grant sort of like a national security carve out, like any, basically any economist is going to tell you, obviously there are some strategic goods, some strategic industries that we should protect, and part of that protection might involve tariffs because of for national security reasons. We need to make chips here, we need to make batteries here, all those things. So we should probably, not buy batteries from China. But look, here's what I'll say. I think the way that Trump is going about tariffs is not going to help these places. Again, I cited earlier the surveys from the Philadelphia Federal Reserve and the New York Federal Reserve. They're survey manufacturers, and they're all expecting to have like lower output and reduced investment in 6 months from now, because these tariffs apply to like intermediate goods, all the goods that they use for their own production. These mining companies rely on imported equipment. And I also say, like, Biden had a big focus on what he called like friendshoring, basically taking supply chains and moving them out of China, but towards friendlier allied nations. I don't see a problem with getting steel from Japan. Not that China was ever a very big, China was like usually number 9 in like the countries we import steel from. But, Japan is our ally. South Korea is our ally. I don't have any issue relying on them for steel and everything, because we still save money and they're our allies, so they're unlikely to ever like go to war with us, or and applying tariffs to all these countries means that countries won't just move out of China. They'll move specifically to the US, and obviously the US has a higher opportunity cost.
Okay,
So
I grant you that, but here's the situation. Those industries aren't actually being protected as of this moment. As of this moment, one of the other bigger mines has already shut down, and the 2 other ones that are in what is called the Iron Range or the Misabi Superior Range is already shutting down, and they're the largest manufacturers of steel, iron ore pellets in the area, in the entire U.S. And those shut down, the entire economy in those areas crash, and people move away. How quick would it be to be getting those back up? Why are you willing to just say, yep, okay, the people that work in those mines should go start working for, companies like Microsoft and the such, when once those economies and infrastructure disappear, they rust out, they decay, everything dies. And then that entire region goes away.
Remember, like, I think it's useful to think of trade as a type of technology again. So trade is going to have localized cost. I'm not going to deny that. If we, sign free trade agreements with China, let's say factories offshored, which I don't believe trade is the main driver of that, but I'll grant that it does happen sometimes. There might be towns that are fucked over, but also every consumer in the U.S. benefits, right? Every consumer benefits from cheaper goods. U.S. exporters benefit because now, we're supplying our dollars to China, and that drives down exchange rates. And that means that means exporters can sell their goods for cheaper. And it means that domestic resources are freed up towards more productive use cases. Now, I'm always talking about averages and like aggregates. So I would say, because trade allows for specialization, because these resources are now going to be used for things that we can specialize in, overall average productivity in the U.S. is going to go up. And that's going to increase average wages. That's going to increase our growth rate. And it's going to have all these broad-based benefits down the line, even if in the short run, there is some localized cost. But like, I don't think we would ever say that, like, for example, if someone invents, if we were using shovels to, dig canals, and someone invents the bulldozer, obviously, like, the bulldozer is going to hurt the people that were previously all using shovels to dig these canals. But we would never say, don't use the bulldozer, because these people need jobs. We would say, obviously, the benefits of using a bulldozer outweigh the cost of these people.
That was the New Deal, exactly, sir. You just described the New Deal almost perfectly. They paid people to not use bulldozers.
I mean, well, yeah.
Sorry, let me read this. It's been sitting there a little bit. The cut with the Big Ten says we are in too much debt, and our defense chips are built in China. They don't follow the rules. If people have more purchasing power but not buying stocks, will economy crash if people are buying products?
Well, they can't even buy products if they can't have a job.
They're building in Taiwan, not in China.
So I mean,
Taiwan's
and,
not China.
and if we're talking, those are two different countries.
Well, yeah. So I mean, do you want to read that?
Yeah, these two are quick. Neve came in again. As my second order of business, I will remove Furby. Neve is exercising her power to its full degree. I love it. And Ryan Thorup with the Big Ten says this is just because Neve is so based. I love it. Thank you. Okay, non-fun, go ahead.
Oh shoot! I forget what I responded to at this point. I mean, I think it was.
You were on this.
It's all right, son.
Oh
You've
yeah,
been talking a long time.
You know, so like the chips point, like I already granted, like there are national security, caveats to free trade. Obviously, I do want a lot of chip manufacturing to be done here. But I will also mention, as I mentioned previously, a lot of times tariffs invite retaliation and reduce labor productivity. Well, we observe that subsidies a lot of times don't have the same effect. A lot of countries aren't necessarily going to tariff us just because we subsidize our own chip industry. And again, universal tariffs will mean tariffing the inputs for all these strategic goods. That's why U.S. manufacturers do not like these tariffs. And it means, hurting our own exports, which U.S. manufacturers rely on. When it comes to the too much debt point, I already mentioned tariffs are just not a good raiser of revenue. If you want to raise revenue, 5% VAT would raise the same amount as all these insane tariffs.
Well, that'd be way more.
On top of that,
and that would raise it all domestically, right?
Well, I mean, tariffs also.
I mean, I know tariffs do it domestically, but in theory, there's an offset, which is that local manufacturers are benefit in the global economy, and especially the local economy. There is no offset with VAT. It's just a straight money grab.
Sure. I mean, there are VAT rebates, but yeah.
I mean rebates, meaning that the government gives kickbacks out of tax revenue.
Meaning, so the rebates for VAT, basically, if you buy like an input for your business or whatever, you'll pay a VAT, but you get a tax credit for the taxes previously paid on that input. So,
but ultimately, it's just all coming. It's just more money coming out of the pockets of local companies with no offsetting theoretical benefit.
Well, I mean, it's a consumption tax. It's not coming out of businesses. It's coming out of consumption, right?
VAT is a tax added at every step of the manufacturing process.
Right, but like I said, they get rebates for their input. So at the end, the final tax burden falls on the consumer. It doesn't tax investment.
So then why would they put all those steps in the middle in the way?
Because it basically means that you don't accidentally end up taxing business-to-business transactions, and it decreases avoidance because companies have an incentive to actually record their books properly so they get the tax rebates that they need.
But ultimately, what you're saying is with the offsets, the VAT would just be a sales tax.
So literally, if a VAT is implemented properly, which usually it is, and if it's sales tax implemented properly, they will literally be identical at the end of the day from like an accounting perspective. It will be identical. Like you can look up Tax Foundation, they have like a table showing you how it is identical to a sales tax.
So then all you're doing is increasing your bureaucracy and overhead costs. You're just increasing government expenditures.
That's what tariffs are.
That's government.
So like
welcome to big government.
No, look. So the way the sales tax works currently, it basically inadvertently ends up taxing a lot of business-to-business transactions. And a VAT avoids that issue. And I think a VAT typically has lower avoidance than a sales tax. I don't have empirics on that right now, but usually a lot of the reason these countries, like almost every other country has a VAT is because it has lower avoidance and doesn't tax business-to-business transactions.
You don't think that the businesses have enough incentive to file their stuff right to avoid paying sales tax when they shouldn't?
I mean, I think that apparently not, because I think like 40% of the revenue from sales taxes tends to be business-to-business transactions.
So you're actually proposing something that would reduce then?
Reduce what?
I mean, if that were true, if there was 40% taxes being paid on sales tax that should not be paid, and you're suggesting a VAT as a replacement for increasing revenue, you're talking out both sides of your mouth there.
I'm suggesting a VAT as a alternative to tariffs. If 5% VAT would raise about the same amount as these tariffs. So,
but to do that, it would either obviously have to increase taxes at each different step, like I thought it did, or
and the final burden consumption,
or it wouldn't, right? Or else it's going to reduce government income because if, as you said, it's true that 40% of taxes are not supposed to be paid. Like you can't tell me it's reducing the tax expense and increasing tax revenue.
What do you mean the tax expense?
He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand the fact that VAT is not paid by just the consumer, right? Sorry,
I do understand that. That's exactly. You don't understand what I'm objecting
to.
to.
I misspoke. I meant to say tariffs. The whole point is that with VAT, it's not just passed on to the consumer. It's about.
So you two might need to talk to each other and figure out who pays that.
A VAT is paid by the consumer, and a VAT only taxes consumption, unlike tariffs, which also tax capital goods. And you don't want to tax capital goods. You don't want to tax investment. That was bad. Yeah.
Okay, so who pays the VAT? Is it consumers or is it consumers and companies?
Consumers, for the most part. I mean, some of the. I guess technically, like I can imagine a case where some of the incidence is on companies because they might lower prices, but for the most part, consumers.
And
again, this whole thing is hinged on the assumption that. Because I don't think all VATs are offset. I do think. Are you
by definition?
Are you positive? Like, because I'm not positive, but I don't think.
So I think by definition, a VAT only taxes consumption. It doesn't tax investment from businesses. Like I think, like if it wasn't offset, by definition, I don't think it'd be VAT. I think it like.
Can I ask you, Nanfa, what you think that the Trump supporters and what do you think that the long-term plan is with using the tariffs?
So again, like I'm not at all convinced people have an actual coherent plan. The people in the administration, Howard Lutnick, Stephen Bessent, I think his name is, the Treasury Secretary, Peter Navarro, will all say things that like contradict each other, and then Trump will come out and like contradict all of them. The reporting was that they didn't even have a plan for reciprocal tariffs until like 3 hours before they announced them. Like there doesn't seem to be any coherent plan to me. And that's evident also in the fact that they keep announcing
I
things
think it's
and
pretty
rolling them
obvious,
back.
actually.
Is that you seem to be coming here
Is that okay with
and
you?
saying that they're just throwing it together and not thinking about it. If they all have different plans, then that can't be the case. And so,
here's what I think is happening: is the people around Trump are trying to find ad hoc justifications for his policy. I think that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
Yeah.
But the real the real issue is that the idea is that we as a country are going to bring back manufacturing back to the United States, and we are going to make all the widgets. We're going to make all the little things that China does today. And the idea is that instead of us having small businesses or Walmart going out to China to find those things, the United States is going to bring them in and bring it back to like the 1950s ideal that this great lie that in Detroit, there was a guy that was able to work a factory job and live off a pension, live off of a union job, be in a safe work environment, and raise 3 kids, buy a house, and his wife was working at home cooking the family dinner. This is a lie. And the problem is that Trump's policy when it comes to the economy comes from the idea that back in the 1980s and 90s when we tackled Japan and trying to tariff Japan to get away from the fact that they were taking away so many manufacturing jobs, Mitsubishi, all the ones that talking about Panasonic, all the Fujifilms, all the great car companies. And the idea is that instead, Trump, instead of what we did, which was bring those car companies like Toyota to the United States, and we made trade deals so that they had to manufacture here in the United States as well. Instead, Trump is doing like bull in like a fucking idiot, retard ass motherfucker. And he's saying, no, you have to do exactly what I say. We have a trade deficit because we spend so much. You guys buy everything from us. Of course they do, because we are experts in the world stage, a final manufacturing process. And the problem is, I don't want to be Cambodia. I don't want to be the t-shirt guy. I don't want to be Bangladesh. I'm sorry. We opened up world capitalism. We opened up world trade. And the idea that we are placing all these tariffs is a stupid idea. But I understand why. The sentiment is that we want to bring back manufacturing because all these jobs are just going to bring about world economy and world peace for the United States. I understand why Trump believes that these things are going to happen. But tariffs is the stupidest way to do it. The reason is because small businesses are not prepared for this. When they buy their when they buy their manufacturing businesses, they have to be able to. I'm giving just a real stage here. I don't know what's going on. All right.
Well, I just wanted to point out a really clear thought process here. It's my turn and I'll take all the time I want is on your shirt, and you literally are doing that. You are filibustering the shit out of this with kind of like nonsensical stuff. I mean, I get it. We don't want to be the t-shirt guy, but like you landed the plane already. Rude Mud Crabbing with a big five says, making companies do their books better through VATs means you'd lose the 40% gained through sales tax, LOL. And while I'm in the little process,
very cute, Sarah. I really do appreciate that.
Sasquatch, did you want to make your exit, my love?
I'm everywhere on YouTube. You can't get away from me. I'm kind of like a bad fungus. Once I get on you, you just can't scrape me off.
True.
It's good. I'll be back. Much love. Sasquatch out.
Thank you, Sasquatch. And then hold on. And then Trippy Cast, you're back up.
Yeah.
And
I'm
Dragon Rage, did you want to get some thoughts in here?
Non-fum. Let's do the Eiffel Tower.
Yep,
I want
Sarah in the
to
middle.
see Melanie up with Trippy at the same time here, so I'm willing to step into the backstage for a little bit.
All right, fair enough.
Not
Ask and
fun.
you shall receive.
Real quick, I just want to say to that chatter who donated, I recognize that, but there are good ways to raise revenue and bad ways to raise revenue. Taxing business transactions is a bad way to raise revenue because you're harming investment. Taxing consumption is a less bad way to raise revenue. That's the position there.
We're never going to be able to harmonize the idea that like what's good for the entire economy and what's good for the entire country will also be good, might not be good for like individual people. We're never going to be able to get around that, right? There's going to be winners and losers in an economy, and that's why it's important to vote for politicians who actually understand, for example, what a tariff is, how to actually figure out what tariff to put on other countries. If they don't do that right, more of you get fucked from it.
That's the idea of reciprocal. So
I like
you
it.
give us a
Hold on,
tariff,
wait,
we
wait.
give you the same one.
These are not reciprocal
Yes,
tariffs.
you acknowledge
Oh my God.
Trump did not do
That's
that.
why
You acknowledge that the
You
equation
know
they
that the
used.
reciprocal
You acknowledge
tariffs
that the
haven't even
equation
been
they
put in
used
yet.
was simply the trade deficit divided by imports. Do you acknowledge that?
Reciprocal tariffs haven't even been put in yet. They got 90 days from the
I
announcement
understand they
day.
were paused. But do you acknowledge that the way that they got these reciprocal tariffs was the equation he's showing, the trade deficit divided by imports?
Yes.
Okay, great. So do you acknowledge that that doesn't actually tell you how much these countries are tariffing us? It's simply just the trade deficit divided by imports. Only in
No, they have
goods,
to
by the
simplify
way.
it for the American
Just
people.
trying to
Right.
fill in the trade deficit. That's all this is trying to fill in the trade deficit to make a balance.
I like it how the tariffs equal me in this way.
The only reason that they have it over
It's all about you, right, Flo?
I'm the tariff. What's up, guys? You've been hearing a lot about me.
All about
No
you.
wonder
They said I was
everybody
delayed
hates
for 90
it.
days, but I'm not. I'm here now.
Can we export flow from the panel?
Yes.
Okay. So the only reason, by the way, they have that M on the bottom part is because that keeps it below 1. That's the only reason they do that. Otherwise, you can actually also just say XI minus MI.
Yeah, I mean they also had the minimum.
You're
of 10%,
confusing
which
these
is-
people's brains. Don't do that.
So to me, the funniest thing about this equation is that in putting the bottom Greek letter phi, which is defined as the pass through, they've defined the amount of inflation that's going to happen from this because the pass through for them is 0.25. So they think a quarter of every dollar in tariff is going to pass through to the consumer. If by their own admission their average tariff is 41%, they're saying that all imports on average are going to raise 10.5% by their own equation. By their own fucking equation.
They miscited that
By
too. The study that they used.
equation, Kat comes in with a big 5, says, non-fun, appreciate you actually answering. Hard to go back and forth in chats. Sarah, you're a beast, night peeps. That was a very nice compliment to you, non-fun.
She is a beast.
Yeah.
And these are the compliments I like when JD63 comes in with a big 100 just to say, thank you, Sarah. Very entertaining. And you're
Big fat
most
beast.
welcome, JD. JD was over here earlier in my chat, also dropping some love in the super chats, but then also obtained a membership, and then also went over and gave a nice compliment to Team Fatty as well, because Fatty cried that JD wasn't given enough. So JD put his money where his mouth is and proved Fatty. So, shout out.
So I noticed non-fun keeps bringing up VATs. Who's paying for the VATs? Since you say it'll supplement the tariffs, just the consumers. So you're going to want to put all those billions of dollars on the U.S. people.
But when we do that with tariffs, you're fine with it?
That way,
Give me a minute. So my position was that a VAT would be preferable to a tariff. It would raise about basically the same amount of revenue and have less distortionary effects. Now, technically, like, I have my own like very wonky like ideal tax policy things, but you know, if you want to raise taxes, there are good ways to do it and bad ways to do it. A VAT is a better way to raise taxes and raise revenue than a tariff is.
And this is why I said earlier, like,
onto the consumer, and it still doesn't exactly supplement any kind of thing that we'd be bringing in with tariffs, because we got to bring in money from those other countries to stabilize our shit, right?
the only way that like the only way
Because we give other countries money.
out really quick. The only way that we can ever put like extra costs to businesses and stuff like that and not have the consumer reflect that is in a planned economy. We're not in a planned economy. We're in capitalism. So we give that to private we give that decision to private individuals. If you want to complain with you having to pay for tariffs stuff like that, bring it up with the companies who won't absorb those costs.
Well, we're not in capitalism no more. People don't get that. Capitalism is not where we're at right now.
We're not between capitalism.
Yeah, because technically, capitalism would be like free.
This
market.
isn't a planned economy, James. Like we're
True
still
true, pure, unadulterated capitalism would be a complete free market.
We're still
nothing exists in a pure
We're not in
a
pure
democracy as
capitalism.
well,
This is
Nothing
Speaking
exists in a
of
pure
capitalism, Rude Mudcrab with the big 5 says nothing about these are reciprocal. USA and Australia had a free trade agreement for 20 plus years.
Oh, good. That's the craziest thing about these things. The craziest thing about these things is even in their formula that shows they're going after the trade deficit, the places we have surpluses with, they still put a 10% tariff on them. So it's not even about what they say it's about.
Tariffs on places that.
So to go back to what's his name was saying with the shirt, to go off of that, you guys are missing the entire point. The entire point of all of this is just to say you're raising a lot of money and then to gut out a bunch of other parts of the government to say you're making savings so they can pass that enormous freaking $4.5 trillion tax cut bill that's already passed the House. That's what
You're
this
talking
is
about this guy?
all about.
Let's call him
I love
American
the fact that this
Sargon
shirt
of
has
Akkad.
triggered so many people.
His name is American
your
Sargon.
name's not up right now, so I just couldn't see it.
I know.
That's-
I just think it's funny.
But that's
Yeah,
to me, that's what
American
this is all
Sargon.
about. This is all about this enormous tax
Look what
cut
happened
that
with
is
Israel.
coming down the pipe.
Anthony. Look what happened with Israel. What did they do? Forgive our debt and take away all the tariffs?
Well,
Right?
Israel took away their tariffs and they still got tariffed in return.
Yeah,
right?
why did they
Yeah,
get
those
tariffed?
tariffs.
Why did they get tariffed by Trump then? If like Israel forgave that shit,
Yeah.
Israel did forgive it, did they not?
but then why did
They
Trump
did drop-
tariff
they dropped-
tariff
yep.
them?
It's still a 10%.
Well, Trump tariffed everybody to be fair, man.
Yeah, that's our point.
Round up.
Yeah,
But
and
look,
who's just
now-
more than happy to pay it?
This
Like,
is
Israel.
like
funny
mob
thing is, like-
style negotiation. I'm going to burn your house down and then sell you
That's
fire
exactly
insurance.
what it is.
It's literally
mob
having a
tactic.
gun to our head.
Here's
But
the
like,
thing.
all you
Wait,
guys
wait,
know
wait,
what it is?
wait. Can I just get in here for like a second? Because
That's
like
what he
that's why I
said.
brought
I don't know
up.
who's talking.
That's
Oh,
why I brought up the bond market. Like, obviously, people don't like this. Like, the nations are selling off their interests in America and being like, we do not want to be part of this, and we're going to go invest our
Just
money
China?
into China or into Japan or into other nations. They do not see the security that America has always had. That's why when we talk about like the stock market having dips, yes, it fluctuates from time to time, but we don't see all three markets taking dips like this at all times. That doesn't happen.
Also, when someone removes their trade
the
agreement,
economy.
when someone removes their trade agreement and then you end tariffs on you, or sorry, has a trade agreement and then removes their tariffs on you, and then you tariff them, guess what that does? That destroys relations with that country. That makes them not like you because you're
Doesn't seem like it
unpredictable.
has.
Where
Wait a minute,
countries
did Israel
operate,
remove
countries operate geopolitically on diplomacy. They talk shit out. They don't do shit like this.
We can have
Wait, did
non-sensual
Israel
relations with
remove
them.
tariffs on us? Just
I'm
Yeah,
going
they
based
did.
off of what Trippy said. I'm not like Trippy.
Israel-
where, like,
Israel
as
did.
soon as something's anti-Trump or pro-Trump, I'm like, oh my god, it has to be lying about everything.
No,
Like,
no, I don't.
I'm willing to argue with what he's saying on its face value.
I
so
appreciate that. And
Israel
I'm not
did
trying
drop-
to just be pro-Trump. I'm just saying that you guys have given it no time. You're jumping on it as soon as it happens, and you're going, "He's stupid. He doesn't know what he's doing." Blah, 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 blah. But you haven't given it any time. The dude hasn't even been a president for six fucking months.
Not only that, I also
you
want to
never-
ask the question: are there
6 fucking
actually, aside from Flow State with his economics kind of degree or whatever, is there
degree,
anybody who is actually an
Milton Friedman.
expert in economics or foreign affairs or anything to that degree that is sitting on this panel right now?
No, but
No.
Milton Friedman has literally said that, and Milton Friedman's not elected.
So
He's not
we are
anti-Trump.
all
He's
just
literally
like
said this is a bad idea.
we're all just like the Monday morning quarterbacks and so on and so forth, sitting on the couch talking about what should or shouldn't, so on and blah blah blah. So I just want to point that out to you that we can sit here and jibber jabber on what we think shouldn't happen, what's wrong, what's right, blah blah blah, but we're not the experts. So the
Ultimately, I'm the boss. It sounds like you're saying.
no, but
Hell yeah.
ultimately, if you're not in that room and you haven't spoken to the actual experts and looked at the advisors and yada yada yada,
No, none of this means we can't have a valid opinion. That's bullshit.
that's
Wait,
not
yeah,
what
I
I'm
don't think
saying.
that's
That's
right.
not
The
what I'm
experts agree
saying. What
tariffs
I'm
are bad.
saying is that you need to
Only
be
one side listens.
mindful. You need to be mindful of how you approach a situation. Lilith, are you like high or something back there? You look high as fuck.
Well, yeah, if you want to argue,
Okay,
like
makes
if you want to argue, stay in your lane. Like, don't pretend like you know more than you know. I agree with that, but like at the same time, we're here to discuss this. Like, we have to, as I did, I argued with what I knew, and when Trippy sent up and I couldn't immediately fact check, I just decided to argue on the face of it instead of trying to tear that apart.
I appreciate that.
and look, I agree. Like, I'm not an expert economist or anything, but like, I feel like I've done a decent amount of reading on this specific thing by now, and like,
Well, you can read all you
I mean,
want.
It feels like I like have a decent enough understanding to have an
There is
opinion on this,
There
and
is
it's
an
like
issue that
if you
objective
value
facts-
experts' opinions, you should trust the experts.
Yeah,
90% of fucking like the overwhelming majority of economists agree that tariffs are generally harmful, and basically all of them agree that Trump's tariffs specifically are like incredibly harmful because like some
I mean, that was a
economists-
political statement there.
The
and
Economist made a whole bunch of claims.
you can
about
find an
Trump the
economist
first
to say
time he
anything
was
you
in.
want.
They made a bunch of claims. Economists specifically
the
made a
mass
bunch of claims
majority
about
of
Trump
them.
the first
It's not
time that
just
he was
like
in
one
there.
economist,
And
right?
then when they were proven wrong, everybody who was against Trump went, no, that's no right. And non-fun.
We're at the tail
You're
end of
young.
like over half a year of arguing what a tariff is and who pays it from a group who can't even like understand the basic definition of that. Like, you guys are so bad faith on these arguments that we have no reason to listen to anything you say
Nope.
at this point.
Try not to lump
And
me
look,
in.
economists have been talking
Sorry,
about this
Kirby,
for.
but that's the
like,
general like
No, it's cool.
where we
I
are in the
do that to
in
you
the
guys,
general
too.
conversation.
Lump them all in
I do.
effigy. Fuck them all.
We don't need no
Economists-
animation
economists-
domination going on here. Sorry.
We do. Cartoon Network in the house.
Economists have been talking about this for like 300 years. They've been explaining why tariffs are bad. Like, we
Yeah,
have,
and has
we have
this ever
so
went
many
down?
studies. We have so many studies. We have so many models to explain why
Studies and
tariffs are
models.
generally bad.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know
and
that I
look,
think that
you
they're
never
worse
make the
than,
argument for anything
more
else that like,
taxes.
oh, we need more time when we already
Please.
have so much evidence. You would never
Non-fun.
say that like, oh, maybe everyone else who touches the stove gets burned, but I'm different. This time will be different. Like, no.
Are we
it's
going to
fucking
address the
absurd.
fact that these tariffs are starting to act more like market manipulation from top to bottom than actual tariffs or
That's
national
what-
strategy?
that's what they've- that's
That
what-
is-
and
that's
that's
obviously what
not-
happened this week. Yeah,
That's
that's
what
obviously what
FG
happened.
and Fun have been saying this whole time. I've heard
Yeah.
them say that at least twice.
Okay,
like
I
it.
haven't
It's
listened the whole
funny.
time.
That's funny. But I mean, look, there's studies and there's models about, space and globes and, well, so,
And allow us to
powder dusty up there still doesn't believe in the moon
Are we
landing.
really in that place now?
Oh yeah, the moon landing is for no.
Well, there was something that
I
you
was,
said-
I was embarrassed by that. Does anybody else feel like America should be embarrassed for that Blue Origin thing? The
No,
women?
because we've seen all the Apollo missions before it.
That Blue Origin thing is terrible.
No, what I'm saying is how they paraded women around and acted like this was a whole big deal, that they went on a little roller coaster ride up into the air and came back down. And it was more embarrassing to me than anything.
And it was the most
It was
rocket
very
I've ever
embarrassing.
seen.
Commercial
They
space
put a
flight.
fucking head
Wait,
on the
why
rocket.
is it not embarrassing that the majority of space flights have been done by male-only crews?
True.
That's not embarrassing. That's just that's
Oh,
who was
okay,
interested
weird.
in the
It's almost
job.
like there's a sexist
Mel,
line that
Mel,
that
Yeah, because men are better at
Hold
space
on.
than women. Everyone knows that.
Wait a minute.
Hold on.
I actually don't think
Why does everyone have to look at gender?
Gentlemen,
Hold on.
gentlemen,
Good job, Sarah. Look what you did.
Gentlemen.
It's like,
Stop.
well, are
She's
there
gonna
how many
help you in
I'll bring things back on
Go
top.
ahead, Effigy.
Wait,
Go
wait,
ahead,
wait.
Effigy. Hold on. Or I'm sorry, Trippy.
Mel, like, there's not that many women in computers, in computers building and garbage and all that
None of them
shit.
in mine.
You know what I mean?
Maybe
So,
it's
like,
the
it's
website to go
just
to.
who would do the job at the time. And yeah, it was probably harder for women back in the 50s and 60s to get into that job. But, nowadays it's getting a little different. We're sending up more and more of both groups.
Okay, amazing. I want to address something Flo says, that you can like find economists that will say anything. As Nonfon pointed out, this is
Yes.
the vast majority of economists you are saying this. I don't think you can
Oh,
buy
get out
the
of
vast
here!
majority
Get
of
out of here with
Yeah, but
that.
Warren
It is
Buffett
not.
himself said it's a
Yeah,
good
Trump
idea.
Trump found the 5 economists who are
Here-
willing to be pro.
Everybody will agree that tariffs are not good for the economy, but in a vacuum, right?
Neve
There-
is owning the panel tonight. I just want to point this out, and then I'll give it back to you, Flo. We may not have any woman in space, but Mel is going to be the first Furby in space after that dumb remark. 5 minutes,
Oi.
please. To the back, Furby. And I'll Dragon Rage, if you want to come back up, let me know in the back chat.
The badness
not, I'll
of
just move
tariffs
on to
is
the next
relative to what it's compared against. Compared against no tariffs, I agree. Compared against a VAT or a universal corporate tax increase, you're going to have way more mixed opinions on that one.
Yeah,
I believe you are correct, sir.
Yeah.
I don't know about a VAT. About corporate income tax, I might agree with you because I think corporate income tax is pretty cringe. But I think
You're pro-union, aren't you, non-fun?
What do you mean by that? I
you
think workers have the
pro-union?
right
That's a
to
pretty easy
unionize.
question.
Unions bad?
I don't know what it means to be pro. I support workers being able to unionize. Like I don't know what specific laws I would say I support regarding how well unions should be protected.
Are you like into communism? Are you like into the idea of
No,
being
I'm
communist?
neoliberal.
Communism,
Okay.
non-fun. Don't you know that?
Random question.
True.
Pursuit.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a dick. you can calm down a little bit, man. I'm not trying to just be a
Wait,
dick.
Trippy. Wait, hold on. I have some questions
Yes,
for
you
you,
are.
just real quick. Can you tell me the 4 components of GDP?
Right off the
Wisdom,
bat, no.
Google.
Okay, can you
Google.
tell me what savings minus investment is equal to?
Savings minus investment. So you read books all day, and you want me to sit here
Okay,
and
can
act
you
as
tell
if
me?
I do?
Yeah, so can you tell me what? Can you,
You
tell
want me
me
to act
what
as
is
if I've
what is
studied
the
up
trade?
on all of this shit that you're used
Yeah,
to
no,
talking
wait, can you
about
tell
on
me
your
what is
tiny
the trade?
stream?
What can you tell me what
You
is the
want me
trade
to act
deficit
as if I'm
financed
you?
by?
Yeah,
Well,
I'm gonna.
Tell me what is the
Trippy,
trade-
I think it's agreeable to say that if you are not an economist, then speaking to the economy and the points behind it would be a little.
I object. He's
You
asking
know.
specifically
Well, look,
jargon questions.
He
and,
These are not these are very relevant questions. Can you?
they
define
are relevant
comparative
questions,
advantage,
but you know
Trippy?
you're forming jargon, jargon phrasing.
Wait, can you define comparative advantage?
He's a
Can you
lawyer.
tell me if the Federal Reserve is part of the government branch or no? Is it a government branch?
Quasi government thing. But look, like
Quasi government thing. Good
you brought
answer.
up the
All
Federal
my
Reserve is
answers
just
to you are
quasi-government
quasi
thing.
yes.
There's no clear answer to, like whether Federal Reserve is like part
That
of the
was a
government.
legit
Also,
answer.
there
But you
are
don't
like
know that.
private parts of the Federal Reserve, and it
It's weird you
operates
don't know that.
independently. But
Yeah, you're
look,
talking about all this money stuff.
you keep
but you don't
like,
know that.
you keep saying like I'm young and like, oh, you're not an economist.
Yeah, you are
and, like,
young. You're
Trump had
inexperienced,
the
but you
experts.
think that you know because you wrote
No, I
or you
understand,
read
but,
what
like,
other people wrote
I'm-
instead of living your life.
No, but look what these people wrote about are like these are economists that I'm reading, and like you
Yeah,
can't
and they were all wrong
define
last time,
so
all the
you
way up
can't
until the
define-
coup, and
They
then
were
all of a sudden the
absolutely not
economy
all
did,
wrong last
because
time,
nobody was
especially
allowed to
with
go
regard to
outside.
trade. But look,
All right,
you're
we
not.
need a-
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know
What's
how
happening?
you think are.
Is you up here with Dusty? Oh, it's a me.
Okay.
It's a me. It's a
I don't know how you think you're qualified to say like they're all wrong if you can't even define to me like these basic things as well. Like,
No, I
like
can
how
explain it
am
pretty
I?
easily.
How am
I can explain it pretty easily. You could take all the models you want, right? In this specific circumstance, with all the things that have changed over time and how quick we move in the modern day, you can't really sit there and say, "Oh yeah, I know exactly how this is going to pan out because
I'm not
such and
claiming that
such
we
and
can
so
know
and so
exactly how
said."
it's going to pan out, but we can obviously make very reasonable assumptions about what will
Exactly.
happen to employment, what will happen to output based on models about tariffs and based on empirical evidence from tariffs historically. The overwhelming amount of evidence suggests that tariffs reduce overall employment. It's very, very reasonable to assume that tariffs will reduce overall employment if the U.S. imposes them. That is an incredibly reasonable assumption. It's absurd
What
to not
happens
make
when
it, I
you
would say.
assume?
Economists
should
make
know this.
assumptions. Open a fucking textbook, man. Like, what do you mean?
You should know this. What happens when you assume? What do they say? What's the?
What are you going to say? It's going to make an ass out of you and me?
Yes, sir. That's the phrase, isn't it? It's a phrase for a
Okay,
reason.
so if like I don't understand. This is an unbelievably stupid point. Economists
Okay,
make assumptions.
you're looking at-
wait, anyone in the audience can look this up. Look up economists
I'll
make
take up all the
assumptions.
time.
Any economics textbook will tell you this, that economists make reasonable assumptions because that is what all economics is premised on. But these are very reasonable assumptions. The fact that people will buy less products if the price of it goes up, the quantity demanded will fall if the price rises, is a very reasonable, empirically observable assumption.
Do you think less people are going to buy the Nintendo Switch because the price went up slightly?
Probably.
Probably.
But it depends on how
Maybe a
elastic the
couple?
demand for the good is.
I think it's just a couple. Most gamers are still going to buy that, just like when Grand Theft Auto
So,
dropped.
so I understand if you've never opened an economics textbook, you might think this is some novel point, but I would encourage the audience to look up elasticity.
It's cool. The audience can. They should. They should know.
Goods tend to, goods can be elastic or inelastic. Insulin is a
Right.
very inelastic good because if the price of insulin goes up, guess what? I'm still going to buy basically the same amount of insulin because I'm going to fucking
I will,
die.
because
if I
I'm a
don't.
type 1
Jelly
diabetic,
beans
yes.
are a very,
I
jelly
am
beans are
actually
very
that.
elastic good. In that if the price of jelly beans goes up, well, I'll probably just fucking buy gummy worms. That does
But-
not disprove the law of demand. I want a clear answer for you, Trippy. Do you think, yes or no, is the law of demand a reasonable assumption?
What is the law of demand?
The idea that the quantity demanded of a product will fall if the price increases.
It is, to an extent, yes. There you go.
It is
Short
to
answer.
an extent.
Now,
Okay, wow.
are we looking at a circumstance that has never happened before? Has there never been a president that's doing what Trump is doing?
That you would never say this in any other
I'm just
case.
asking you,
I understand there are some things that are going to be
Has
novel,
this
but
ever happened before?
there have been a lot of countries that imposed high tariffs before, and we have very good studies about them.
Right, but has a president ever hit him back like this? Has a president ever
This
put
isn't-
in these?
This is incredibly stupid because, like, look,
It's
we have
never
very
happened
good evidence.
before,
No, we have very good evidence that seatbelts are good, right? But you would never say like, "Oh, we made a new car and this car is blue." Well, how do we know the seatbelt is going to work when the car is blue? It's like, well, it worked for all these other fucking cars. It's probably gonna work for this car too.
So
That's a
your
very reasonable
plan
assumption to
here
make. Do
is
you
to
deny?
institute VATs instead of changing things that could end
Well, I
up
already said,
benefiting
like,
the
I
entire
already
country.
told you. I think VATs are preferable to a tariff. I think
So-
technically I would do a DBCFT.
Okay, you think you know something that's more preferable? That's fine, but I mean, is it just more? I don't want to do it because this guy's doing it, or is it just I don't want to do it because I like the way things are right now? Like, would you
What do
be
you
fine
mean?
if Biden was still in there and everything just remained the same as it was 4 years ago or 2 years ago, rather?
What do you mean
A
by
year
fine?
ago?
I don't think Biden pursued optimal policy. I disagree with a lot of the tariffs that Biden did. I don't think Biden should
Alright,
be
cool.
tariffing EVs, but like I'd be a lot more okay with Biden considering he did not tariff nearly as much as Trump did.
Yeah, and Biden sat there with an auto pen too.
Holy
and
ba-
just
yeah,
signed everything, and half the shit he didn't even read.
great.
Did you hear the
Yeah,
Speaker of the House? Did you hear the Speaker of the House have his comment?
I know. Biden dementia. Yep, I'm aware.
No,
aware, I
no, no. The Speaker
understand.
of the House, the Speaker of the House, the guy that was still in there when Biden was in there,
Mike
brought up a
Johnson.
situation where he had a very
Yeah,
specific
and
thing he
Biden
needed to ask Biden
has
about.
dementia. Yep,
And he
forgot
asked
that he
Biden
paused
about it.
LNG exports. I'm aware. Yep, I'm aware.
Please stop.
Biden has dementia. Doesn't
Please
really
stop.
change any. That's not relevant to the fact
Please
that
let me
tariffs are
finish the
bad.
point, because that makes you
Okay.
look like a dipshit. So
Go ahead.
Biden and the Speaker of the House had a conversation about this, whatever situation it was.
I know what you're
And
talking about.
Biden was convinced that he signed a paper that would start a study into the situation.
I'm aware.
What he really
I know what you're
signed
saying.
in
You don't have to keep describing
was
me the
stopping
specifics.
it.
I know what you're talking about. Yes, Biden has
Okay.
Biden's the old fucking man who
And
probably has dementia.
Biden
I'm aware.
argued
I don't
that
how
he
is this relevant to
didn't-
tariffs being good or bad? I already explained to you. I think most of the tariffs that Biden did were bad. Biden did
Okay.
other good things though. Biden didn't do as bad of things that I think Trump is
Name
doing
one.
with tariffs. So obviously,
Name one
what?
good thing that Biden did.
The Chips and Science Act off the top of my head.
The Chips and Science Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't something that Trump was already putting in before Biden got in.
Not seriously.
No. Then why is everything else that you were bringing up before shit that Biden did that before Trump got in, like the whole Nvidia thing? And I'll ask Effigy the same thing. Like, why do you think Biden made a deal with Nvidia to bring a factory to the U.S.?
Because I think Biden is concerned that chips are being produced in China, which
You
I think is a
think that
reasonable
motherfucker
concern. That's a
knows what a
reasonable national
graphics
security
card is?
concern. And sorry?
You think he knows what a graphics card is? A GPU?
I think Biden.
You
So
think
to
he
be clear,
knows
I don't
what
know.
NVIDIA
Like,
is?
okay, so Biden listened to his advisors who told him it is a national security concern, and we want to have chips
So now
manufactured in the US.
Biden has advisors, but Trump's just a big dumbass who
Trump's
has nobody
advisors are
stopped him.
fucking. Hold on, Trippy. Has Trump ever accurately described what a tariff is? Has Trump ever accurately described what a trade
You
deficit
made
is?
that argument before. I think you're saying that because you think nobody can find it.
I'm
when
saying
there's
it because
plenty.
I can't find a single clip of Trump accurately describing
haven't
what a
been
trade
looking.
deficit is, or
Dude, he
I
talked
have been
about-
looking, and I've asked a ton
He
of
talked
people. I
about
haven't
what
found
tariffs were
I
over
haven't found
30
a
years
single
ago.
clip of Trump saying that the U.S. pays tariffs. I haven't found a single clip of Trump saying something remotely coherent about the trade deficit. He thinks that they are just a profit and loss statement.
Listen to a Trump speech. All he talks about is blaming Biden for
Yeah, he
everything
knows how
does
to
wrong.
talk. You know,
No,
okay,
he doesn't know how to talk. All he does is go back.
And neither,
And yet he can't define things correctly, right?
Speaking of
Bro.
talking, Ryan comes in with the big five and says, to be fair, Non-Fun is asking reciprocal stupid questions to Trippy. I believe that was right before I
That was
put you on
earlier.
the speed date. And that's why I put you on the speed date so you gentlemen could duke it out properly.
That was sexy. My finger still smells weird.
Oh. Oh.
So, who did
was
Biden,
gay.
Who did Biden blame for everything? Since you want to say Trump is only blaming Biden, who did Biden blame for everything and still is blaming?
On COVID. What do you mean?
He blamed everything on Trump, dude.
Well, look what the country was like when Biden
politicians
took
blame
over.
their opposition. This is not.
Yeah, it was
Come
right
on.
when COVID hit. Fucking right after COVID hit is when Biden got in there. Of course, he's gonna go, "Oh, it was Trump's fault," when it was literally
When did he get into
disease's
office,
fault.
Trippy? When did he get into office, Trippy?
Oh, he got into office right as fucking COVID hit.
2021,
COVID
right? When did COVID start?
COVID was in absolute full fucking swing.
Yeah, at the tail end of 2019.
It's in the name.
Now, you guys want to say that it's 2019. The first person that even fucking recorded having it was at the end of 19. It wasn't
Yes,
a
I said the
full-blown
tail
fucking
end of
pandemic yet,
2019.
dude.
Did I not say
Is
that?
There's a full-blown ass pandemic on day one. That's like saying that the bird flu is relevant right now.
Yeah, but he had a whole year of like presidency with that being there, and you're being like Biden took office when it was at its
full
fucking
year?
worst.
When did Biden take office?
2021.
A full year.
But just out of
I just feel
curiosity,
like your timeline's wrong.
Hold on, I don't understand what the relevance of this is. Like politicians blame their opposition for like everything, and sometimes
They
it's
really
fair, and
do.
sometimes it's unfair. And I feel like
Especially
it's
when they
you
take
know,
over
so-
when
Talking
it
to
collapsed the
Pursuit
economy.
because he said
There
that
were-
Trump always blames Biden for everything. That's all.
Well,
here's
isn't
the thing, is
that
there
though,
are
Non-Bon? Isn't that up to the people to do their research and really see what's going on? And I mean, and I think that the media kind of fails us in that aspect because they just kind of bleed the narratives out or the agendas or whatever they feel like giving us in that moment, you know. And
we also
because
up to the
because we're the average person who doesn't have access, or maybe not access, but doesn't have the ability to really analyze the data and look at what's really going on. I think that we're taking advantage of in that aspect.
Ah,
yeah, plus there's so much data to analyze.
It's like, look,
and
look,
we
I
have
am
lack
more.
of time as a normal person to analyze that data.
Yeah,
There's
James.
a big
Like, I'm
problem
more
with
than willing to
alternative
say.
news media. I
We
completely
just admit that this
knows
is a
more
deflection
econ than I
of
do.
massive proportions. You have
Non-Fun
to even
easily
bring
knows
this
more
subject up.
econ than I do. Like straight up, Effigy probably does too. Like, I don't study that stuff, man. I went through high school. I slept through econ. I passed with like a C-.
Then why are you,
You know what I
saying
mean?
the same Trump talking points that you saw from Twitter?
Same Trump.
Because who
talking
else is
point.
going to make America great again?
I'm sorry, man. I actually watched them guys when they
This
when they
is my
sign.
point. Like Sarah, I understand that you are annoyed by the fact.
I actually watch what they do.
Okay,
I mean,
so
if you're-
wait,
if
wait,
you're
wait. I want to
admitting
comment
that
on
you
what
don't-
Trippy just said. Wait, I just want to comment on what Trippy said because just the mere fact that you said you watched the thing that they signed, right? So the thing that was signed for the CHIPS Act and what Trump has signed as well is for TSMC. That's a Taiwan manufacturing company that makes semiconductors, right? They didn't sign a deal with NVIDIA. NVIDIA is getting their chips being made here because of this Taiwanese company that is moving into the US. So
Right.
fundamentally, you're already like off the base.
I don't really mind being off the base.
That's what I'm saying. But like you're saying that your knowledge on this is like so fun. You're just like NVIDIA's
It's
moving
fun,
people
man.
in here. I understand. I'm just saying that like
Yeah.
there's going to be a level of logic that people are going to be applying here. That like I think that protectionism in certain cases is good. Like when we look at the CHIPS Act, I really agree with that. But when we're doing universal tariffs, I don't see the benefit behind that in any way, especially when we have trade partners who like supply a surplus and we still decide to get tariff them 10%. That makes no sense. You're de-incentivizing them from actually buying from us.
Well, that's what's going to happen right off the bat. But if they would just actually attempt to make a factory in the U.S., or if they would actually just lower their tariffs on us so that the reciprocal would be lowered for them.
No, a surplus means they
have
buy
90
more off
days
of us.
to
Wait,
make a
wait, Trippy. A surplus means that they buy more off of us. Like, why would they want to build a plant when they're buying stuff of us? That doesn't make sense. Like when we're buying stuff, that makes sense when we're talking about the deficit, right? But when
We
we're
already
talking
buy
about
from them. That's why they're a company.
no,
that we
because
buy
with Australia, we have a surplus. That's why it doesn't make any sense to tariff them 10%. That's what I'm saying. Like when we do universal tariffs, that doesn't it literally affects every market that could potentially be good for us and de-incentivize these people from
I don't know,
actually
man. It
buying.
sounds kind of fair. Like if you're going to start off at 10%, everybody knows going in they're going to have 10%. But they also know that they're not going to give us 130% tariff back, right? Reciprocal would mean you give us
understand, Trippy, how
130.
stupid it is that the fact that we have 10% tariff on everybody?
No, it's not very stupid at all. It's actually equal fair
Fucking
play.
retard. Answer
We
my
already,
question.
first of
Why
all,
is 10%
absolutely
good?
not. We
I'm gonna start
already
being-
explained. We
everybody
already
knows
explained to you.
this
We
is
already
good.
explained
Why
to
would
you.
you do that with a
One
country you
at
have
a
a
time,
surplus with?
gentlemen.
So Trippy, why is 10% good? Why is that rate good with people that we have a surplus with?
It's good because then the other people know it's 10% too. It's not just
Fucking
we're not
retard.
just
You don't fucking
focusing.
even know. All you do is just gurgle.
You're getting
the
like
fucking
very
All
upset.
you do is spaz, dude. Chill.
He is.
Relax.
It's like
take
we
a
were
breath.
chilling, man.
Sarah,
The emotions
So
make
that
you
they
sound
can
more
then put
trustworthy
a
and
tariff
reliable.
on what you had
Guys.
pre-trade over, right? Like that's what you're talking about.
Wait. Hold on a second. If Sarah turns her head to the left and Pursuit to the right, and you guys kind of pucker up a little bit,
I'm married. I'm fine.
and you're not
That
wearing
would be
pants
cheating,
either.
so it's a good thing you didn't do it.
No, can we just get
Here,
Tribby? Can
look,
you just
Trippy.
understand what you just said though? So
No, I
if
can't
we
turn
have
my head.
free trade with Australia, where they have a surplus, they buy way more of our stuff by instilling a tariff on that place. Now
Right.
this place that we sold all this shit to through free trade without any extra cost is now going to instill a cost on all the shit that we are selling to them.
And when
we
reciprocal
didn't have one
takes
before.
place, it would mean that we wouldn't
But
have
it's not
one
reciprocal
again.
because you put it there in the first place.
It's not reciprocal yet because they haven't instituted it.
Oh, so you have to do it first so that it will reciprocate?
It's preemptive
My
defense,
God.
guys.
Instituted it,
Guys,
dude.
it's precognition.
So we
Don't
will
you understand?
remain.
One
Stop.
at a time.
I'm
You
just
are
saying, we will
spurting
remain at
hard,
10%.
bro.
Until reciprocal does actually get instituted.
Yeah.
It's
And I'll just
kinda
keep bringing
simple.
up, we've been arguing over with you guys for over 8 months over what a fucking tariff is. So for you guys to even come at this conversation with like any kind of knowledge base, like pretend you even have one, is mind shattering to me.
Yeah, you
Trippy,
dumb
guys prove it
bitches.
with every statement.
Yeah, okay, Trippy. Do you acknowledge, yes or no, that the equation they use, again, for these reciprocal tariffs, do you acknowledge that had nothing to do with the trade barriers they imposed?
It doesn't matter if it doesn't have anything to do with it.
So
in
how
the
is that
public eye.
reciprocal then?
That's not what I'm saying. If they have a equation to show people like me and you It doesn't matter. We're not the ones that it's going to be imposed on. We're going to do it like, hey, China, I'm giving you a tariff. They know what they're going to pay the 100%, the 10% on. The U.S. people, the dumbasses, you know who I'm talking about.
You
the
just
people
said
who
it
have
again.
no,
They don't pay it. They don't
the
pay
people
it.
who
Ricky. We've tried to say
stop. The people who have no idea what any of this is need a number put in front of them. That's what that number is you're looking at. The
Okay,
actual number that they're going to pay is not the one we're looking at. It's what they're looking at behind closed doors.
Number
So-
one, people in the U.S. pay tariffs. Two, if your claim is that these tariffs are reciprocal, I'm pointing out to you they clearly
Not
aren't
my claim.
reciprocal because you keep saying reciprocal tariffs.
No,
It's not
people
my
always
claim.
pay taxes, no matter
It's
what
what
tax you come out.
presidents say.
No, people always pay
Dear
that.
God.
Well, and on top of
literally
that,
what
he's
that's
pointed out multiple
Whoa,
times
that's
that
a
the
mic.
reciprocal tariffs aren't actually going into effect until 90 days from now. They've been
Yeah.
paused. So when
I
it comes
understand
down to
they'll
it,
pause
Trippy
90
has
days.
actually stated that multiple times. So a blanket
Do you
tariff
think I
is
don't know
currently
that?
out tariffing everybody out at a 10% rate. However, when the reciprocal goes into effect, in these countries that have a lower percentage tariff, it would decrease, making
Yep.
it fair depending on what they're tariffing us, which I think is perfectly fine.
Matched.
No, again, what I'm trying to point out to you
Thank
is
you.
that
I'm glad you heard me.
these rates are not based on the tariffs these countries are imposing.
Currently, because reciprocal tariffs are not in effect. I don't understand what you're not
I
getting with
understand they're not in
that.
effect.
If reciprocal
understand-
tariffs
no,
don't go
I-
into effect
I
for
wanna hear
90
not
days,
fun
I obviously
Gentlemen, allow me
I
to
obviously
interrupt
know.
you. Sorry, it's just the when you're talking over each other, it hurts my ears, and then I'd rather talk about something else. Sarcastic Saint with a big 5 says, "In pursuit of knowledge, to the back for interrupting two big brains who are talking out their asses. He needs his bottle and blanket for 5 minutes. You are in the back, Pursuit."
Rest in
I got a
peace in
question.
pursuit of knowledge.
I got a question here on for non-fun. So, in this situation, do you think all the economists have all the information that is going on in terms of the government? The fact of the matter is, everybody's talking about reciprocal. Could it be a situation that we are technically in an economic warfare? Maybe there's something that we're trying to resolve in the situation that we're willing to take a hit as of this exact moment to corner our economic enemy.
So I guarantee you, Canada was not an economic enemy to the U.S. prior to Trump taking a second term.
But
You're saying it's trust plan.
But in the situation, they are still sending things to us. So they may be purchasing items from our enemy and bringing them into our country in that situation and still
That's not
supplying
going on.
them with
No.
money.
In fact,
Well-
Canada became more strict with its border and trade policies in response to Trump's fentanyl panic because of that, right? So if
Yep,
anything,
but
Canada
I'm
showed that
talking
they will
about
they will
everybody
align
else.
with Trump to do what he says.
I'm talking about everybody else in the situation. That is
Well,
not
Mel,
us.
did you?
Like, here's the thing. Like, I would grant you that could be possible, right? But when you're watching, like, your head of divisions actually on Senate floors finding out real time that the tariffs are being pulled back, that's no. There is no plan that's actually being discussed with anyone. It's that is the unfortunate truth that we are living in an age where even they aren't communicating with each other about how this works.
They are. I mean, come on. We saw the signal chat. Jeez. Okay, that was a joke. But
yeah.
Hey Mel,
Oh.
did you see that?
Way to argue for
Canada
confidence on their side.
Well, I don't know, man. That was a big fuck up. Anyways, I will agree. Anyway, Mel, did you see that Canada wasn't actually writing down what they were catching at the border in a lot of cases when it was droogs coming through? They weren't keeping a record in a lot of those cases. They were just all right, we got this many pounds of whatever. We're going to confiscate it.
I'd like to see your
And then
source.
they didn't write it down. That's weird.
Well,
And
look,
Cole
here's
Marshall in with the big 10 says, "Sarah, if time is money, then how much time are you willing to give up? 10% would mean 1 year every 10 would earn no money. 30% would mean 3. Hope this helps make the question clear." I wasn't paying attention to whatever the question was, but does that help anybody else understand it?
What?
No.
No, I have no
I
idea
mean,
what that's-
time and money are both resources,
It's a
right?
generic
And
tax
so typically they do they are correlative to a degree. But I wouldn't say that you're necessarily giving up one for another always. I think that's utilizing your money, like making your money work for you, is another way, and you're not utilizing time to do so, or you're using less time to make your money work for you in a higher degree. So I think it kind of goes both. You could say that, but you also couldn't say that. And then Joseph Newton came in with 10 to mute Nanfan, but Nanfan is the special guest of the evening, and I don't allow them to get pushed to the backstage, because then why would they want to come on a show just to sit in the backstage? So if Joseph, if you tag me in the chat, and you can utilize that credit towards someone else. I'm trying to see if you already did so or not. I don't see it. But yeah, you'll have to, I'll give you the credit back for someone else if you want. Gomtech says, what will anti-MAGAs do if their Doge checks come? I don't know. Ben with the 10 says, a trade deficit ratio is not a freaking tariff, you smooth brains. I'm a Trump guy, but can y'all learn basic math?
Also, I'm running a really high trade deficit with my barber. Should I be concerned about that, Trippy?
And also,
you don't have a trade deficit because you're not trading with your barber. You're paying.
First of all, you absolutely are. First of all,
I have an opinion.
No, you're paying for a service, not a trade.
Yes, but he's not paying you
You're
for
exchanging dollars for a service.
Yeah.
But it's not a trade.
That's a
like
deficit.
What do you think
That's a
trade
deficit.
means?
Definitionally.
And I believe Joseph picked Mel to send to the back instead.
Oh, no.
So we're going to trade Mel out for Krabby. It's not a bad trade.
Yo,
Here's
that was
the
quick.
thing.
Everyone get why
I do
making
wanna
those
say,
kind of
again,
examples.
The equation
Dude,
was
it's not
trade
trade
deficit in
in
goods.
terms of business, though, not in terms of like a business doing a trade. We're not talking about trade in terms of.
Well, I understand we're talking
Yeah,
about
but they never
international
get
trade.
any from you, James. Why won't they buy something from you?
Giving money for a service.
Somebody
Like
wake
the
up
US pays
Andrew.
money for
Andrew
goods
Wilson.
from other
Look, you guys get the point of this example, right? The
If-
example is sometimes your country needs something. It just needs it. Maybe if you're having a drought and you need food. So you're going to buy from this place regardless of if they buy from you. So you're going to have a trade deficit with them. A deficit doesn't always automatically mean bad. There are reasons for trade deficits. Very, very logical and positive reasons for trade deficits.
Yeah, but
And
you don't
here-
usually
here's
have a
the-
trade deficit with your barber, though. because
It's
you
just a
don't-
way of trying to make
they
you
don't let
understand
you
the
make a
point of
deficit
it,
with your
James.
barber. They don't allow you to not pay.
The trade deficit. It's not a bad thing, right? That they don't buy things from you because you need something from them, right?
I wouldn't even worry about the trade deficit point because they obviously don't care about that because there's countries that.
But that's what they're basing the entire tariff thing around.
That's it. I'm putting a tariff on rude mud crab.
Based off.
Shut up, Trippy. You don't even know what reciprocal means. Bro.
I'm gonna reciprocate you.
Yeah, buddy.
Reciprocate you all day. You're below me. You're underneath me. You know where you are? You're right at my crotch level.
Not if
I
you're
will
reciprocating
I will
him.
pay to have you removed.
You're right at my. Yep. I'm just gonna I'm gonna sit on your head.
These tariffs actually
I have a question.
create more issues than just
yes.
what you're talking about.
Go ahead,
Like,
I'll go after.
Australia's been a massive ally to America for a very long time. A lot of Marines and your armed forces actually come over here to train because the geography of Australia, we have basically every geography that's around the world. So it's the best ally to come train your troops. You've just
Didn't you guys
shown
lose a war
Australia.
against emus?
That's retarded to me. Like Australia loses a lot of trust in America at this point. Like we've had a free trade agreement for 20 plus years. There's no reciprocation here.
Right.
We've had no tariffs against America. They've put tariffs against us for no reason.
Yeah, it's across the board right now. As I've stated, and it's
That's shooting your friends so you don't miss your enemies.
It's going to drop down to zero anyway. It's
Americans
only
are
90
getting fed
days.
like that too. We don't. What the fuck's happening to our prices? They're all over the place.
It's going to drop down to
Hold on,
zero.
Trippy. I mean, it feels like you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth now because you're saying, like, previously you're saying, like, oh, to avoid the tariff.
No.
Well, we're
I
gonna
haven't-
we're gonna build manufacturing back in the U.S. or whatever. And now you're saying
I haven't.
Well, actually, all these tariffs are going to drop to zero anyway.
Yes,
because
when
we're
they
gonna-
institute reciprocal across the board.
You're actually retarded,
I've said
Trippy
this a
Cat.
lot.
when you say when they institute reciprocal across
They
the board,
had 90
I
days
don't
from
know
the
what you're-
day it was announced They should be making plans instead of fighting and acting like a bunch of bitches.
Why aren't we
It's
just
especially China
spending less money?
China is
Maybe we should
asshole.
be looking at how the government can tax less as an option.
I said China is asshole.
And speaking of asshole, sarcastic saint is sending James in the back for drinking too much moonshine and sounding like everyone's drunk uncle. James, go in the back and play your banjo. Smoke a cig.
Very funny.
China is asshole.
Yeah.
I used to have a
Kirby,
clip of
I have a
that.
question for you though. How do you
Yeah.
feel about the USMCA?
I don't know what that is.
The United States Mexico Canada agreement, where it's a trade agreement where we all agreed we would.
It would be awesome. We could call it CUM.
Oh my God.
Canada, U.S., and Mexico.
Well, here's the thing: you're talking about Trump's economic policies, and the USMCA was instituted by Trump.
Sweet.
A free trade agreement that goes
therefore it's good.
contrary
go into
to
effect when they
everything
do reciprocal
that he's
across the
doing
board.
right now.
It's
well,
only
no,
90
because
days.
no, because
Is
it
there
wouldn't be-
anybody on panel? If I assume that
no,
everybody who
agreement
likes
between
Trump
cell phone
likes
trash.
tariffs, and everybody that doesn't like Trump doesn't like tariffs, is there anybody on the panel who
That's
deviates from
not
that
what
formula?
we said. That's not what we said. Hold on, hold on.
Whoa,
I know. I'm
whoa,
asking a
whoa.
question. Does
What
anybody on
I'm-
panel
what I'm gonna
deviate
say-
from that?
What I'm going to say here is
Absolutely.
the tariffs should not even be necessary. If everybody dropped them down to zero, there you go. Why not? How come everybody
can you
doesn't
say
just
that?
come to the table and say, "Hey, we'll drop it down to zero"? If you
why
guys
doesn't
drop down to
Trump say
zero,
that?
Wait, number one,
That's
Trippy,
simple.
Trippy, number one.
One at
please,
a time,
please,
please.
Trippy,
One at
I
a
need
time.
I need Trippy. It sounds like, in principle, then you agree that trade is good, right? Because
trade
you
is
do want
absolutely
free trade.
good. We got to do it back and forth right now. But the
Right.
idea would be to eventually become self-sufficient on as many things as possible.
Okay,
that would
so
mean
now you're
being
absolutely
self-sufficient
speaking
on
out of both sides
electricity.
of your mouth.
Right,
How do,
yeah.
if you're saying these tariffs are going to
not
go to
both
zero,
sides of my
how the
mouth. I
fuck
only
are we
have
going
one
to be
mouth.
self-sufficient on all these things?
I can't even turn my head, dude. I only have one fucking direction to speak in, and you guys just keep ducking and missing it.
Can you answer my
It's not
question?
that I've gone
all these,
back on
if these tariffs are
anything.
going to go to zero because trade is so good, how are we going to be
No,
self-sufficient
tariffs
for all
would
these
go
things?
to zero for any country that wants to make them zero when reciprocal is instituted. You guys keep ignoring the fact that it was stated that they have 90 days from the day that it was announced.
There's a 90-day pause. Well,
decide
10%
what they're
tariffs
going to
still in
do.
place on all of them.
They're going to, yeah, right, sure. And 10% is in place on however many or all of them. Yeah,
You
sure,
understand.
exactly.
Like, let's say
10%
if we're
across
reliant,
the
if we're
board. You're not listening. You're just talking. You're waiting for me to finish my sentence so that you can get your next one out, and you're not hearing shit that I'm saying. And then you're repeating yourself over and
Okay, now
fucking
you're
over
grandstanding and
because
filibustering.
you're
I
a
hate it when people
child.
fucking do that.
And I'm not grandstanding. I'm just
You are.
stating
You are.
exactly what's
You're
been
talking
happening
about
here, Flo.
talking. You're talking about talking.
Flo.
Whoa. Is Sarcastic Saint taking my fucking job?
Sarcastic Saint came in with a big five and said, "Pursuit of knowledge to the back.
Oh, wait.
Share a drink with James and play some banjo songs with him. You are
Yeah,
whining and you need another 5 minutes. Goodbye."
What I meant to say is Sarcastic
Is it
Saint.
me?
Don't give. This is my job. I'm the one who gets kicked off before I can even say anything. Okay, I need value in this panel space. Stop giving that to Fursuit of Knowledge.
Hey, Trippy, what is reciprocation?
Reciprocation would be you do something to me, I do it to you.
Exactly. Don't you see
Kinda
how
simple.
you can't really
So,
call this
like, a reciprocal tariff
Right.
would be like if someone put a 10% tariff on you, you'd put a 10% tariff on them, right?
Exactly, which reciprocal isn't instituted yet. So in the meantime, everybody gets 10%.
But you agree that even in the numbers they showed that they will be instituting, that they had to pull back immediately because the world economy collapsed, that those are not reciprocal tariffs. We have shown you that tonight, right? We've shown you that
They
their
will
tariffs are
be
to fill in a
reciprocal
trade
tariffs
deficit,
when
right?
they're fucking instituted.
Oh, so those numbers they showed
Now,
are not the numbers they're going to
what
do.
what you're not looking at is
Wait.
the idea. The plan is to not even have to institute reciprocal tariffs.
These
If
were-
people would just come to the table instead of deciding that we're the bad guy, then they'd be able to.
They were
make a
already at the
deal.
table. Almost everybody was at the
They
table. We
were
have mutual
already-
agreement.
And I'm glad.
How are we going to be
wait.
self-sufficient if these people are going to come to the table and negotiate tariffs down to zero? You say you want to
We
be
will
self-sufficient in as
eventually
many
be
things as possible, but
self-sufficient.
you're also
That is
saying
the plan for the future.
They're
He
already.
said
They
this
were
the
already.
first time that he was in office.
One, guys,
self-sufficiency.
you gotta go one at a time because everybody just hears.
Exactly.
Right. So just take your turn, take a breath,
And
maybe
it-
write something down, scribble some circles on your paper in front of you, And wait your turn. Go ahead, Trippy.
If y'all would have listened the first time that he was in office, instead of just ignoring every single thing the man said, he said this was the plan the first time he was in office.
He said, "Come to
if we
DC
did
on
this-"
January 6th.
Hold on, Flo.
No, he said stay home and don't go. And there's recordings
No, he
of that.
did not.
He said it multiple occasions. Anyways,
Bull fucking shit.
he was talking about making America self-sufficient. We did it with electricity. That was canceled as soon as the next guy got in. I won't even blame him. But he did cancel it with an executive order. He wanted to make us to where we produced our own oil, and we were drilling and drilling and drilling, weren't we? He wanted to make it so that we were able to do everything that U.S. is able to produce right now, right?
But you're not
and
going
in
to be
the
able to produce
meantime,
your own oil.
before
So
you
I
get
your
there,
time.
we can produce our own oil. Look at Texas. We've got tons of oil that's untapped. We've got it in
That's
different
not enough to
states.
run the whole.
Right,
That's not enough to run the whole country.
We've got it in plenty of other states.
we produced more oil under Biden than we did under Trump. So like it's besides
because of what Trump already had instituted.
Yes, exactly.
And then
but
what did Biden do? Biden
didn't
canceled it
remove
eventually.
it. No, we didn't.
The one pipeline, but he also approved. He also approved.
That's
like,
exactly
more
why he
permits
had to
than
go and
Trump
dip
did.
into the reserves, right?
By the
why he
way,
had to dip into the reserves of oil.
Canada's already talking about not trading with the U.S. anymore and building our own pipeline just to say fuck you.
And to be 100% honest, Trump during his first presidency, because of the USMCA, believed in free trade between Mexico and Canada. Like that's just fundamentally true. When you write up a bill saying I want free trade between these things, and it's not going to be reciprocal for Canada and Mexico because Canada and Mexico
Why do you know
are
that?
like conditional, because they're conditional.
Why do you know that? Like, why
Because
do
he
you
says
think that's the way
he
that
said
it's got to
they're
be?
conditional. They're
Why
the
do you
reason.
think it's the way
That's
that
why
it
it's
has got
violating
to
the
be?
USMCA.
See, I think that this presidency is actually moving too fast for everybody.
Oh goodness.
Because
Flo,
it feels like he's been president for 8 years. Sorry. Go ahead.
Flo, you have the option to kick one person off the panel, except for non-fun. He's in the safety net.
Oh shit.
Who
Sorry.
would you like to boot off the panel?
Hornet.
Oh,
I fucking hate you.
Why do you hate Mexicans?
And with
Before you leave-
that,
Oh, never mind.
I'll ask
Jesus, that scared me.
Furby, since you're always the one getting booted off, who do you want to bring back? In Pursuit of Knowledge or James?
Oh, that is a tough one, actually.
I know.
I think James maybe just because he is more wholesome. He's kind of like the Beverly Hillbillies.
All right, we'll bring James back up.
But he's drunk.
Maybe.
Hey, where is he?
I don't know. I don't even know if he's
probably
drunk.
stepped away. I went ahead and muted his mic for now.
Thank you very
just
much
in
there,
case.
Robert.
And Robert Demita with the big.
He threw it at me.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, that was
Robert
nice.
Demita is so sweet, is he not? He always says thank you, and he says Chris Lacombe.
Chris Lacombe. Is that for like Coomer? Lacoomer?
It scared me so much. That's why I was like, "Oh shit!" While you were talking, because
Who is Chris Lacombe?
played.
Oh, Chris Lestrange.
Chris Lestrange, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just
He's in
making
my
fun
chat.
of him.
too.
I was gonna say, I thought who rated me earlier when I was on? Oh, I forget. Anyways, yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank
Too many
you, Robert.
Chris's, I swear.
Yeah, there's
Tri-
way too much going on.
Trippy, I wanted to address what you said earlier about having 0% tariffs. I hope you realize that the only way we can have 0% tariffs is with a free trade agreement, and that is like you
It's
can't.
Israel. That's
You
what I'm
can't, you
saying.
can't keep a free trade agreement going when you have someone like Trump who sabotages the terms of the free trade agreement so he can wage economic warfare.
Yeah, I know. It's fun to watch, right? And the
Well,
thing
I'm
about
just saying
that is,
you have to pick a lane, right? You can't have it both ways.
well,
You're trying to
He's
have
going to
your
make
cake-
a free trade agreement with someone when he's just not honored one.
think about this.
The countries that he's got free trade with.
It's dude, it's only 90 fucking days. So, anyways, look,
So
Trump
it's
had a
not.
meeting with what?
Forever.
Zelensky, right? Trump had the meeting with Zelensky. It blew up on camera. It was all this big fucking thing for what, a week? Trump does the tariff announcement, also announces that he's going to put a 90-day pause on it. What was that even a full day later, or was that the same speech?
I think it was 1 or 2 days later. I'm pretty sure.
Well, they
Okay.
released
Right.
the rumor a day later so that the market, or the same day, so that the market
Yeah,
would
well-
rebound.
And Trump that day put out a message on Truth Social that said, buy now. at like 9 a.m. and then announced it about an hour later, and bam.
Which is
Did
supreme
he really do that?
Yeah, he did.
That's not legal.
Sure enough, fuck
That's
did.
so
Yeah.
power
What is
not.
that? Oh,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
what
It's
they did the whole
basically
time.
doing. That's basically doing what Enron did with like
That's
speculative
exactly
buying and
like
stuff that.
insider trading. I don't know. That's
Yeah,
fucking crazy.
but
to
on
me.
like a mass scale, like using the
actually-
presidency to do it. That's fucked up, Trippy. Like you,
Dude,
you can't support that.
But I
They
am
had to
gonna
invent
I am gonna get
Oprah.
a Truth Social account now because that
Yeah, dude,
if, he's,
dude,
if he's
yes.
giving out insider stock tips,
So flow. It's not insider trading. They had to invent a term for it. It's actually outsider trading, and it's not illegal.
it's
Well, there is evidence
it's
of
market
insider trading as
manipulation.
well.
I don't know how this is market manipulation.
So what?
Yeah,
you can't
non-fun.
jail a sitting
So this is
president.
this is the
Wait,
this is the
non-fun
issue with
mentioned something
MAGA
that there's-
people is
And
that
it's
they're
his last
absolutely part of
term.
a cult. Actually, both
not
sides
a
are part of a
cult,
cult
dude.
because everybody's part of the pro
Oh, it is
MAGA
if you're
or the
like all
anti MAGA
rules don't
cult.
apply to
Actually,
them.
I'm
yeah.
not exactly I'm not like straight up MAGA. I just think some of the stuff he does is classic, and it's going to remain in the lexicon for years. But
I'll put it this way, Trippy. You're straight, you're up, and you're somehow not mega. I don't get that. But
well, no, it's
I mean,
I'm
we
kind
agree
of
it's going
pro
to
what's
affect us
happening.
for years. That's for sure.
no, non
Trippy,
said
while
something
you're
interesting.
talking, do you want to read this one, Trippy?
It says, well, in the case of Trippycast, or in that case, Trippycast have another. And then I just got another one that says, the Compire is recruiting. We got jacket.
What the fuck?
Thank you, Jeremy,
better-
and effing
They
Epic.
better have like white splash marks on them for no apparent reason. But non-fun, you said something about like there actually is evidence of insider trading. Was that reference to the
Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene thing?
So there's that, but there's also like the fact that like, right before he announced the 90-day pause, like there were, calls for certain stocks that spiked. And then I think there was like a clip of him with his advisor saying like, oh, this guy made like 100 billion this week, and this guy made X amount this week. Like it seems like there is evidence for. I didn't take notes in it or anything, but it seems like there is also evidence of insider trading. I don't know if just based on that evidence, I'd be comfortable saying he is doing it. But
the stock spike happened on the rumor, and then it was officially announced like a day or two later.
well, there was
And-
specifically
Go ahead.
like calls from people who I think people suspect that people knew that Trump was going to announce a 90-day pause, and the people around Trump basically put I'm not a finance guy, but
It's
I
a
think
safe
put
assumption.
out a ton of calls.
It was probably just on.
This
shit,
is
what was the
exactly
app
what
called?
Elon Musk was doing with
I
his
forgot what that
Twitter
app
and
was.
crypto markets.
And
was
I
probably
want
just a
to
signal message.
interrupt.
There you go.
I want to interrupt. Furby, you've been sent to the back, but I want to ask the chat if you want me to bring Hornet back. Put a one
Lauren
in the
said
chat.
Hornet. And all I'm going to
heard.
say is like, Lauren, you act tough, but I also see you laughing at my jokes sometimes.
If you want to bring In Pursuit of Knowledge back, put a 2 in the chat. So 1 for Hornet, 2 for Pursuit.
Can I just trade with Hornet?
Can you just what?
Can I just dip out and bring
Is this
Hornet up
insider
anyway?
trading? Isn't Hornet also
Fine.
Australian?
If she says no, stay here, Mudcrab, and filibuster.
Filibuster. All right.
that
Looks
free
like
will.
ones have it. All right. Go to the back, and then I've got Hornet up. Krabby, if you're leaving, you're
Oh no,
fine
if
to
he's here,
leave.
I'll stay for a bit. Fuck that other
yeah.
guy.
Oops, did I hit the right one?
Listen, Flo can deport
Man.
me, but I'll come right back.
Oh,
Thanks,
yeah.
Bintalk. It's not a cult.
We'll just
That's
do it
right,
again.
Bintalk. Look. All right. Yes, I will admit some people that are like full on MAGA act as if it's a cult, but look at the other side, Flo. Look at the nose rings and the hair dye.
Oh yeah, no,
and the
it's,
fucking
there's
thick
two.
glasses.
There's
That's
two
a
Trump
cult,
cults.
sir.
There are two Trump cults. Both of them are Trump cults. Just one loves him and one.
Yeah,
doesn't.
they are. One just says they're anti-Trump, but they make all their money off of Trump, and they fucking celebrate when he's in the news and all that shit, right? Like, come on, you can't tell me. Nobody can tell me that CNN wasn't the most excited they had been in 4 years.
Did you
when it
see
was
what
announced
happened to
Trump
their
was
numbers
president.
after he left office? They were tanked.
CNN was almost fucking off. Like,
Yeah. They had this. Yeah, they pigeonholed themselves bad.
Yeah,
Found
and
themselves in
it's
a
gonna be
Thorpe
real
situation.
bad at the end of this one.
Okay,
Like,
look,
this is
okay,
what
so
we're
quickly,
watching. This is what we're watching in action, right? The guy had 4 years to decide what he was going to do with his next presidency. He got it. Now he can't be president again. So what's he doing? He's telling people he's going to run for a third term. He's fucking with the audience. He's messing with all his haters. He's getting nothing but press, just like the first time. And he's going to keep on doing it. The guy knows how to manipulate the people who hate him. And he knows how to say things that are going to go viral and all that other shit. The guy's a superstar.
Yeah,
and I don't care.
Okay,
if, like,
cool.
or not.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I would agree.
I don't understand why they think he can run for a third term, though. I don't get it. Why do they take that so serious? I mean,
first of all,
because of all the other things he's done, that doesn't seem like he
Yeah.
should be able to do. Like announce on Truth Social, people should buy shit.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
all the
but
other-
still,
all
though,
the
he
other
can't
insane-
legally run a third term, though. I mean, he would have to legally run a third.
Well,
term.
James,
quite a bit of
James, why are you drunk again?
thing that
Hold on,
Donald
Oh my
Trump has
god!
done.
Yeah, this is only the first beer I've had today. I have, you know, and I was
It
gonna
only
have
takes
wine,
one.
but the
It
bottom
only
was all
takes one.
confused. Because I can't bring the wine down to a better, more tolerable level. Because it's like 17% alcohol in it. I can't drink that.
You know what gets you fucked up faster than booze?
What's that? A woman?
Yeah, well, no, slower actually.
No,
There
alcohol,
was
James.
a-
What are you talking about?
God, maybe one of you
Oh,
guys
man,
remember.
well, he said,
There was actually a president in the past that ran for a third term, and I forget how he managed to do it. Was it? It wasn't FDR, was it?
It was.
Well,
the-
that was-
It was Theodore. He
Theodore
ran
Roosevelt.
under-
Okay.
yeah.
It was. Were we at war at the time or something?
No, it wasn't in law that you could only run for 2 terms
Yeah, it
until
wasn't in
after
law.
FDR.
Yeah.
After
So it was just-
FDR,
It was a
yeah.
tradition started by George Washington.
Right. Because he only did 2 terms, and most
Yeah.
people were like, you know what? Yeah, it was good for George. It's good for me.
But also, speaking of the past, Kirby, we have
Roosevelt.
seen a president put in these kinds of tariffs before, and it led to an economic collapse. Like this isn't new, like knowledge.
Oh no!
He's
Throughout
not the
the
first
entire
one to
history of
do
the
it.
country, every
Specifically
presidency
from Trump's
that has put
first
in
one.
massive tariffs has lost like the next 3 elections.
Yeah.
Their party has lost the
Yeah.
next 3 elections.
Well,
every
he
time.
can't lose another election. Personally, he can't.
Well,
Party
the
can.
reason they lose the election
Yeah,
is
but the
because of the
Democrats
negative
aren't gonna
economic consequences that these tariffs have. But you seem to be of the position that they're going to have positive economic consequences.
Eventually,
So,
yes.
Yeah, over
Eventually.
time, yeah, they'll have positive.
Wait,
economic
Trippy, I'm also you keep saying like these tariffs are going to eventually lead
Look,
to
dude.
manufacturing being in the U.S. But again,
I'm
you're
not
speaking out of both
saying
sides of your
that-
mouth because you specifically say like
Listen though,
you
or
think
actually,
these
you know what?
tariffs are going to go to zero with these
You listen,
with these
but
other
you don't-
countries.
Between the
Yeah,
lines.
but he's talking about going to zero after the fact, not
Right, when
before
it's
the fact.
reciprocal.
Then
But at the
the
same
same
time,
thing
we
is
don't
going to
need to
happen
talk
again.
about it
What do you mean?
We don't
All
have
right,
to talk
can-
about that
I have a
again.
question
Can we
for
just
the
admit
panel.
the insanity of like starting at say like with Australia, we're at free trade, we're at a surplus. Then
And we added
you
a
wreck the
10%
economy,
tariff.
you add the
Okay.
10%, you start a trade war with them. Now you're at that, and so you're saying that the end goal for all that is to come all the way back to zero where we started.
It's called full
Well,
circle.
he's talking the
I'm
reciprocal.
gonna say this, and
So
I
all
don't
the
care.
pain had no reason.
At the
talking
end of the
reciprocal,
90
though.
days, at the end of the 90 days, what will most likely happen is another 90-day pause.
So it's
Trippy,
market
you don't
manipulation.
want that
So it's
because
all
you told me
manipulation then.
you want
yeah, it's
the
all
U.S.
hostage taking.
Whoa,
It's
whoa,
hostage
market
taking, it's
manipulation.
negotiation, and it's mob tactic. So what? Let's see where it leads
But
us.
you
Well, at least
understand it's
admit it.
mobbing the
Yeah.
American people
Wait,
as
It is
well.
mob
yeah,
tactic.
that-
It's exactly what I called it.
No, it's
all
mobbing the
economic
companies.
policies will
Oh,
affect the American-
James, all you've done so far in the last 60 seconds is just randomly throw words out there that nobody's listening to, and all it did was interrupt. Wait until a speaking point, right? Just makes more sense.
Also find more diction.
It's not mobbing foreign companies. It's mobbing you tell us that you're poor without saying you're poor. If you look at what happened to the stock market, right, that affects us. Even
Yeah,
if you
sorry,
don't own
I've
stock,
always
if you
been
have a
poor.
retirement account, anything, he's jolting every market up and down. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
fucks with everybody.
And also, the
Yeah.
reason they're going down is because the anticipated effects are negative. You're going to reduce. Trippy, do you think
Anticipated
yes or
effects.
no? Very simple question.
Yes,
If the
markets
tariffs go into
price in
effect-
shit. They price it in advance.
You say that,
yeah.
and then you ask me non-simple shit.
It's a pretty simple question. Do you
Okay.
think tariffs, yes or no, are going to increase are going to increase employment in the U.S. in aggregate?
Increase tariffs on their own? No.
Okay, so
Because
do you
you're
agree
looking
that-
to get companies to be bringing factory here, or at least use one of our factories to produce whatever they're producing there.
Yeah, and
Because
you
we have a
recognize that harms.
shitload of factories in the U.S. that are going unused. Look at Detroit.
How many people do you know who are looking for a factory
Wait,
job?
wait, hold
Yeah,
on.
that's
This is
the next
so.
thing.
because
Do you
there's no
think that
factories
the-
to get
Do you
jobs
think
at.
that the factory jobs that come back will be the exact same kind of factory jobs from
Yeah,
the
what?
mid 20th century?
I gotta say, I'm surprised you guys haven't brought up that the factory jobs will likely be replaced by automation. Like,
That's
I
right.
don't
That
know what
is
argument
number
you
one.
should
That's
go for
already
right now.
happened. That's
Yeah,
already happened.
I already
If
know
you,
what
like,
argument you should go for. I've just been waiting and nobody said it.
Yeah.
I'm literally going down that track
Well,
right
look-
now.
Good job, Effigy. You're smart. I like all of you guys. I don't want to end this like where we're enemies or nothing.
Oh no, we're good, dude.
Like, you
Too
just-
late, bitch.
Politics.
No, you,
Trippy.
you, Flo. You know what? I'm gonna become still. I'm gonna be still state, and then we'll
state?
crash into each other. It'll be like a Brock hitting a hard place. We're gonna bang
I've
our
shifted.
face.
Flow state is monetization purgatory.
Oh, the powdered donut. So I will be
Dusty. Dusty.
It
I
says
like
powdered,
donut better.
powdered dusty. Okay, well, I got nothing for that.
No, not yet.
Okay, Trippy. So
You'll come up with
if you just acknowledge, correct, that you don't believe that tariffs will actually increase overall employment in the U.S.
Sarah the raging hard on.
No, you didn't ask me that. You asked something else.
That's
didn't
what
you?
I
thought you asked.
I
if,
asked, do you think tariffs will increase employment in the U.S. in aggregate? And you said no.
Not on their face. It's the result
on
of
their
what the
face?
tariffs
What-
should bring. And now,
Okay.
like I said
Do you
earlier,
think the
everybody's
effect
wanting to
of
be a
tariffs?
fucking-
Do you think that what the tariffs incentivize, which is, bringing manufacturing back or whatever, onshoring, do you think that will lead to an overall increase of jobs in the U.S.?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. That was rude of me.
Okay. Do you think that tariffs and what they incentivize, which is to some extent bringing onshoring things, do you think that will lead to an overall increase in employment in the U.S.?
If they do bring factory or whatever they have to the U.S., it should. I don't see why it wouldn't.
Okay. So do you recognize, very simple yes or no question, yes or no, do tariffs harm the export sector?
Us exporting to other countries only if they start raising their tariffs on us.
Nope, absolutely not true. You're 100% wrong on that. And anyone can ask ChatGPT, and it will tell you you're wrong too. Ask ChatGPT
I'm
about
not going to
Lerner's
trust
symmetry theoring.
ChatGPT for everything, but I
That's
understand where
great.
you're
Yeah,
coming
I
from.
understand. I understand. Okay, so very simple question: if we're onshoring these jobs or whatever, is the U.S. buying less foreign goods?
I don't think we would be.
Okay,
Right?
so
Because
we're
we would
going to
still be bringing in
onshore
the
these
trade.
factories, but what, people aren't going to buy? People aren't
Oh,
going to
no.
buy
If
from them?
we onshore the factories, yes, we would be
Okay.
doing less trade. Well,
Yes, okay.
technically
Do you
less
agree-
trade, but we would still be giving them money. See, we wouldn't
Well,
need to
we-
bring
we
in
would
their
still
product
import
if we
other
were
things
making
from
the
them,
product
but
here.
Do you agree that would reduce the amount of dollars held overseas?
I don't want to move on to the next question yet. What I'm saying is we would still be giving them money. We would be paying their company to produce their product in the U.S., which would make them money. They would be, able to
I'm
take
sorry,
that money to their country or give it to their bosses. That's how companies work. Like if I make a donut company in Michigan and I have another one over in Missouri, right? But I live in Michigan. I'm still making the money from Missouri living in Michigan. Correct?
Right, but a lot of
Do we want? Sorry,
uh,
Flo left. I apologize. I just have to do the logistics every now and then. Flo left. Put a 1 in the chat if you want the Furby back. Put a 2 in the chat if you want Pursuit of Knowledge. Totally up to the chat. I'll leave it to you. Powdered Donut has exited the building.
Why not both?
Well, now we can bring up both because, well, no, actually, I got a newbie. So I'm going to bring the newbie up. Not so new here, but wonderful. So I'm going to go back to the chat. 1 for Furby, 2 for Pursuit. I might actually have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like Pursuit has won that one. All right. Hi, Gemini. How are you, darling? Are you?
I'm like
drinking?
you closed the contest too soon. Like put me back in the running numbers again. I'm hijacking all the votes. I don't know who won, but put me up against the winner, and I'm coming to take the crown.
Oh, it would be easy for you to beat the winner. Don't worry. That's why those two had the competition going. It was like a competition of the bottom. That's all it was.
Dang.
Because
So it was a losers competition.
They kept getting booted from the panel all night, so it's just a matter of
I'm sorry,
between.
Sarah, that we were making you money. Should we not let that
That is true. That is true.
That's
But
what
let's
makes
make
me
things
the
clear.
winner of them all. Didn't you know that?
Because losers do get used. So I get both sides of it, Sarah. Like, where it's like, yeah, you're a loser, but I will take your money. And if you thought you were going to get laid tonight, haha, yeah, never. So I understand what you did there. So, yeah, it's perfect. It's a symbiotic relationship. So, yeah, shout out to the losers as well. You're right. I would not have wanted to be in that crowd. Salute.
Shout out.
What
And
I
I believe Trippy, you were going on somewhere with a conversation. I wanted to give it back to you.
Yes. I was what was I saying? Oh, I was saying that like with the America Missouri thing. None fun.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. Is your I'm sure
You
what you're talking
funny
about
guy.
will happen to some extent. But do you agree that increasing the price of foreign goods will reduce the amount of foreign goods bought?
Well, that honestly depends. It depends on what good, but I don't want to get like semantic.
This is insane. This is insane.
About it. Look,
Obviously, the
what
answer
I'm
is yes.
saying is,
Obviously,
like,
if you increase the
look.
price of foreign goods, people will buy less foreign goods. This is empirically supported.
Right, 'cause you
can
brought
look
up
at
how
the evidence.
people-
You can look at the evidence that tariffs reduce imports. Tariffs reduce the amount of imports. That's quite obvious to anyone with a fucking brain. And this is actually the result that you yourself said that you wanted. You yourself said you wanted this stuff to be built here, which implies that we are not buying it from overseas.
Well, no, we wouldn't be buying the actual good from overseas, but we would be paying their company. How come you want to overlook
We're
that?
paying the company here, right? So I understand. First
The
of all,
money's
there
still gonna
would
go
be
to that
there would
company,
be
no
probably
matter
be
where it
first
is.
of all, there would probably be American companies that would spring up to produce this stuff, or American companies that already exist that expand to produce these things. And that money wouldn't go overseas ever. And like, do you agree with that at least?
State again.
You agree that
I
like
feel-
if we, for example, tariff steel, more people will buy steel domestically, and there is already domestic steel plants. There's already American steel companies that don't send their dollars overseas or whatever.
Right. We've got plenty of factories that make steel, right?
Yeah. So following from that, you would agree that tariffing imported goods reduces the amount of imported goods that we buy. Fair?
I don't really know if that's fair or not. This is like,
How
we
is that
got a
not
lot of
fair?
steel from China, right?
First of all, not really. China is like, I think China's like number 9 in the amount of steel that we import. But
They were never
second of
number
all,
one?
that obviously, I don't know if they were never number 1, but not historically, they've not been number 1 very often. I can tell you that much, but that's besides the point. So if I can show you, I mean, we can just Google this right now. I know I have an estimate from somewhere that tariffs do reduce the amount of goods that we import. Will you concede that you're wrong on that, or?
You know what? I don't think that. I don't think I know.
Okay, and just so we're clear, just so everyone in the audience can just like look this up or just like use their own basic logic to understand that obviously if you increase the price of imports, that we're going to reduce the amount of things we import. The fact that Trippy won't admit to that is fucking absurd, especially
No,
when
we would
Trump himself. Trippy said that he wants this very result, and Trump
I know,
himself
sorry.
agrees with this because his formula implies that if we tariff these goods, we're going to stop importing as many goods, and that's going to reduce our trade deficit. That is
And
what Trump's
since I'm the
formulas imply.
closest
So,
to a
let's just assume it to be
Well,
true
okay,
that
how about
tariffing
this?
imports
Let me
reduces
ask
the
you a
amount of imports
question,
that we
sir.
buy. Can we assume that to be true?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, buddy.
Does it matter to you if we pay off the supposed deficit? It's trillions of dollars.
The trade deficit or the budget deficit?
The fucking what you call it? The big deficit, the country deficit. The what do they call it?
The trade deficit or budget deficit?
$37 trillion we owe to
So that's
whoever we owe
our
it to.
budget deficit. So that's our budget deficit. I don't believe it's that like I don't believe we need to pay it off, as in I don't believe we need to have a balanced budget. I would like it to go down. I would like to stabilize the debt,
Do you think
the
it's
debt to
real?
GDP ratio, at which point I've already told you that a 5% VAT would raise as much revenue, if not more revenue, than these tariffs. and
It's
it's not going to
charging
have the same
ourselves,
negative
though.
effects. But so is a tariff. You recognize that people in the U.S.
The
pay
VATs
the
are
tariff.
just us. We're only charging ourselves VATs.
You
money.
recognize people in the U.S. pay tariffs, right? It's
No,
the person who imports the goods
not
who
the
pays
way
the
that
tariff.
you want people to think that they do.
Not the way. So you
look,
recognize
if you
study,
ran a business,
the study that Trump's team said that the people in the U.S. The study that the Trump team used said that the pass-through rate is 90%. Do you acknowledge that much?
When we have a business, when you own a business, you pay for what your goods are. If you're getting your goods from another country, then you could call it paying a tariff, but that country's actually paying a tariff to send it to you, and they're charging you more. It's not you paying the tariff; it's you paying the country.
The government,
to
first
cover
of all,
for their own tariff.
The
Are
government,
you retarded?
So with a tariff,
You are
when
retarded.
You import. You don't know what a tariff is. When you import,
You
a
don't
good,
know what a tariff
you
is, and it's
pay
very
extra
obvious.
money. You pay extra money to the U.S. Treasury. That's how a tariff works. I don't know.
No, you're going to pay that money to the fucking treasury any fucking way.
No, you weren't. If the good wasn't tariffed, obviously you wouldn't pay it. To some extent,
I'm not going to be paying the tariff, and neither are you. If
Right,
we're
so,
business
first of
owners,
all,
you're going to be paying the company that is producing whatever good for you in whatever other country. If you don't have to do
Yes,
that,
and you pay
then
extra
you would
money
be
to the
paying
treasury.
less. It's like this. If you were sitting there and you're going, oh, I want to move all my business to China because it's cheaper for me to have, and then Trump institutes this stuff, and then all of a sudden it's more expensive for you to have it produced by China.
Wait, why is it
You're
more
going to want it
expensive?
produced in the U.S., aren't you?
If it's more expensive, that implies
Have
I
you not
agree with that
thought
point.
this out?
That is what this is what this
You
whole
have not
argument is
thought
about.
this
Is that
out.
you are denying that. I agree. If you tariff goods, we will buy less imported goods because you incentivize.
You're going to
production
buy
in the
more
US.
American goods.
So do you agree? So we agree now. We agree that if you tariff goods, the amount
I
of imported
apologize
goods
for earlier if
the amount
we
of goods
were agreeing
import falls.
already.
You agree with that now because you didn't agree with
That
that
we would
earlier.
buy more American things?
Yes.
So you're pro-tariff too.
No.
Because you
but
want
so the
America to do
input-
good, don't you?
You need to go down this dialogue tree.
You want America to do good, don't you?
Your brain can understand. So do you? So do you agree? Yes or no? That if we import less goods, the amount of dollars held overseas falls.
I simply will not answer yes or no because neither will you.
Okay, so for the audience, the answer is yes, and like anyone can look this
But
up.
I can
Anyone,
answer
like,
without just
so
being
anyone,
yes or
no,
no.
I don't care. I don't care what you say because you're
You
bad
know,
faith.
of
You're not
course you don't
seriously
care.
engaging
You
in
haven't
anything.
cared about a single thing
everyone in the
that's
audience should look
tonight.
up or ask ChatGPT or ask Grok this question.
And
It's
you're
very
getting
simple.
really
Look up-
antsy, and I
look
can
up
see
the
you
tax,
shaking.
because you're fucking
Calm down.
insane, dude. Look up Tax
I'm
Foundation.
listening to you.
How do tariffs affect exports? What you'll see is that there's a very clear mechanism by which tariffs harm the export industry. Reducing the amount of goods that we import reduces the amount of dollars held overseas.
Can
and
you
that
tell me-
that increases the price of the U.S. dollar and world reserve markets, which harms exports. That is just one way, not the only way, but one way in which tariffs
So can
harm
you
the
tell
export sector. So
can
if
you
we
tell
say
me
that we're
one
going to
object?
protect jobs, if we say that we're going to protect jobs in this sector by using a tariff,
Tell me
we also
one
have to
thing.
acknowledge that you're going to harm jobs in the export sector, and that is just
Eventually
one
it'll
other sector
recover
that's hurt.
too, won't
Every
it?
other sector is
So
also hurt.
You can't tell me one single object or good that we need to get from another country, can you?
Bananas, mangoes, and what do you mean by need?
Exactly. You can't tell me a single thing. You can grow bananas in the
Well,
US.
I told you bananas and mango. You can't.
can grow
I almost
mangoes in
guarantee
the
you
US.
the U.S. does not have. I don't know. I don't think the U.S. has the capability to grow
You can
all
do it with
bananas.
hydroponics anyways, even if you
I
don't
don't
need.
I don't
you don't
believe
need
the,
to do it in
I don't
that
believe
climate.
the current demand for bananas could be met with U.S. production alone. But
Because bananas all
regardless,
stem
what
off
is
of
your
the same
definition of
mother
need?
plant.
Do you need to buy food from the grocery store?
God.
You could grow your
You
own food,
need
right? Do you
to,
acknowledge that? Do you acknowledge that? Do you acknowledge
do
that
you
you
need to
don't need
shake
to buy
like
food
that?
from
I'm
the
kind of
grocery
worried about you.
You're fucking insane, Trippy.
You've been drinking
Do you
Monster or
acknowledge?
something?
Do you acknowledge? I have
It's
been drinking
okay.
caffeine. I love
It's
caffeine. I'm a
not
caffeine
that
addict.
important, dude.
But look,
Yeah, I get
Trippy,
you, I get
you.
You know, I don't want to be a downer, but you guys do know what tomorrow is. What's tomorrow? Anniversary of the Death Star. The Death Star.
Okay. Do you acknowledge that you do not need to buy food from the grocery store, and you could instead grow your own food?
You definitely could. You can live off
Do you
the
acknowledge
grid.
that there's an opportunity cost to doing so, and that you have better ways to spend your time?
You buy seeds, you plant the seeds, you grow the stuff, and then you don't need the seeds because
Yes.
you can just grow more plants.
I recognize that. Do you acknowledge that there's an opportunity cost to doing so?
Just like
in
if
that
you buy a
you
chicken.
have more, in
Free
that
eggs.
you have more, in that you have more valuable things to do with your time. You can specialize in streaming
Well, when
or
you're
whatever
growing
your
your
real
own
job
food,
is.
it's
I don't
not
know.
all the only thing that you do is grow food. It's not like that.
I recognize that, but like anytime you recognize there is an opportunity cost to growing your own food, right? Wait, can you define opportunity cost?
Yeah, exactly. Just like with the tariffs, right off the bat, there's going to be a cost, and eventually you can make it.
That
next to
opportunity
zero.
cost never goes away, Trippy. You have no understanding what opportunity cost is. You have no understanding what
you
you're
don't
saying.
think I do, right?
You very clearly don't.
You can just
the
state
opportunity
that I
cost.
don't know all day. You can
Because
state
you don't.
that all you
I
want.
asked you to define. You don't know what GDP is. You don't know what opportunity cost is. You don't know what comparative advantage is. You don't know the savings investment imbalance. You don't know what the trade deficit is. You don't know any of these things. And you admitted that I have more knowledge about economy.
I did. I said you have more knowledge about economy, but you don't have more knowledge about, I don't know, drawing. Right?
Oh, okay.
You don't understand the thing that
you're
I
actually
understand.
making a good point. You're actually making a good point for trade, which is
So
that
it wouldn't
people
make
specialize
you
in different fields of
dumb
knowledge and then
to
trade with
not
each other
know
because obviously
how to
people
draw.
can't. Obviously, people can't. You're actually making a good point. You don't realize it, which is that it pays for you to specialize in drawing because I'm a bad artist, and it pays for me to specialize in learning econ because I understand.
And the
can read
U.S.
stuff and
knows how to
understand
make
econ.
most of the shit that we would be getting from other countries,
You
and we have
understand
the
there's an opportunity cost to do it. I'm gonna crash out, dude. Do you
we
understand there's an
will
opportunity
have
cost to do
the
it?
ability to manufacture these things in the mass that we need to eventually.
I understand we have
It's
the
not
ability
like
to
you
do
just
so. The
shut
same
it
way that
off
you
and
have the
move in with
ability
the
to
new
grow your own
economy.
food, but you need to recognize that there are gains
This
from
is what you
specialization,
call
there are gains from
non-fun.
exchange,
This is what you
and there are
call
gains.
a
Trippy,
economic
I will
reset.
Trippy, damn it on Discord. We'll set up a fucking 1v1. You're fucking insane and unbelievably stupid, but okay.
I
I'm
love being
happy
insane,
to
but you
set
don't
this
understand
up
that.
between the two of you if you'd like a moderator in the middle of you. But you did
Hell,
pay
I'll
for
host it.
the 1v1, and that was nice. And also,
was a
Robert
blast.
Bonita dropped over on Trippy's side, the big four. And
Again?
Sarcastic Saint, yes, he did.
Thank you.
Pardon me. And Sarcastic Saint says with the big five, if James didn't choose to send to the back, then I choose in pursuit of knowledge in the back for 10 minutes since I donated
Saint.
5 2 times and brings
Hater.
back Furby. All right, Furby is on, Pursuit is off. And then Gavin with the big five says, holy, can Dollar General Dusty shut the hell up for 2 seconds? He asks a question, then interrupts. It's dumb.
Whoops. Can I say I really want to get in on that 1v1 between Trippy and non-fun. So if we can find a way to make it a 2v2, I'm so down.
I made myself lightheaded earlier. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of felt like getting high. I haven't smoked
I
weed
just,
in like 7 years.
This is such like an obvious thing. It's insane to me that these people won't answer
No,
these basic
dude,
questions
no.
about opportunity cost and about it. What I want Trippy to recognize: does protecting industries draw resources away from other industries? That is the fundamental question I
Does
want answered.
protecting industries draw it away from whose industries?
Other industries,
unprotected industries, like from other countries.
Like for example,
I try to go down a very specific path with you to make you understand that protecting, for example,
But
the sugar industry
you're
will
trying
hurt
to-
the export sector.
I know
But you
what you're
seem to be
trying to
capable of
do
understanding that basic
you're
logic.
trying to walk
So
me down
I'm
a
broadening
path
it
so
now.
that you
I'm
can
broadening
tell-
it now to say that if you change the relative profitability of industry, as in you make clothing production relatively more profitable via a tariff, you're going to hurt other industries because people are going to start investing in clothing production, and that draws investment away from other sectors.
I know exactly.
Yeah, what is
you're
that called,
doing.
by the way? Isn't that like
And
the
what-
production's frontier curve or something like that?
So the PPF.
But what
curve is,
he's doing is
Here's
he's
what
trying to
I'm
walk me down a
going
path
to-
so he can say his predestined answer.
Here's what I'm going to
Predestined.
offer to the chat because this is going very well, and I'd love to see it continue. If you'd like the DGen Power Hour, which means we'll get one more hour after this, you have to finish the goal within the next 15 minutes. You have 15 minutes to do it. That means it's 12:54 now, so give the 5, add the 10. So at 1:10, I either shut down and go to bed and go night-night, or we continue on with the DGen Power Hour over on the Gauntlet side. Okay, you've been told. You have 6 more super chats to go to hit the goal, and then we will decide from there.
I really want to try to take a stab at this. So Trippy, if you understand that there's like this curve where like the US can hypothetically make and this is just 2 products, so we're simplifying here. It can either make all airplanes and no shoes, or all shoes and no airplanes. And there's a relationship between it. There's a curve where you kind of want it in between. You want a certain amount of shoes and a certain amount of airplanes because you kind of need both of those things for your country. Do you understand that so far?
Yes, exactly. You're saying that like there's shit that we don't know how to make.
No.
basically.
We know how to make it. We're just not as good at making it.
Okay,
Like
okay.
we can easily make like one airplane for every 10,000 shoes. That makes sense, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm 37, right? I don't know how old everybody here is, but everybody who's around my age and older can tell you that when products were made in America, they were better quality.
Okay,
Then
so
when
what
we
you just
started
said is
shipping over
completely
that
irrelevant. And you're
production-
not
Yeah,
actually
it's
engaged.
You're
in
gonna stop.
Stop why are you derailing to like these irrelevant things?
Caffeine.
It's so insane that you engage with like
Caffeine.
very basic, like
If it was
incredibly
legal, I'd send you cocaine to
trying
see
walk
what happens.
through the most basic.
Can I land my plane with the point I was trying to make real quick?
Please, Melody, please.
Please, yes.
The point is that different countries have different curves. And what that means is that different countries have comparative advantage between them. So if America sells one plane to China for a certain amount of shoes, then that's because America gets a way better advantage there, because if they were to give up one plane, they could only get like maybe 2 shoes. But if but China can get like 4 shoes for that plane. Or can make 4 shoes for every plane, and that's a very simplistic analogy. So don't read it like don't think about the cost of a plane. But the idea is that because of these curves being different in each country, you can't just say, "Oh, we're going to produce everything here." You can't have it both ways. That's assuming that you can have infinite production of all goods.
Okay.
Has anybody here ever been in a manufacturing job?
Nope.
Does anybody here have
I
a
have.
company in manufacturing?
I don't have a company, but I've worked in manufacturing.
Okay, well, I owned a company.
Hmm.
My old man owned a company in manufacturing.
Crazy.
And most of you are full of crap.
Okay, respectfully.
So look.
I
It
guarantee
comes
you, I'm
down
going
to
to have a better
cost
understanding
on
of international trade
materials
than
to
you.
produce a good. You do understand that, don't you? And the business owner is going to outsource to get the best price that they possibly can to produce that good via those materials. This is basic 101 economics. You ready to get spanked, kids?
Ooh, I like spank.
Respectfully, I guarantee you, I know more about international trade than you do. I guarantee
I
you,
don't
and
give
I
a
will
shit
still
about
choose it.
international trade. I don't give a shit about
We're
lining
talking
up.
about international trade.
Well,
I guarantee you, I know more about. I
don't
guarantee you,
have
I know more about Paris. I
All
guarantee you, I
right.
know
My
more about
pocket.
manufacturing. I guarantee you, I know more.
One at a time.
I like
Go ahead
lining
and
my pockets.
elaborate.
I don't care about international trade, and I don't care about lining another country's pockets and making them fat.
Then just realize that that's very limiting to how effective your commentary is here.
No, it's not. Don't even talk to me.
This is tariffs are an
Okay.
international trade issue.
So wait, where are we going to get our tin
Whatever
reserves from?
your point is, you're over there too busy concentrating on kids and getting access to kids. I'm not looking.
So are
to
you
listen to
talking
you.
about trade tariffs? Yes or no?
Oh, I'm here.
Low
I'm
IQ
here, you
shit.
ready?
Like she's just coping. Like that's all it is. Like she
Go
she,
ahead,
like,
Nova. I
she
love
knows
it.
deep
I'm
down
here for
inside.
the
She knows
smoke.
deep down
Nova,
inside that she's a
carry
Dunning
on.
Kruger. That her manufacturing experience only gets her so far, and definitely that she cannot talk about international trade on this. And when we're telling her that limits your commentary,
Really?
this
Coming
is the
from
best she
guy
can
who
do.
wants
This
to
is the
be a
best she
woman
can
all the
do.
time, right?
Well, just
Is that all you got?
actually go
Do
off
better,
here.
hon. Do better.
I want to hear what she was going to say about international trade.
More
You got to
hot
let her say
fire.
it before you can judge
Go
what
ahead,
I
she's
don't
going
give
to
a
say, right?
shit about lining another country's pockets. Our interest should be our
You're
interest,
self-indulgent.
period. Other
Okay.
countries do not necessarily make or produce anything better. They do it for cheaper via slave labor.
Okay, so
Before
where are you?
before anybody goes, let me do
Goes.
this, and then Nova, you're gonna get your 1v1, okay? All right. So you guys
already.
came in super amazing. I love you. I love DGen Power Hour. We're gonna rock this freaking shit. Okay. I have dropped. Yeah, I'm a happy tomato now. I have dropped the link. It is
Sorry, I'm
pinned-
late, man. I was out.
Oh, that's okay. I love your fire. I pinned it to the top. It will take you
I'm
over
not
to
sick
the
right now.
gauntlet. Start shifting over. Just click the link. Same show, different place for those who are watching. Everybody on stage, you just stay right where you are. I'm going to shut the Raging Tomato down here in just a few minutes. So follow the link that I pinned and you'll continue on with the show. Basically, I'm rating myself on another channel. All right.
Nice.
So do that now. All right. So we had some awesome, amazing super chats come in over on Trippy's side. John Bart with the big 2 super chat goal. Coom, dang puffy coom.
Thank you, John.
And Robert Tomita with the big 5 just to say, he always gets spazzed out when I say hit the goal or I go to bed because he knows I go to bed if they don't hit that goal. And non-fun in with the 2 just to say non-fun win. And effing epic is a new member, I believe, on Trippy's side.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Evan. Don't forget to use that Maxer emoji.
Oh, you got one of those? I need one of those.
Yeah.
Ox,
you one.
OXCat XO in with the big 10 because they would like to see this
It's
continue
OxCat.
on.
It's OxCat.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. I would have thought that would have been like XOXO.
I don't
Like,
think she's ever told. I don't think she's said it either way, but I'm just saying it's OxCat just so we can stop doing this.
Oh, all right. Fair enough. And then Avery with the big 5 to say 2v2. So Trippy, non-fun, and I believe Furby. I believe we need just one more partner in there, and I'll put together a Mod Monday for the 4 of you, and you can have at it if you want. If that's what you want to do. If you want to do a 2v2, or if Trippy and non-fun, you just want a 1v1, I'm happy to oblige. And Robert with the big 5, see, he's getting his anxiety so close. Make it happen. And of course they did. OxCat, OXCat XO with the big 5 to keep it going. Millennial Mike with the big 20. And actually, Millennial Mike has reached out to me. He's going to be coming on for a Throwdown Thursday. We're going to be discussing landlords and the socialism concept and capitalism concept and all of those things behind being a landlord, and is it right to have high rental costs and so on and so forth. So look out for that thumbnail. I'm making them all tonight. He says 6 super chats shouldn't be that big of a problem. Support your lovely host, the Raging Tomato. What a saint she is for putting up with all of this. Yes, you guys have given me a lot of patience. Sarcastic Saint with the big 5 says Trippy in the bag for 5 minutes for 2 reasons. 1 is letting non-fun kick his ass in a simple debate, and 2 is for sounding like a 60-year-old smoker. So I'm going to throw you in the back, Trippy. And then Ben with the big 5, tell her to stop woman-splaining and lose about 40 pounds. Shots fired. Shots fired. Don't be mean to my sexy, hot lady over here.
And my new red hair.
I love it. It's beautiful. And of course, non-fun would like a 1v1 with Nova. While you guys are doing your 1v1, I'm going to be doing logistics backstage to get everybody over to the gauntlet. So you might as well start moving now. Thank you. And
you guys can stay.
I don't think Ben likes girls. That's why he's
Okay,
calling him fat all the time,
respectfully,
but whatever.
I'm
How
tired
you
of people
doing? I haven't
who-
seen you since you were on my show.
Yeah, that's great. I don't care. Respectfully,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
tired of these people
Up
who
your ass
act
then.
like
How about
who like
that?
own these fucking companies and everything, telling me that like they know a ton about like economics and everything, and it turns out like every single time I know infinitely fucking more than them. So I just very simple question: do you support
Okay,
the
well, if you
tariffs
think you're
because-
so fucking badass, then why don't you go
Yep,
open a
mhm.
company and show all of us?
Yeah, that's great.
How
And
it's
so I
done.
recognize. Here's the thing. I'll recognize where I'm not skilled. Okay, I recognize you're probably better running a company than me.
skilled, but
Here's a question though. Here's
You
a
want to
question though.
blab to
What
me
is savings
no
minus investment equal?
practicality or working knowledge, and you can't get it done, but you want to give me,
Yep,
the lip
great. Yeah.
service,
What is
right?
savings minus investment equal? What is savings minus investment equal?
No, we're here to talk
In the
about
macro economy. That's
manufacturing.
great. What are the
tariffs. I
four?
can-
What
I
are the
don't-
four
I don't give a
components
fuck.
of GDP?
I don't
What
give
are
a
the four
fuck.
components of
Next
GDP? What are the
question.
four components? What are the four components of GDP?
I don't. What is gross domestic?
Yeah. See,
product
respectfully,
have to
like
do
she
with
doesn't
anything? I don't
understand
care.
any
Next
fucking thing
question.
about macroeconomics. So here,
I'm not here
I
to
hope
talk about all that stupid shit. I'm here to
Nope,
talk
you
about
absolutely are. You just don't.
manufacturing
You just are
and
too dumb to
taxes.
understand how it ties into it. Okay, so do you
Okay.
support Trump's
All
tariffs
right.
because you believe that they will help manufacturing?
How old
Is
are
that
you?
the
What are you?
position here?
19?
I'm 19. Yes, ma'am. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
do you support Trump's tariffs because you believe they will help manufacturing? Is that the position?
My position? Yeah, that's my position. Now what?
Okay. Do we acknowledge that during Trump's first term, because he tariffed a lot of intermediate goods, that the aggregate impact of manufacturing employment was negative?
I don't remember what it was back then.
Okay, so yeah, I can tell you because you run the literature
No,
on
I don't
this.
fucking
so-
don't be condescending. You
No,
want
I
to be
will be
condescending?
condescending
I'm gonna
because
slap
I'm
your
fucking
ass.
tired of these people, okay, that act like they're so much smarter and like try to make fun of me for being a kid when I know infinitely more than them. I know
don't
the
care if
literature
you're a
on
kid,
tariffs.
but stop acting like a fucking
respect.
know-it-all.
That's great. So when Trump did in Trump's first term, when he did tariffs on steel, because steel is an intermediate good, and because of exchange rate appreciation, which I can tell you about too, if you don't know what that word, what those words means, which I guarantee you don't.
Well, wow, you're kind of a punk, aren't you?
Yeah, wait, hold on. Do you know what exchange rate
You know
appreciation
what?
is?
You know what?
Hold on, wait,
Back
tell
in
me.
the
Do you know what?
day,
Do you know what
China
exchange
was
rate
one of the
appreciation
number
is?
one
Do you know
importers
what?
for steel goods,
Do you
and
know
it
what
was
exchange rate appreciation is?
subpar. Do you
She doesn't.
understand
She
that?
doesn't. She doesn't
It
know what
was
exchange rate
subpar.
appreciation is. She doesn't know what exchange rate appreciation is. So that's why
Oh,
she
blah,
wanted
blah,
to.
blah,
So
blah, blah, blah.
just real
Go
quick.
jerk off in the corner. I don't care. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's great. So during Donald Trump's first term, he imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum, and this is meant to protect American jobs and American
Get to the
manufacturing.
point.
You actually look at the studies.
Is there a
It ended
point?
up being a net
What's your
job
point?
loss because for
What's
every
your point?
one job that you
Okay,
protect in
all
the
right,
steel
so
industry,
you're
80
looking up
other
the
jobs,
past and
80,
you're giving
80
up
other
stats.
jobs consume
Okay, what's your
steel,
point?
and therefore you hurt 80 jobs and only protect one job. And if you look at the studies around this, it seems like that Trump's first tariffs were a 75,000 job loss, specifically in the manufacturing sector, not even accounting for the job losses that probably happened in other sectors as well.
Oh my
So,
God, you're still
here's the question.
talking. Get to the
So
point.
yes, I understand. I just got. Do you listen? Do you understand a point I just made? I just pointed out to you that if you tariff intermediate goods, as Trump's universal tariffs are doing, you actually hurt manufacturing employment. Do you understand that?
Do you understand that we haven't been manufacturing half of that shit for a very long time?
That's
America
not
used
true.
to
That's not
manufacture.
true.
Shut up.
You're speaking. You
Shut
are
up.
speaking out of your
I'm
ass because
talking now.
I have actual data.
Shut
and
up! I'm
statistics.
talking now.
Okay.
Do you
continue.
realize
Say-
that we
say
used
10
to
false things.
used to manufacture all of that stuff in the country at one point?
We-
Do you realize that we have most of the materials and the goods and the minerals to produce a whole lot of things, including petroleum, right? Gas and all that stuff, and we
We
don't
still make
do
oil
it.
here, but
and,
yes.
and we shift those things off and have them imported, so we make everybody else happy and we make everybody else fat. Meanwhile, we have no fucking jobs. We are subpar
Not
in the
true.
manufacturing world.
Also
And
not true.
when we do that, they are not getting the same taxes that we are giving. You do realize that, right?
Nope. You have no. Basically, everything you just said was wrong. So the really, I think
everything I
yeah.
said was wrong according to the
Yes,
guy over
so-
here who's 19 who probably doesn't even have a job. Sure.
That's great. That's great, but
Sure.
you have no understanding of anything. So real manufacturing
Okay,
employment
right.
in the
Real
manufacturing,
sure.
real manufacturing output in the U.S. was going up all the way during this entire period where he's saying we're offshoring everything, not because of trade, but because we just automated these jobs. If you know
Oh my
a trend
God.
line tied to manufacturing employment data from 1960 to 1980, projected out 30 years, basically almost exactly predicts the manufacturing employment in the U.S. with having no knowledge of NAFTA, with having no knowledge of China being in the WTO, with having no knowledge of all these free trade agreements, we still predict that manufacturing employment is almost exactly where it is now. That suggests that trade just did not have a bigger impact on manufacturing.
Are you trying to win on merit that you're looking up all these stupid tasks?
I actually have read the literature on this, so I can tell you that from all the studies I've seen, trade was maybe
Then you're
like
a homosexual.
30%,
Why don't you shut up?
30% responsible.
Anyways.
So I've actually read the literature. I can send you the studies if you want. That some studies say like literally 90% of the manufacturing job loss was due to productivity increases. Other studies, which I think more reasonably put it at like 30%, 25%. There's one that I think is pretty high that says like 40%, but none of them are majority. I've actually read the literature on this, and you haven't.
Okay, so what is your fucking point? Are you happy that we're going to be manufacturing things here again and making jobs and boosting our economy? Or are you just going to sit there and bitch and talk about all these stupid
So
stats?
if you would let me finish, I just explained to you, manufacturing output in the U.S. has actually been going up until 2008. When sort of structural factors after the great financial crisis slowed
you mean 2008
manufacturing
when
productivity
Obama
down.
came in?
But yes, exactly. It was all Obama's fault. Yeah,
yeah.
the 2008 crisis was definitely Obama's
Sure.
fault. But anyway, regardless, we were automating these jobs.
You
We're
were in
actually
diapers, you wouldn't even fucking know.
by output, we are manufacturing more now than we did in 1990, than we did in 2000, and we did in all these other years. And
I don't know about that.
manufacturing by value added is still going up to this day. Everyone type into Google Fred manufacturing output value added, and you'll see the continuous line up. Additionally, there are very good structural reasons why the manufacturing share of employment falls in every developed country. Every single developed country has followed the same path. They start with very high agricultural employment and very low service sector and manufacturing employment. Agricultural employment falls. Service sector employment continually rises. And the manufacturing share of employment rises until it peaks, and then it starts falling. Even countries like Korea that run trade surpluses, Germany that has trade surpluses, and manufacturing sectors experience this same decline in employment. This is a normal, healthy relationship for countries to have, and it is basically inevitable from per capita income increases. I can explain that to you.
Oh my God. You just blah, blah, blah. You just like listen to yourself talk.
Yeah, I understand. I've actually read the literature and everything on this.
I don't care what you're reading. Half of the shit you're saying is wrong. Like
Reagan
and Clinton helped move all of these companies overseas. You do realize that, right?
You don't listen. You don't listen because I just explained to you that even absent that, I just explained to you the reasons why trade is not responsible.
You do
for the
realize I
manufacturing
came
share of
into this
employment job loss.
conversation like literally when I showed up, right? You do know that,
Yeah,
right?
I understand. I just explained to you
I wasn't watching
reasons.
any of
I
this
just
prior
explained
to
to you
that.
3 different reasons why trade is not responsible for the manufacturing share of employment dropping.
What makes you think that?
The fact that I just said it.
Uh-huh.
Everyone can rewind and watch me talk about how this is the last thing I said was this is a normal path that all countries follow. There are very strong structural reasons.
I disagree. I disagree with your literature. I disagree with most of your literature. Most of the stats are doctored up.
No, you don't.
Most of the manufacturing.
You can't disagree because you haven't read it.
Manufacturing, for everybody, in case you don't know, parts of things are assembled in another country, and then they do like one little piece of it over here, and then they say, oh, gee. Made in America or mostly made in America, and it's a way to get around the nomenclature. Okay, it's part of the fine print of doing business. It's part of the loophole.
You can't listen there. You said that there were no jobs. Do we acknowledge that tariffs can only protect jobs at the cost of?
I didn't say no jobs. I just said
I understand you didn't mean literally no jobs, but everyone can rewind. You literally said we used to have all these jobs. Now we don't have any jobs.
Well,
do you recognize? Do you recognize that tariffs can only protect jobs at the cost of other jobs? Do you recognize that?
Sunglasses off. You're pulling them out of context.
Do you recognize
anything that I try to say out of context?
Okay, so here's a simple question then. Do you believe that tariffs will lead to an overall employment increase in the U.S.?
I think it will halter it temporarily until the second part of it resolves itself, because it has to come in from someplace else. The countries will either have to renegotiate and acquiesce, or we're going to have to cut off the trade and we're going to have to start reassembling somewhere else. That's how it works.
So let's say these tariffs go into effect. My question is, if these tariffs go into effect and we start producing things here, do you believe that will be a net job increase in the United States?
That's an obviously fucking retarded no-brainer. Obviously.
Your answer is yes?
Obviously, it's going to open
That's
up
not
a
at all
whole lot
obvious.
of manufacturing jobs and assembly jobs. Yeah.
Do we not wait? Not manufacturing jobs specifically. All jobs, total jobs.
I'm using it as a pejorative. Okay, it's a pejorative.
Will the total number of jobs go up if these tariffs go into effect?
Obviously, if they don't negotiate it out.
Okay, so do you agree, yes or no, that tariffs generally appreciate exchange rates? Do you know what those words mean?
Yeah, you little shit. Really?
Do you know what they mean? Explain to me what foreign exchange rate appreciation is.
I know. You know what? No, I'm not even going to dignify that.
She doesn't know. So for the audience,
you're being condescending.
Foreign exchange rate appreciation.
I'm not going to answer condescending.
Foreign exchange rate appreciation for the audience and for her. I am rude because you are. It's fucking absurd for you to come in here and say, "Oh, I own a manufacturing company. You're just 19," and then I know infinitely more about all this stuff than you. It's fucking insane.
Sure you do.
Anyway, for the audience, you should probably listen.
Sure you do. As you sit in the basement,
value of your currency
living under the house of your parents that they paid for. Sure you do. Sure you do. Mm-hmm.
So when we tariff foreign products, people buy less foreign products. What that means is that there are less dollars entering the foreign reserve market. What that in turn means is that the value.
I know what it means.
I don't believe
just because I'm not going to dignify you if you're going to talk down to me doesn't mean I'm not going to play into it.
The value of the dollar in world markets goes up. Now, Miss Nova, what do you think the value of the dollar in world markets going up? Okay, now Star. What do you think the value of the dollar going up does to export markets?
I don't.
She doesn't know. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. She doesn't know, guys. She doesn't know. So I'll give you the answer, guys, for the audience. when foreign exchange rates appreciate, you
Uh-huh,
hurt
here we go
American
again.
exporters
Yeah, didn't you just do this
because
with
other
Trippy?
other currency. Yes, because you guys both fucking dumb.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
other countries
Okay.
have a difficult have to spend more of their currency to buy U.S. dollars, which means they buy less U.S. exports. Now, simple question, Star.
Yeah, I
think
understand what
I
that
think you can
is.
get this one right. I think you can get this one
I'm
right.
trying
okay?
to sit here
I
and
have
think if
faith
it's
in
going to
you.
really
I have
hurt
faith in
anything
you.
or not,
Do
actually.
you believe that if exports fall, there will be
Mm.
less jobs in the export sector?
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay.
Possibly,
good to know.
but it's
You
temporary.
basically
You
got that
do
one right.
realize
Yes,
it's all
everyone directed it.
temporary. There has to be a correction.
Nope. It's not temporary.
It doesn't go
If
just
the- if
like
the
this.
as
There's
long
always
as
a
the tariffs stay
correction.
in place, exchange rates will be higher than they otherwise would have been. Do we
I'll say it
also
again.
acknowledge
There's
that
always a
changing-
correction in all the markets, in all of them. All of them. There has to be a correction.
So,
Once
if
the
you
law
aren't-
takes
if you
place, what
aren't-
happens?
this
The
is-
law has to go, and then we have to see how it's going to work into the markets.
So,
There's
fun
usually
fact-
there's usually a down into the markets before it goes back up.
Yeah, fun fact for
Uh-huh.
everyone who has critical thinking skills. Okay,
Oh
if
yes,
you leave the
No,
tariffs
which is
in
obviously
place,
not you
if
because
you leave these tariffs in
go
place,
see a
those
dermatologist.
you're never so true, buddy.
Mhm.
You're never those dollars are not going overseas because to your point, we are buying things domestically. You're never exchange rates with tariffs are always going to be higher than they otherwise
I
would
don't
have been
believe
without
that
tariffs.
I don't
But-
believe that there will be no trade with any other countries. That's
I'm not
retarded.
saying
It's
this. I'm
retarded.
not saying
It's
that.
not-
I'm
it's
not
not
saying
gonna hit
that.
the market that hard.
I'm obviously not saying that, and I don't believe that you said that. I believe what you said is that if we tariff certain goods, obviously we're going to buy less imported goods in those sectors, at least, right? Fair.
Obviously.
Yeah. Okay. And to my point, so long as we're buying domestically, we are not giving other countries
Other
dollars.
countries
fair?
the money. Yes, obviously. I
Fair?
came here
Yes,
saying
yes,
I'm
correct.
not interested in making other countries' pockets fat.
Okay, wait. So, I just real quick, like that appreciates exchange rates, not harms the export sectors. Just real quick on that,
I don't even
making
understand
other
what you
countries
just
fat
said,
part.
but okay.
I absolutely understand what. Anyway, do we we have trade deficits. Do you think those are a problem?
I don't like the way it's been going, obviously. So obviously it's been a problem.
Okay, so we leave these other countries with our dollars, right? And you think that's a problem?
Can you say that one more time?
So we leave these other countries with our dollars, right? You're saying we're making them rich. Is that an
Uh-huh.
issue?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
That's it's an issue.
So we also, what do they do with our dollars once they have them?
This is the stupidest question I've ever heard.
What do they do?
Whatever the fuck they want to do with it. Obviously.
Give me an example. Give me an example.
It obviously goes into their economy.
Okay, so fun fact. So just to be clear, you think that if
However
I
they
buy
wanna
it,
spend
if I
it.
buy
However
a
they-
Chinese
let me-
good,
let me
okay,
point
I
out
give
that
someone in
however they
China
say they're
dollars.
spending it on the
I
paper
give
is not
someone.
necessarily how they're spending it.
I give someone in China dollars. Do you
Uh-huh.
think that they go spend that money in their economy?
I